One minute he is grinding his favorite RPG and the next, bam. He is literally pulled straight into the screen, waking up inside the body of a totally irrelevant NPC. Staring into the mirror, absolute panic sets in. Tears start welling up because reality just hit him like a truck. He didn't just reincarnate, he spawned as Evan D. Sheridan. This dude is the ultimate walking tragedy, a throwaway extra cursed with an inescapable doom timer. Back in the real world, our player spent actual years trying to keep Evan breathing, but it was useless. Every single playthrough, Evan met his maker. We are talking about the most absurd game over screens imaginable. Squashed flat by a massive beast, yep, choking on toxic venom, check. Tripping over his own 2 feet and biting the dust, you bet. It gets wilder. One time he dumped a maid, and she straight up pulled a blade on him in revenge. Following that, a whole squad of 10 heartbroken girls formed a literal hit just because he ghosted them. And the absolute cherry on top. His final run ended while taking a fatal hit to shield the game's actual main character, right in the middle of a massive showdown against the final boss. Sure, that was his longest survival streak, yet giving him a tiny sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he can actually break the curse and survive this nightmare scenario. But the ultimate question drops: how do you even rewrite your own fate? That is, when a spark ignites in his eyes, locking in his primary objective, cracking the code to becoming the one background character who refuses to perish. In this universe, knights grind day and night to sharpen their blade mastery, while mages spend their entire lives mastering insanely destructive magic. For Evan, the cheat code is painfully obvious: just grind those levels. Pushing that level higher means mages unlock massive mana pools to nuke their enemies, while fighters morph into unstoppable lightning-fast tanks. But when the maid Mabel catches wind of this big-brain strategy, she immediately panics, wondering if this kid is crazy enough to dive straight into a dungeon right now. She instantly snaps at him, raising her voice while he casually tries to wave it away. Dropping the polite act, she gives him a fierce lecture, warning him to never joke about that kind of suicide mission, considering those crypts are swarming with absolute nightmares. As a high-ranking aristocrat, he is bound by duty to conquer one eventually, but only after hitting adulthood. Until that day comes, she demands he stick to the basics, grinding through safe, structured training regimens to slowly build his strength. Staring him down, she drops an absolute ultimatum. She is not letting him anywhere near a death trap anytime soon. Playing it cool, he nods along to pacify her until she finally storms out of the room. The plot twist. He deliberately dropped those words knowing she was eavesdropping, strictly to test her loyalty and reaction. Here is the massive secret, though: our boy hasn't just spawned in. He has been breathing and living as Evan in this fantasy realm for 9 solid years, and he realizes the entire population here is completely brainwashed by a massive misconception. The whole society is convinced that risking your life in those dark labyrinths is the one and only way to gain experience. Sure, that isn't entirely cap. Sweeping through those underground floors literally showers you with divine buffs, turning regular folks into absolute beasts. The hype got so intense that the royal crown had to step in, forcing high-tier aristocrats to heavily guard and regulate these monster spawns, directly birthing a massive, sprawling metropolis centered entirely around dungeon. And who rules over this monster-hunting capital? None other than his own old man, the legendary Marquis Solane D. Sheridan. Wiping out dungeon bosses totally spikes your stats. But Evan holds the ultimate walkthrough guide in his head. He knows secret exploits to farm power using broken strategies he memorized from his gaming days. Catching him muttering, Mabel tilts her head, totally clueless about his hidden agenda. Flashing a soft, innocent grin, he smoothly talks his way out of it, telling her to chill. Deep down, he knows the fandom of Demon War treated him as a total nobody. But ironically, his character model is low-key one of the most attractive guys in the entire franchise. But the depressing reality kicks in. He has to forcefully lock that handsome smirk away forever. Knowing the future lore, he realizes that flashing his killer visuals could trigger insane butterfly effects. Down the road, just one charming look might accidentally attract a psycho who ruins his life, and he refuses to activate any more sudden death flags. Shaking off that dark paranoia, he locks into hustle mode. Having fully analyzed how the locals perceive the demonic threat, his sole mission now is dodging the Grim Reaper. Step 1 of his ultimate zero-death master plan: getting absolutely overpowered. Pivoting back to Mabel, he casually drops a question about his upcoming birthday. She blinks, reminding him it hits the calendar next week. Without missing a beat, he orders her to schedule an emergency meeting with the Marquis before that date arrives, because his patience is literally at zero and his survival scheme needs to start yesterday. He is eyeing a highly specific prize from his father's vault, the legendary Mirasol's necklace. This shiny piece of loot was the absolute first relic ever pulled from the depths of the Sheridan dungeon. becoming a priceless heirloom handed down through generations. Back in the original game, the only legit way a player could snatch this god-tier item was by striking a binding deal with Evan himself. But here is the major glitch. It requires a highly specific, chaotic trigger to actually work, and oh boy does he remember that exact disaster scene. In the original storyline, when Evan attempted to awaken the relic by flooding it with magical energy and chanting an incantation, everything just crashed and burned. Out of absolute thin air, a tsunami of thousands of gooey slimes spawned in, completely flooding the entire zone. Sure, they were just pathetic level 1 mobs. But he had zero clue how to pull the plug on the infinite spawn rate. He swung his heart out, desperately hacking through the gelatinous sea, but eventually, the tragic visual of poor Evan getting fully devoured by jelly monsters went down as the most massive meme in the game's entire history. However, in that precise second of epic failure, his gamer instincts caught a totally game-breaking detail. Back when he was piloting the actual protagonist, he sliced up one of those exact slimes to save the kid, and a tiny system prompt popped up on the UI, alerting him that he just bagged one single experience point. Lightning strikes his brain as he puts the puzzle together. Those annoying blobs spewing out of the artifact were actually an infinite risk-free XP farm. This ain't your standard run-of-the-mill dungeon crawling level up. We're talking about upgrading your literal soul. In this gaming universe, every single move you make triggers a butterfly effect. The locals brush it off as basic gaming EXP. Whether you're out there slaying beasts or just grinding at the training grounds, spamming the same moves gets you those sweet points. The NPCs here just think they're polishing their skills, like mastering a craft. But honestly, they've got it completely twisted. Behind the scenes, they aren't just getting better, their entire existence is evolving to a higher tier. Back in his pro-gamer days, Evan DeSharon caught on to this massive hidden mechanic completely separate from dungeon grinding. He literally watched his existence stats spike. Our boy knew exactly how to cheat the system. Now, existence levels don't just skyrocket overnight like cheap dungeon EXP. The grind is insanely slow, super grueling, and basically hard-locked behind your raw talent and genetic lottery. But here's the absolute kicker. Existence levels have zero level cap. It's an infinite progression glitch that makes dungeon crawling look like child's play. Right then, Mabel bursts in, totally derailing his big brain plotting. She drops the news that his dad is waiting with the headmaid on standby for escort duty. Thanks to his relentless try-hard, grinding back in the game, our main character farmed a massive chunk of passive EXP just by flexing the totally underrated laborer title. Even a totally squishy scrub could beef up their stats. Though if he actually stepped foot inside a real dungeon right now, absolute game over. Dude would get instantly one-shot and respawn at the main menu. Typically, a laborer has to hunt to farm EXP, but his current toddler body isn't built for the front lines. Still, his gamer brain starts spinning. Are their mobs pathetic enough? For a literal kid to solo, he cooks up a genius cheese strat, spawn bottom-tier slimes and farm them for endless EXP. Enter Mirasol's necklace. It burns exactly 1 MP to spawn a level 1 slime. Following standard game logic, a fresh level 1 account spawns with 100 HP and 100 MP. Doing the quick math, Evan realizes he can spam spawn 100 slimes back to back. Sure, slime EXP is literal garbage, but starting this mega grind early, it's a massive snowball effect. They roll up to the Marquis's study. The heavy oak doors creak open and he steps into the boss room. Playing the perfect second son NPC, he knows exactly which dialogue options to pick to secure that sweet, sweet loot. He hits his dad with a bold request. He wants his birthday drop early. The Marquis raises an eyebrow, wondering what the big rush is about. Evan shoots his shot, whining that he spotted a certain necklace and is absolutely obsessed with it. His dad is shook. Jewelry. Over a mythical blade or a sick battle pet, make it make sense. But when Evan name drops Mirasol's necklace, the Marquis's jaw hits the floor. He quickly clarifies that this isn't just bling, it's a sacred family heirloom. You can't just toss legendary tier items around like candy. It's time for our main character's ultimate finisher, the devastating puppy dog eyes jutsu. It's a critical hit, melting his dad's defenses instantly. The Marquis is torn. Sure, it's his kid begging, and honestly the necklace seems totally nerfed and useless. But it's still legacy gear. Then a lore drop hits him. Ancient artifacts are known to lock onto their fated masters. Could the necklace have chosen Evan? Riding that wave of logic, he caves and gifts the artifact as an early birthday present. Evan instantly dive bombs his dad with a massive hug. But the Marquis quickly drops some crucial patch notes. There's a hard cap on artifact slots. Whether you're rocking rings, mythic swords, or enchanted chains, the human body only has 5 equipment slots. Overload that and your system physically crashes. It's a solid warning for when Evan eventually levels up and starts hunting for god-tier gear. Finally, the Marquis lays down one condition: once Evan outgrows it, the heirloom goes straight back to the family vault, no exceptions. Bet. Our guy fully intends to stash it back, but only after he squeezes every last drop of EXP from it. He knows this slime cheese strategy will eventually stop scaling. He pinky promises to give it back later, but right now his brain is buzzing with a bigger issue. How on earth is he going to track his grinding? He desperately needs some kind of UI or status window to monitor his existence EXP. But honestly, that's a problem for tomorrow. Tonight he's just hyped to secure the ultimate early game carry item. Back in his room, he inspects the loot. Suddenly, a hardcore flashback smacks him right in the face. A brutal memory of his original game over getting straight up devoured by a slime horde. The OG Evan totally botched the artifact activation and let the summoning magic spiral out of control. But this Evan, he's a veteran. He's built differently. He knows exactly how to dominate the artifacts, will flawlessly spawn the slimes and dodge the aggro. And best of all, the summoning chant is burned into his brain. The exact same chant that flatlined him in the game. But this time around, he swears it is going to hit completely different. Our guy can literally feel the raw energy pulsing between Mirasol's necklace and his own heartbeat. He channels the mana straight into his palm, popping a squishy little slime right into existence. But do not let the cute vibe fool you. This thing instantly lunges at him. He catches on quick that these level 1 trash mobs barely dish out a scratch, just hitting him with some baby poison damage. Unless they totally swarm him, they are practically harmless. He smirks, hyping himself up, knowing he is absolutely not the same weakling from his past life. His fingers lock around the gooey monster, squeezing until it bulges, while his gamer muscle memory instantly kicks in. Taking chip damage like this forces a mob straight into a brutal debuff, totally locking them into critical condition. And the second that happens, you unlock a savage, exclusive execution move that just absolutely deletes them from the map. The hardcore players dubbed it the final one hit. The instant the slime breaks, he triggers the finisher, popping the thing like a water balloon. After running it back a few times, he clocks his clear time, 10 flat seconds to completely fold a slime. Yeah, if he was already chilling at level 20, he would one-shot these dudes with a flick of his wrist. But hey, the grind literally never stops. This slime grinding is basically a slow burn. Every single kill stacks that sweet XP, so he locks it in as his mandatory daily hustle. Honestly though, spamming this trick is completely taxing his stamina and draining his mana pool dry. If he goes totally try-hard and spams this without breaks, his level 1 9-year-old body is literally going to crash and burn. He knows the game's mechanics like the back of his hand. Overworking your avatar just slaps you with a nasty status penalty. Like dipping below 50% stamina triggers wild shivering fits, tanking under 30%, boom, instant cold sweats and shaking. Running the numbers in his head, he wagers he will survive the grind as long as he firmly gates his stamina above that 30% danger zone. Armed with that meta-knowledge, he paces himself, totally micromanaging his energy and mana bars while keeping the grind alive. Fast forward a bit and his spawn killing gets insane. He is absolutely shredding through slimes way quicker than before. It totally makes him question if his baseline level already spiked. But honestly, leveling up should not be a walk in the park. Without a flashy UI or floating status windows to double-check, he is basically just guessing in the dark. He starts brainstorming if spamming the exact same move triggers some hidden skill requirement, and out of nowhere, bam, a wild skill actually drops. He assumes the system rewarded him purely for death, gripping the monsters over and over again. Probably some kind of clutch grip strength buff, though getting a skill that easily feels ridiculously broken. He also catches this terrifying tight squeeze in his chest whenever his mana tanks, though his physical stamina feels completely untouched. Even so, he knows deep down that chain summoning these things has to be racking up some serious invisible damage on his body. Our boy pauses, wondering if Evan, despite being total NPC fodder in the game, was secretly built like a tank physically instead of magically. That would totally explain why he is not dropping dead from sheer exhaustion right now. But then, a massive reality check hits him. Evan was hard-coded as a mage. The math is completely failing to math here. Meanwhile, Mabel catches the weird noises outside his door and bursts in, panicking. Our guy instantly brushes her off, swearing he is fine and telling her to bounce for a few hours. The second the door clicks shut, our protagonist bitterly roasts the game's trash developers under his breath. There is literally zero chance he is letting himself get flatlined again, so he drafts up an ultra-strict, hardcore daily routine to completely overhaul his stats, fusing his magic slime grind with some legit science-backed gym logic. Now that is the ultimate cheat code for massive gains. He also gears up to drop an absolute masterclass of a survival wiki way deeper than his old notes. This time, he is dumping the entire game's lore into it. We are talking the hardcore creation lore, kingdom beefs, shady global politics, the exact coordinates of overpowered loot and deep dives on every heavy hitter breathing in this world. Our boy sweat this game for thousands of hours, and every single plot hole and secret is still crystal clear in his brain. He is about to totally exploit that meta-knowledge to dodge every single death flag and stay 10 steps ahead of the plot. But he is not stupid. He knows real life might wildly derail from the original script. That is exactly why he is obsessively tracking the butterfly effect, hunting for any glitch between the original timeline and this new reality. It is his only shot at predicting the next boss phase. He is on high alert, deeply paranoid that a fatal doom wave might already be creeping inside the mansion walls. From here on out, he is playing in stealth mode. Every single flex is purely to stay alive. He finally locks in a brutal workout routine with one single objective: turning his body into an absolute tank. It is a flawless mashup of raw meta intel, mined straight from his gamer days, and the epic survival guide he is drafting. Plan secured. Evan kicks off his brutal training arc immediately. Cut to Mabel side-eyeing the other maids, frantically whispering about how unhinged and totally out of pocket their young master has been acting lately. She spills the tea on his intense shut-in behavior, banning anyone from his room. Another maid rolls her eyes, telling Mabel she needs to seriously chill. He practically tells her to watch her step. The footman drops a heavy reality check, reminding her that playing pals with the young lord is cool and all, but at the end of the day, he is still the absolute boss. Crossing that invisible line, yeah, that is a fast track to disaster with zero upside. Another maid aggressively nods, whispering that the vibes are entirely off lately. The little terror who used to spark absolute chaos and pull wild stunts 24/7 has suddenly gone ghost. The whole mansion has been way too peaceful since his fever broke. Leaning in, the footman spills that he caught the kid in the courtyard pulling some totally bizarre moves. He paints the picture: the tiny lord locked into this super rigid, unhinged posture. Honestly, it looked like some hardcore workout routine. Hearing the tea, the maid gasps, realizing she has caught him obsessively flexing and cracking his wrists lately too. The footman just shrugs it off. Probably just some weird kid phase we are too old to get, he mutters. But Mabel is spiraling. She is dead set that the fever completely rewired Evan. The older maid desperately tries to chill her out, while the footman bluntly warns that this paranoid energy will definitely get her fired. Suddenly, the dining room doors slam open. A panting servant crashes their little gossip circle. Gasping for air, he drops a bomb. Their pint-sized lord just hoisted a massive garden rock over his head. The footman instantly calls Cap, claiming the guy is tripping, but the newcomer fiercely doubles down. Sure, it was not a mountain, but there is absolutely zero chance a kid that small should possess that kind of brute strength. And get this, when he confronted Evan, the little dude did not even blink. He casually claimed it was a substitute for something called dumbbells. The poor guy practically chokes trying to pronounce the foreign word. Panic mode activated, Mabel lunges toward the door, but the older maid tackles her into a bear hug. The footman whips back to the breathless messenger and grills him on whether he hallucinated the whole flex. The terrified servant swears on his life it is facts. Mabel thrashes around trying to break free, but her co-worker's grip is ironclad. Cut to Evan, lounging comfortably with his mom, the breathtaking Redine D. Sheridan, head wife of the Marquis. They are chilling in the sunroom, sipping high-end tea. She playfully scolds her boy, dying to know what massive secret project has him in such a chokehold that he totally ghosted their regular tea dates. Smooth as ever, he claims he has been grinding on artifact research and crushing workouts to bulk up his health. She instantly clicks the puzzle pieces together. Artifacts clearly means that flashy Mirasul necklace his father gifted him, but the fitness obsession throws her for a loop. Was not his ultimate dream to become an overpowered mage? Our little mastermind drops some heavy wisdom, stating everyone has a natural-born lane, forcing a class build that does not fit. That is just a one-way ticket to misery. Not just for the player grinding it out, but for the spectators and the toxic coaches pushing the agenda too. Melting at his maturity, she gives him the ultimate green light to chase his own vibe, warning him that his schedule is about to get brutally packed. Starting next year, boom reality hits the young aristocrat like a truck. Hardcore noble training kicks off at age 10. In precisely 12 months, he is going to be drowning in aristocratic history, ancient tongues, brutal math, geography, swordplay, and arcane spells, basically the ultimate blue blood starter pack. She stares into his eyes, reminding him that carrying the Sheridan name in the infamous Dungeon City comes with crushing expectations. Down the line, he is destined to be his big brother's right-hand man, running the family's elite empire, so he needs to level up fast. But Evan reads between the lines. What she is actually saying is that the second he hits adulthood, they are throwing him straight into the lethal dungeon to prove his worth. Mom is shook that he already guessed the dark truth. But obviously he knows that exact meat grinder is what permanently deleted our protagonist in his past life. He swears on his life that he will hit the books hard when the clock starts. But for now, Mom just wants her baby boy to soak up his freedom. She nudges him to touch grass and roam the streets like the old days, even though the capital is still completely unhinged. From the dungeon's recent monster outbreak, Evan flashes a picture-perfect smile, but behind those eyes he is already locked in. A relentless vow to grind his slime-crushing routine every single breathing moment. With the 1-year countdown ticking, he is determined to max out this skill and trigger his second immortality glitch. But to pull that off, he needs a highly specific pawn for his master plan. Smashing the door to his room shut, he rips open his secret files, scanning the overpowered demigod NPCs he remembers. From the game's brutal Viscount arc, he instantly swipes left on the Venom Spear and the Blood-Eyed Witch. Sure, she was a total baddie with crazy damage output, but he has zero clue what server coordinates they are hiding at right now. Suddenly, his gaze locks onto the ultimate prize, the Silent Knight. An absolute beast of a unit who scales just as brokenly as our main guy. Evan's mind flashes back to the Silent Knight, an absolute menace of an assassin. Picture this wielding twin daggers, literally melting into the shadows and flat-out deleting monsters without making a single sound. But the universe did him and the other demigods incredibly dirty. Their tragic endings were completely messed up, but Evan is dead set on rewriting this guy's entire destiny. Born right here in Sheridan, this legendary rogue lost his folks to a massive dungeon outbreak when he was barely 9 years old. Trafficked off to a shady crew of foreign mercenaries, the kid only unlocked his insane abilities after surviving a brutal dungeon dive. Connecting the dots about that catastrophic dungeon wipeout, our young aristocrat suddenly remembers his mom talking about how the city is currently limping back from a very recent monster. Wait a minute. That means the Silent Knight, an absolute top-tier powerhouse from the game, has to be somewhere in Sheridan right now. Wasting zero time, Evan tracks down his maid Mabel and casually drops a bomb. Get ready, we are going shopping. Rolling out in the carriage, she looks completely lost. Mabel is low-key stressing. Considering the streets are totally wrecked from the monster invasion, there is literally nothing worth splurging on right now. Evan locks eyes with her and deadpans that he is buying a person. He coolly confirms that their GPS is set straight for the local slave market. Morning hits hard. Down in a completely devastated district, battered citizens shuffle through the rubble, while Evan's luxury carriage aggressively rattles down the broken Marketplace Avenue. Inside the ride, our boy breaks down the city's economic crash, blaming the whole mess on the dungeon, flipping inside out and spitting out horrific beasts that trashed everything. Mabel sighs, pointing out that until the city glow-up happens, high-end merchants are basically ghosting this place. She adds that folks are still actively hunting down rogue monsters. Evan completely agrees that picking up a shopping habit right now is giving major bad timing energy. But he literally has no choice. If he fumbles this opportunity, the city will just get too crowded later, totally ruining his master plan. His maid frantically whispers that stepping out for a shopping spree is wildly unsafe right now, especially when the item in his cart is a literal human being. Our main guy does not even flinch. He softly tells her to chill, explaining that their target destination is the one and only trading hub in Sheridan, fully greenlit by the government. She is highly skeptical, but he swears it is supposed to be a heavily regulated, super secure zone. Evan remembers the game's lore. The state monopolized these markets, and magically the hardcore abuse scandals mostly disappeared overnight. Still, toxic people always find loopholes to exploit. Some desperate victims actually spark violent rebellions, fighting back with hard proof of their trauma. And leading those rebels, a notorious icon from Demon War 3, a fiercely fiery redhead dropping infernos famously feared as the Blood Witch. Oh, and fun fact, Evan actually ran into her in his past life, and she absolutely smoked him. Suddenly the carriage parks right outside a massively imposing building. Strutting inside, Evan is flanked by his personal knight and Mabel. The guard fiercely barks out their VIP arrival. When the kid glances up, checking if the guard is fully ready to throw down for him, the massive knight named Dane actually pauses. Dane nervously points out that a gritty joint like this is no place for a sheltered aristocrat. But Evan claps back, his voice ice cold. He knows exactly how this ugly world. He isn't here to play tourist or just flex his dad's cash. He is on a mission to draft the absolute strongest allies. The knight gently suggests begging his father, the Marquis, for backup, but Evan brutally shuts that down. He is handling this solo. Why? Because in his past life, every single bodyguard his dad picked ended up dying horribly right next to him. They push forward, stepping into a dim room where a slick, bald broker bows in greeting. The broker looks shocked, questioning why a wealthy heir showed up without an entourage. Evan coldly replies that he needs to use his own eyes. Instead of trusting some random lackey to pick his ultimate crew, he demands to see kids right around his age, fully knowing they are the tragic survivors left orphaned by the recent monster apocalypse. The broker sighs, explaining that these tough kids literally sold their own freedom to survive, warning that their street mentality probably will not vibe with it. But our boy smirks. To him, that just proves they are fiercely motivated and hungry to survive, meaning he can skip the annoying loyalty tests. What he craves is someone who can level up right beside him, acting as his ultimate ride or die shield. The bald guy nods, figuring the customer is always right, especially when they pay up. Following Evan's orders, he leads the squad into a holding pen packed with waiting youths. The dealer mentions he filtered out anyone under 12. Evan's piercing eyes scan the crowd like a hawk. As the guards herd more kids into the lineup, his gaze locks onto a specific target: messy blue hair, pitch-black eyes, and sun-kissed skin. Boom. He instantly identifies him. It is the Silent Knight. Then his eyes dart over to a glaring crimson-haired girl. A chill runs down his spine as he remembers her, a top 5 broken character from Demon War 3, legendary for her pure villainous energy. Dane whispers that these scrawny kids look like weak links, urging him to browse the better stock. But Evan cuts him off instantly. "I need them both," he declares. You see, demigods, these god-touched anomalies, were the ultimate wildcards in the Demon War. They just randomly spawned into the world as an entirely new human subspecies. Born with painfully fragile bodies and super delayed growth, the general public completely clowned on them, treating them like worthless trash. But late game, a select few morphed into absolute unstoppable monsters. And the two kids glaring at him right now, they are the ultimate game changers, the terrifying Blood Witch and the legendary Silent Knight. Serving as the ultimate wildcards in the Demon War, the demigods actually managed to bypass their frail physical limits by grinding through dungeons. Every time they leveled up underground, they scooped up double the stat boosts of an average human. Plunging deeper only magnified that insane buff, rocketing their power levels so high that regular humans were left eating their dust. But here is the brutal catch: most demigods were too fragile to even step foot inside a beginner zone, and if they dared, most got wiped out before they even sniffed the 5th floor. Countless lives were thrown away just so a lucky few could hit max level, but Evan knows he can flip the script entirely, swearing to keep these two alive now that they belong to his crew. The bald slave trader nervously backpedals, stammering that their price tag is dirt cheap for a reason, warning that bringing them home will only trigger the Marquis's wrath. Our boy icily cuts him off, stating he is not here to negotiate their value. He is taking them. End of discussion. Evan claims both kids right then and there. Flashback to his secret deal, he specifically ordered this sketchy merchant to track down kids, matching this exact physical description. The trader swore absolute secrecy, leaving our guy completely confident that he is about to recruit an entire squad of overpowered demigod prodigies. He pivots back to the trembling kids, scanning them from head to toe. Flashes of their brutal, bloodthirsty gameplay flood his mind. They used to slaughter enemies without batting an eye. Right now there is zero time to sit around grieving their dead parents. Keeping his tone chill, our protagonist promises he will not bite gently, asking for their names. The red-headed girl freezes up, desperately trying to read his true intentions. After he asks a second time, she swaps a nervous glance with the boy and whispers that her name is Belois, though her late mom lovingly called her Lua. He flashes a warm smile, admitting he hopes they can vibe enough someday for him to use that nickname. The scruffy boy steps up, claiming the name Shine. He mentions bumping into Belois right as they got dragged into the slave market, confessing he actually never knew her name until this exact moment. Hearing the name Shine instantly rings a bell for Evan, who finds it deeply ironic compared to the kid's future role as a brooding Silent Knight. Stepping up, the noble introduces himself as Evan D. Sheridan, throwing out a casual invitation to be friends. Shine bites his lip, asking if he can speak freely. He demands to know why a rich kid would buy broken trash. Like the two of them, the Marquis' son locks eyes with him, firing back that if they are the same age, Shine already knows how twisted reality is. Shine grits his teeth, accusing the noble of buying them just to use them as punching bags for his own sick entertainment. A heavy silence drops. Evan shifts his gaze between the battered kids, his voice lowering as he preaches about how rigged the world truly is. He aims his words straight at Shine's insecurities. The boy scoffs, fully aware that life is a nightmare. Evan then points out his own massive privilege, flexing the sheer luck of spawning as the second son of a filthy rich marquis, handed a life of pure luxury on a silver platter. He tilts his head, mocking how insane it would be for bottom feeders like them to ever catch a break like that. The harsh truth shatters Shine's composure. He barks back about his cursed spawn point, born straight into the gutters. Clenching his frail fists, he screams that his body is literal garbage, demanding to know what fake blessings Evan is even talking about. The protagonist does not blink, dropping the bombshell that it is raw talent, an absolutely broken god-tier talent buried inside them both. Shine furiously accuses him of spitting cruel jokes, But Evan effortlessly claps back. Throwing a pity party might feel good right now, but will it ever actually fill that void inside them? Beloise's eyes widen. She quietly asks if she really possesses this invisible gift too. Evan nods, validating that they both hold the ultimate cheat code. The pure potential to become unstoppable. Flashbacks hit her, her own mother sobbing, begging for forgiveness for birthing such a frail daughter. Shine bitterly agrees, admitting his mom drowned in the same guilt. But our boy instantly shatters that trauma, explaining their parents simply lacked the vision to see their hidden stats. Shine steps forward, demanding to know how a random rich kid could spot it, when their own blood could not. Evan smirks, revealing his own overpowered perk, an absolute radar for spotting unpolished prodigies. Just like the two kids standing in front of him. Belois desperately clutches his sleeve, practically begging to know if she can shed her weakness. He promises her she can. He lays out the master plan he needs 3 solid years to unlock their potential. If they blindly follow his every command until then, he will forge them into absolute monsters. If he fails, they can pack up and walk away, no strings attached. Furthermore, as long as they wear his crest, nobody in this world will ever look down on them again. Shine immediately protests, shouting that they are literally slaves. But our guy swears on his family name to uphold the bargain. The only catch, once they hit their power spike, they belong to him forever. Belois pieces it together. He is no saint throwing around charity. He specifically bought them to use as his personal weapons. Evan extends a hand, laying all his cards on the table. Are they ready to gamble on his word and awaken their true power? They silently hand over their entire futures to him. The pair huddle in that grimy cell, heavy iron chains, still locked around their ankles. The boy straight up vows he is going to make it out alive, flat out refusing to fade away in the dark. The girl nods, matching his fierce do-or-die energy. Evan steps up, asking if they are ready to bet their actual lives on him. Dead silence fills the room until the boy finally drops his gaze. He murmurs that he wants to believe in him. Flashbacks hit hard, his mother, endlessly begging for forgiveness because they were too weak to fight back, his father doing the exact same. Our guy looks them dead in the eye and swears that in exactly 3 years they will be praising their parents, hyped and insanely proud to be born with such raw, fearless potential. Tears finally spill down the girl's face as both kids desperately latch onto him. The head maid catches this emotional scene and immediately starts barking orders at the estate crew. She commands the staff to scrub the kids spotless and check them over in the courtyard. Meanwhile, Dane raises an eyebrow, questioning what exactly the young lord plans to do with these strays. Without missing a beat, he casually drops that they are going to shadow him as his personal attendants for the time being. But down the line, they will be diving headfirst into those nightmare-fueled dungeons right by his side. The steward totally questions this move, bringing up the massive risks they just talked about. But Evan's mind is locked in, there is zero changing it now. Dane just marvels at how a kid this young could manipulate a situation with such smooth, flawless logic. He starts rambling about how children usually behave, when the young noble sharply cuts him off, making it crystal clear he wasn't feeding them lies. Those two are absolutely going to become absolute beasts in combat. And in just 3 years, Dane will witness that glow-up firsthand. The steward sighs, admitting defeat, and suggests they head back indoors if he is that dead set on it. He promises to dispatch the kids to his quarters the second they are cleaned up. Cut to later, Evan casually welcomes the freshly scrubbed duo. Shine keeps his mouth shut at first. Then, breaking the ice, he brings up that crazy offer Evan made her, the whole deal about giving them anything if they actually prove their worth. He genuinely wonders what kind of impossible tasks they have to pull off, asking if this just means scrubbing floors and playing the servant role forever. The young lord leans in and drops the bombshell. He only demands one single thing from them. They have to become his ultimate shields. Both of them echo his words in pure shock, so he taps his own chest, making it obvious he means his own survival. The boy instantly claps back, pointing out, they are literally just weak kids. But our main guy radiates confidence, promising them they are destined to become insanely over. He tells them straight up that he needs that future raw power to keep him breathing. Plus, they are going to be his shadows, sticking with him 24/7. The only exception is when they are grinding for. Shine connects the dots, asking if there is some massive deadly crisis looming over the noble's future. A smirk crosses Evan's face as he praises the kid's sharp instincts, totally validating his theory. He flat out confirms that fatal danger is coming and he desperately needs their muscle. The boy's mind starts racing, mumbling his thoughts out loud. As the young master breaks it down, he reveals his intense, something totally hidden from the rest of the world, unlocked exclusively for their eyes. The girl softly chimes in, saying she wants to give it a shot, prompting him to finally call her by her real name. He comforts her, guaranteeing she will eventually one-shot monsters way more terrifying than anything she has ever seen. With his demands laid out on the table, he flips the script asking what they crave in return. Once again they parrot his words completely stunned. Our boy lays down the law: if they keep him out of the grave, he is legally bound to make their wildest dreams come true. Flexing his title as the Marquis's second heir, Evan tells them the sky is the limit, whether it is mountains of gold, top-tier noble status, or even their absolute freedom. He pushes them to spit it out, demanding to know their ultimate goal. The boy echoes Evan's prompt, a fierce fire igniting in his eyes. He screams out his ultimate obsession, slaughtering every single monster in existence. He practically roars that he wants to wipe them all off the map. This young prodigy's toxic, burning hatred for beasts was clearly hardwired into his brain from lever sheer trauma. Even back in the original game's lore, the dude was basically a walking inferno of rage against any and all monsters. Bringing it back to reality, Shine locks eyes with Evan, and our protagonist smoothly promises to make that bloodbath a reality. But there is a catch: it has to be done his way. He breaks down the harsh truth to reach that god-tier strength. Stepping into the lethal dungeons is non-negotiable. Shine freezes up for a second, openly admitting he is terrified of getting slaughtered down there because he is still painfully weak. Yet Evan's voice doesn't waver for a second as he drops a massive guarantee, telling him that if he follows his gameplay strategies down to the letter, there is zero chance. Shine swallows hard, falling totally silent. But honestly, if walking through this hell actually guarantees his brutal revenge on those creatures, he is more than ready to put his actual soul on the line. Evan locks in the deal without a flinch, giving the kid the green light to go all out. Shine nods in absolute agreement. Then the young lord pivots his focus to Bella, asking what her endgame is. Because, looking back at the game's original storyline, this timid girl was destined to mutate into an apocalyptic threat that massacred countless humans. Not a beast, not a demon, but a catastrophic blood witch who completely derailed players' lives, literally forcing them into a brutal mandatory boss fight just to put her down. He stares at her, completely mind-blown, trying to figure out how this shivering tiny kid could ever evolve into humanity's worst nightmare. Shrinking back, she nervously whispers that she has no clue what to ask for. Spilling her heart out, she whimpers that she just hates freezing, hates starving, and is absolutely terrified of dying. In a shaky voice, she confesses she does want to get stronger. But looking past pure survival, her mind is completely blank, having zero idea what she actually desires from life. Evan gently raises a hand, his voice dropping to a soft whisper as he calls her name. Gripping her hands warmly, he reminds the little girl that she is only 7 years old, and that it is completely normal to feel lost right now. Brushing away her guilt, he promises her that no matter what the future holds, they will piece this puzzle together one step at a time. A spark lights up in her eyes as she agrees to search for her true purpose. Then our guy drops the mic. Starting today, they are entering his custom boot camp. He knows perfectly well that expecting instant god-tier results is insane, especially since demigods level up at a totally glacial pace compared to normal humans, and even when they finally level up, the stat boosts are microscopic. But Evan is always 10 steps ahead. He knows the ultimate cheat code for demigods to shatter their limits, and that secret sauce is skills. He hypes them up, declaring they are diving straight into skill acquisition. No boring textbook lectures, no overthinking the categories, just master the moves and get utterly jacked. Some abilities hit you with instant buffs the second they click, heavily boosting your stamina, maxing out your mana pool and turning your body into an absolute weapon. We are talking about broken passive abilities that supercharge your daily grind. Locking in permanent perks. Just look at the Shurden Knights and their legendary Secret Vision swordsmanship. That secret art did not just make them deadly with a blade, it permanently mutated their physical specs into something monstrous. Our boy prays their current brutal weightlifting routine will eventually mutate into a similar high-tier passive. Hooked on his every word, the two kids lean in close, desperate to know if they can really achieve that kind of power. Evan breaks it down. Sure, there are countless ways to unlock these perks, but he needs them laser-focused on just two paths. Path 1. Pure insane grinding. Repeating an action until the universe literally recognizes it as your core strength. Path 2. Joining an elite faction and absorbing their hidden arts over years of blood and sweat. He smirks, revealing they are going to abuse both methods to max out their gains. Dropping some heavy lore. The only reason lowly servants in the Demon War flex such insane mana and stamina pools was because elite noble houses passed down broken secret techniques, transforming their loyal staff into absolute units with massive social clout. He lays out the hard truth. The higher a family sits on the food chain, the more completely busted their secret skills are. They hang on to his every word as he reveals that they literally hit the jackpot, because the Shurden bloodline holds the terrifying rank of a marquisate. Their legacy skills are widely feared as the most legendary and elite arts in the entire kingdom. Now the million-dollar question. Can these two rookies actually absorb these god-tier abilities? Evan hits them with a resounding yes, but completely drops the sugar coating. Mastering this will be pure agony. Unlike the average household staff, their starting stats are ridiculously trash tier, meaning their skill progression is going to crawl at a snail's pace. He looks them dead in the eye, warning that they will have to bleed 10 times more than anyone else just to catch up to the baseline. But if they can somehow survive the absolute hell ahead, they will forge an unbreakable foundation of stamina and infinite mana reserves, which is the ultimate key to dominating their growth and completely shredding. Wrapping up his speech, Evan delivers a cold but vital truth: he can open the door for them, but they have to walk through the fire themselves. He locks eyes with Belois, challenging her resolve. But deep down, he never once doubts her inner fire. Sensing their raw dedication and loyalty, the deal is sealed. Standing tall before his newfound disciples, the young master scans the duo, demanding to know if their legs are ready for the brutal march ahead. Shine boldly barks his confirmation, while Belois gives a firm, determined nod. Evan fiercely claps his hands together, instantly summoning a stunning blonde maid from the shadows. Totally expecting him to throw another childish tantrum, she sighs. But our boy cuts her off loudly, declaring that the whining days are over. Instead, he has a dead serious favor to cash in. Pointing straight at his two rookies, he asks if she will personally mentor them. Her jaw practically hits the floor as she echoes his crazy request, completely stunned that he would ask for something so huge. Evan immediately changes the vibe, stressing that these kids are no joke. They are fated to guard his back for the rest of his life. Dropping the tough act, he begs her, admitting they are currently fragile but dripping with raw potential. He desperately urges her to take the reins, moved by his passion. As for the boy, she is throwing him straight to the terrifying head butler, knowing that old monster's brutal methods will definitely whip him into shape. A sudden chill runs down Shine's spine as he asks what kind of demon this head butler is. But before anyone can warn him, an intimidating shadow looms over them, his deep voice asking if the young master summoned him. In his head, Evan is already plotting. He just needs to weaponize his ultimate adorable puppy dog eyes, trapping the old man into taking Shine as an apprentice. Sacrificing every last shred of his pride, Evan shamelessly coos at the giant, begging for this massive favor. Suddenly, the scene rips away to Shine's darkest nightmares, buildings engulfed in roaring flames, the agonizing screams of his people, and a desperate voice shrieking at him to run for his life. He relives that bloody vow he made to claw his way through hell and slaughter every last monster that ruined his life. Bam! A thunderous voice shatters his trauma, roaring at him to wake the hell up. It is the head butler, absolutely barking down his neck to snap to attention. The massive man growls, mocking him for looking like a trembling mess after barely surviving a few. The head butler barks a harsh warning: at this pathetic pace, the kid won't survive a single day handling the heavy duties of a marquis-level servant. Blazing ahead, he drills it into the rookie's head. Raw stamina is absolutely everything. If you are repping the Sheridan bloodline, you have got to be physically built to back up your boss. He hits him with a reality check. Afternoon theory classes are up next, so Shine better keep some gas in the tank. Calling a 10-minute breather, the older man chuckles, admitting it is actually a blast watching a rookie level up. Right on cue, Evan steps into the frame, nodding. Yeah, the kid's endurance is completely trashed, but honestly, the young lord notes that the boy's base stats and everything else are completely cracked. For his age, his combat IQ is off the charts, his mind is razor sharp, and his sheer willpower to grind through tasks is absolute fire. Seeing that the noble decides it is time to crank the training difficulty to nightmare mode, smirking as he flexes that his stash of healing artifacts is practically bottomless. Suddenly, a maid slides into the scene, dropping the memo that the Marquis is requesting his presence. The young heir gives a quick nod and dips inside. Cut to the dimly lit study where his old man looks low-key stressed, asking why his kid has basically stopped touching grass lately. Our guy just shrugs it off, explaining he has been hyper-focused on running experiments. Taking it all in, the Marquis drops a heavy sigh, strictly ordering him not to push it and get himself wrecked. Right in the middle of their chat, the patriarch drops a massive lore bomb. That piece of gear. It is a scaling artifact. It literally levels up alongside whoever equips it. He breaks down how it unlocks entirely new skill trees once specific triggers are hit. He even confesses he was completely clueless about this broken feature until the chain actually locked on, but now he wants his son to witness it firsthand. Pointing a finger at the core gem, he asks if Evan spots that faint, pulsing neon green aura deep inside. He lays out the mechanics. Once that whole intricate design gets fully illuminated, boom, the item hits its next evolution phase. And judging by the current glow-up, that breakthrough is right around the corner. Our protagonist freezes, suddenly remembering that back in the original game, literally 0 players rocked this trash-tier accessory. so its scaling potential never even crossed his mind. Now a chilling thought hits him: if the gear gets a massive buff, are his summonable slimes going to get insanely buffed too? The sheer panic of those jelly mobs getting too tanky to easily one-punch sends a shiver down his spine. Getting utterly clapped by a beginner slime is definitely not on his bingo card. But at the same time, completely dropping his daily grind, yeah, that is just not happening. Shaking his head, he forcefully boots the anxiety out of his brain. Deciding a max-level slime is still basically just a squishy puddle, right? Moving on, his dad brings up the elephant in the room: how Evan blew his entire allowance, buying out those 2 new servants. Questioning if it was, Evan locks eyes with him, firing back that it was not pity at all, it was a calculated investment. He is 100% banking on those 2 becoming absolute powerhouses who will guard his life. That is exactly why he practically begged the head butler and top maid to run them through brutal boot camp. The Marquis absorbs his son's serious vibe. With a slow nod, he agrees to back the play, but he lays down a harsh boundary: if these kids mess up, it is totally on Evan's shoulders, nobody else's. Evan takes the deal without blinking, confidently claiming those 2 are already his loyal crew. Boom, fast forward 3 months, Shine is posted up looking razor sharp in his crisp attendance gear, standing tall before the young boss while Bellwise rocks her immaculate maid fit. Evan aggressively scans his custom squad from top to bottom. With the veteran butler hovering in the background like a hawk, Evan smirks. Sure, their builds are not flawless yet, but their gas tanks finally match the standard guards. The noble heir is actually low-key stunned by the insane grind they must have survived. He remembers that dungeon newbies usually start out completely squishy, and normally take a brutal 3 years to bridge that gap. Yet this chaotic duo somehow blitzed through the curve in just 90 days, locking his intense gaze on them. He lays down the law: from here on out, if they fail, that is on him as a leader, not them. The quiet girl softly chimes in, proud of her intense hustle, while the head butler pitches a fresh idea. He suggests cutting their brutal conditioning down to half days, letting them shadow the young boss for the rest of their shift. Evan immediately greenlights it, admitting that having them act as his personal shadows was the endgame all along. A sneaky grin crosses his face as he teases a secret phase 2, prompting the loyal butler to vow to prep whatever crazy resources his young master needs. Moments later, a massive heavy-duty chest is hauled onto the floor. The young aristocrat pulls out a ridiculously ornate grimoire, flexing that this specific cheat code is strictly locked to his character profile. Popping the crate wide open, he declares their starter loadouts: a pair of lethal twin blades for the boy, and a mystic lantern for Belwas. Shine practically drools as he grips the shimmering gold blades while his silent partner tightly clutches her glowing relic. Evan drops a truth bomb: these are not basic drops. They are high-tier magical artifacts, completely blowing standard hardware up. Thinking back to how the player base completely slept on these items, he knows their god-tier hidden potential. Without warning, he bursts forward into a blinding dash. He twists into a cyclone of slashes, the phantom blades violently tearing the air, ending with a brutal strike that blasts a thick tree trunk into flying splinters. Breathing heavy, he snaps his head to Shine. Did your brain record all that? The kid is hyped, realizing this insane shortcut is the absolute ultimate way to master dual wielding. Evan hypes up the flashy move. It is famously dubbed the beehive felling technique. Locking his arms in an X-guard to showcase the starting block, the young master breaks down the raw mechanics. Dropping his center of gravity into a deep crouch, he lets the invisible momentum carry the slash downward, stressing that pixel-perfect timing is literally life or death. Then he abruptly halts the swing mid-air, slicing out the recovery animation to save precious stamina. Shine's eyes track the trick and his body instantly mirrors the exact stance. As our main guy breaks the fourth wall of combat, explaining that canceling means aggressively snipping an action mid-flow, allowing you to spam deadly combos at breakneck speed. Evan tells him to trust the process and follow his lead. Shine locks in, gripping his twin blades tight, catching the rhythm as he grinds the sequence without a single break, drilling the moves until his footwork is razor sharp and every slash cuts flawlessly through the air. He holds the final stance, totally mastering the basics of the twin blades in under 24 hours. Back inside, Belwas is grinding her own training with the magic lamp, while Evan keeps a close watch. He breaks it down for her. Spamming the lamp's activation is the ultimate cheat code to level up her mana control. He hypes it up, explaining that since mana capacity is literally the most crucial stat for any mage, grinding this artifact will completely skyrocket her abilities. It heavily buffs casting speed, raw magical power, mana regen, and her max magic points. Plus, every single time it lights up, her fire affinity gets a micro boost. With literally 0 level cap, the more she sinks with the heat, the more insanely destructive her fire spells will become, making it the absolute god-tier training tool. Feeling the competitive drive against Shine, she powers it up, but Radine suddenly crashes the session. She spots, prompting Beloise to totally freeze and respectfully greet the madam. Radine points out that the lamp is a rare antique, That definitely wasn't supposed to leave the vault. Then it clicks, she realizes this is the kid Evan brought home, and asks if her son handed it over. Belois quickly explains his whole mana training theory, and Radine nods, putting the pieces together. She finds it wild that her boy handed out such a tricky artifact just to teach basics, especially since he has zero magical talent himself. Belois instantly snaps back, fiercely defending Evan's genius. Amused, Radine steps up, offering to personally mentor her, calling it an exclusive witch boot camp. From Evan. Fast forward, phase 2 of the grind goes perfectly as Belois spams the lamp's magic, rapidly maxing out her mana control and magic stats. Meanwhile, Shine is absolutely sweating it out with his twin blades, aggressively practicing animation canceling on the advanced Beehive Feller strike. During this massive time skip, our main guy is casually dual-wielding slime summons, proving his insane multitasking control. He grips Mirasol's necklace, flashing back to his original goal of taking it off. The second he hits the right existence tier, but then it hits him. This thing is an evolving artifact. His summoned slimes are getting visibly beefier, turning them into absolute tanks to kill but dropping way more experience points. Sizing up this insane loophole, he realizes gear isn't the priority right now, he needs a broken skill. With that master plan, Evan kicks off Immortality Project Phase 3, popping out slimes from both hands. He officially launches Immortality Project Phase 3 Total Poison Immunity. The goal is to build an absolute god-tier tolerance, until literally no toxin can touch his health bar. But there's a massive roadblock: the price tag. The required venoms are so absurdly expensive that without the head butler greenlighting it, the family vault is locked tight. Maybelle eavesdrops and asks what he's actually plotting. Evan shuts down her weird servant fantasies real quick, proposing a legit partnership instead. She tilts her head, totally lost, until he drops the bombshell: he's launching his own business empire. Soon after, Eric pulls up asking what kind of favor his little bro needs. Evan doesn't miss a beat, bringing up the VIP city inspection their dad dumped on Eric, the classic rite of passage where Sheridan heirs have to physically hit the streets to learn how to be a boss. He offers to carry some of that weight, and Eric is down for it, sliding a stacked document across the table. Eric scans the insane level of detail, wondering if Evan just copied someone else's homework, but our boy smirks, claiming he connected all the dots himself. Eric is blown away by the accuracy. The file literally tracks every single major shakeup in the city. Over the last 6 months, every drama has its root cause: the massive fallout, plus hyper-accurate market predictions for supply and demand, trending items, and easy-to-craft recipes using cheap local loot. Evan flexes his vision, explaining he wants to leverage this intel to bootstrap a startup farm, some side cash, and basically map out the entire city's meta. Eric knows this is way too big, telling him they gotta pitch this to their dad. Standing in front of the marquee, our boy drops his masterclass proposal. Their dad instantly calls him out, saying the scope is way too massive for a kid's side hustle, and there's zero chance Evan can solo all of it. But Evan stays icy. He says he's only going to monopolize one sector. When pressed, he drops the mic. He's taking over the pharmacy game, and tossing the rest of the empire to his dad. Digging into the notes, the Marquis finally gets it. This whole document was giant bait to feed him high-tier intel. Right out the gate, the Marquis narrows his eyes, questioning if this wild stunt was actually what he planned. Evan doesn't blink, swearing he just wanted to prove he's dead serious. His dad side-eyes Eric, muttering under his breath to ask if this crazy kid is actually his blood. Eric claps back instantly, saying the real question is whether this mastermind is actually his little bro. Slamming a stack of documents onto the mahogany desk, Evan demands an emergency meeting with the vassals. The Marquis smirks, declaring it is high time they level up the Once the VIPs fill the boardroom, a few suits argue the master plan would hit harder if they kept it anonymous. Others insist the sheer genius of the blueprint speaks for itself, though one guy openly questions why Evan wants to drag them into the medicine game, especially since it barely makes a dime. The Marquis nods, echoing his son's breakdown of how the entire industry is completely dead in the water, all thanks to the corrupt priests hoarding every scrap of healing magic. But our boy drops a reality check. A ruler's #1 job is keeping their people alive. He exposes how the temple flat-out refuses to heal anyone without divine power, totally rigging the system so all that cash flows straight into their pockets. The brutal reality: only elite dungeon crawlers or the filthy rich get a lifeline, leaving regular folks to literally drop dead in the waiting room. Evan pitches pure medicine as the ultimate cheat code for emergencies. If they can mass-produce low-tier healing potions and fix the supply chain, they could practically give them away, crashing the massive death rates in the slums overnight. Eyes locked, Evan vows to greenlight the project. His father doesn't flinch, stating they will launch this operation with his own name backing it up. Dropping the Marquis title means the greedy temple will be completely paralyzed from pulling any strings. For a split second, Evan falters, asking if it is really a smart move to go to war with the literal state religion. But his dad shuts down the doubt immediately. He promises to throw hands in negotiations, even if it means marching straight up to the emperor, and he will loudly justify it as a crusade for the people. With that, he officially rubber stamps the business expansion and the launch of brand new products. Not to mention fully funding a massive pharmacy. Evan bows with perfect respect, masking the dark, obsessive goal still burning inside his head. To hoard every lethal poison and rare herb on the map, torturing his own body until maximum immunity guarantees he survives this death game. The second the Marquis gives the thumbs up, construction crews blitz the site. In no time, a massive facility is completely up and running. But there is one massive glitch. 0 pharmacists are applying because the petty temple completely owns this turf. This sabotage absolutely enrages Evan, triggering a bitter flashback to his time grinding in Demon War 3, where their toxic meddling made foraging a nightmare. They made the dungeons insanely hardcore and turned snagging a simple potion into an absolute nightmare. It literally forced the main character to either recruit an alchemist or learn the brutal craft solo. Done playing games, Evan decides to just brew the meds himself. But a glaring issue hits him. Who the heck buys sketchy medicine from a 9-year-old kid? Suddenly, a light bulb goes off. He figures he could just play the role of a humble apprentice under a veteran pharmacist. He'd flex insane talent, win over his master, and pull all the strings from the shadows like a total boss. Plus, he's already packing a broken potion recipe from his past life to casually pass off as his own genius. Right on cue, Shine steps into the room. Evan instantly grills him on whether he bagged a candidate. Shine sheepishly admits he struck out, but managed to track down a guy who specializes in headhunting. A sketchy bald dude shuffles in, clutching a massive stack of files, and our boy immediately clocks him as the ruthless kingpin of the underground slave trade. The boss explains, there are plenty of exiled pharmacists scattered around, living completely off the grid outside the city walls, before sliding a detailed blacklist across the table. He gives a sly warning, telling the young master to pick his poison carefully. Evan's gaze zeroes in on one legendary name, Bernard Garcia, age 63. With zero hesitation, he orders the kingpin to drag this guy here immediately. 4 days later, Shine hauls Bernard into the mega mansion, where the grumpy veteran drops the most unfiltered introduction ever. The bald broker also drops off a bonus package, a young girl rocking a maid uniform who awkwardly introduces herself as Hannah. Shine immediately barks at Bernard for totally disrespecting the young lord, but the stubborn old guy just snaps back. Before things get ugly, Evan steps up, introducing himself with chilling calm. The old man smirks, telling the kid to just call him Grandpa Bernard. Evan tosses a polite thanks to the bald broker, slipping in a low-key order to keep hunting for demigod children under the radar. With a flick of his wrist, Evan kicks him out. Watching this alpha move, Bernard starts questioning if this boss is actually just a kid. Evan casually drops that he's 9. The old man bursts out laughing at the sheer absurdity, finally asking what the hell this toddler actually wants from him. Pushed for an answer, Bernard admits that actually working for him is a whole different beast, bringing up insane rumors that this kid is packing alchemy skills way beyond his own understanding. He drops a dark warning that there will be severe hell to pay if those rumors are just a bluff. Evan, he doesn't even blink. Evan throws down a massive wager. If he can blow the old man's mind with something entirely unheard of, Bernard is locked in for half a decade. Intrigued, the master alchemist takes the bet. But there is a catch. If Evan flops, he becomes Bernard's personal apprentice, stripping away every last one of his secrets. Rocking absolute confidence, Evan shakes on it instantly. The carriage pulls up to the towering estate of Brothers Pharmacy. Stepping out, Evan flashes a grin, casually claiming this massive operation as his future turf. The second they step inside, Bernard practically demands to see the magic happen. Instead, Evan keeps him waiting, guiding the crew straight into the medicine lab. Inside, endless rows of glowing toxic purple flora are actively sprouting in high-tech incubation. He slams a few vials down next to the planters, breaking down the insane mechanics behind hyper-accelerated herb growth. He straight up calls it a cheat code in a bottle, flexing how stupidly it is a hardcore exploit straight out of the endgame of Demon War 4. Twirling the vial, Evan smirks, asking if the legendary alchemist had ever seen such a flex. The veteran is absolutely floored. He mumbles the name like a glitching NPC, totally mind-blown, while Hannah mutters it right back in pure shock. While they stand there, shook, Evan drops, the patch notes god-tier herbs need way more time, and spamming the potion eventually nerfs its power. You gotta keep cycling in fresh batches. But even with those bottlenecks, this juice basically unlocks infinite fat. Bernard takes a hard hit to his pride, realizing he genuinely thought the alchemy meta was completely dead and solved. Yet here he is getting thoroughly schooled by a literal kid. A faint smirk cracks his weathered face as he admits the rest of his life just got a whole lot less boring. Capitalizing on the hype, Evan slides over the paperwork. Except he crossed out 5 years and slammed down 50, pushing the old man to ink the deal. Still riding the high of that mind-bending discovery, Bernard grabs the feather pen without a second thought. With the master locked in, Evan dives right back into his massive lore bible for Demon War. He grinds through his daily routine, constantly tweaking the roster. Later that evening, the squad huddles up, surrounded by stacks of vials and greenery. With a sharp nod from Evan, the strategy session kicks off. Phase 1: sweep the entire city clean of every single healing plant. From there, he explains they will aggressively expand their farming territory. He points out a massive loophole dungeon crawlers constantly toss out their leftover low-tier loot. Bernard pitches, tossing free samples to the local merchants to build hype, and Evan instantly greenlights the play. He breaks down the math, crafting a budget-friendly, shelf-stable brew means they can monopolize the entire urban market. In his head, Evan is already counting the cash, knowing that even dirt-cheap prices will print absolute bank. The initial drip might be slow, but this snowball effect will eventually turn the pharmacy into a citywide juggernaut. When Bernard sweats over rival guilds stepping on their toes, Evan shuts it down. The Marquis family crest is the ultimate VIP pass to dodge any red tape. Since the young lord cannot practically live at the shop, he tags Hannah in to act as Bernard's right-hand enforcer. Next up is Mabel. Evan pulls her aside, making it so he is officially crowning her the CEO and the ultimate frontwoman for their new empire. He tests her resolve, asking if she can handle the heat. Mabel goes dead silent before locking eyes with him. She has been plotting this exact moment since day one. She tells him to sit back and watch her cook, swearing on her life to protect his name and legacy, and promising to utterly crush anyone foolish enough to block their path to the top. Hyped by her fierce loyalty, Evan hands her the keys to the vault, putting her in charge of the entire supply chain and raw ingredient hustle. Cut to 1 week later. Brothers Pharmacy absolutely explodes, drawing a massive, chaotic mob of customers out front. The storefront gets entirely swarmed with desperate buyers tossing raw plants across the counter. Dropping Bernard Garcia's legendary name is an instant trust boost, making demand skyrocket straight to the moon. Mabel flexes their new policy. They are buying up everything, healing, flora, and toxic weeds alike, trading them for premium elixirs, pulling in a crazy surge of scavengers. Evan scrolls through the mental reviews, catching wild hype. One hyped-up warrior even claims the brew outheals an actual cleric's blessing. Smirking with absolute pride, Bernard states that no amateur mixer would ever have the guts to stamp their own name on such a masterpiece. Meanwhile, deep in the estate, the Marquis stares at a financial report, questioning if these insane numbers are just gross revenue. His jaw practically hits the floor when he learns it is pure, unadulterated profit post-taxes and wages. The sheer scale of his son's masterclass business move leaves him speechless. Riding this massive win, they instantly scale up, tapping the local guildmaster to recruit 2 more heavy-hitting alchemists. Before long, they straight up monopolize Dungeon City's entire supply chain, dragging elite foragers and potion junkies from across the kingdom right to their doorstep. All this aggressive testing quickly births something completely unhinged, a glowing, toxic purple tea branded with a literal death skull. When the crew starts sweating over safety, Evan casually explains it is a perfectly calculated cocktail of venom and medicine designed to hard carry their poison-resistant stats. To prove his point, he casually downs a glass like it is water. Abel panics, screaming that it is going to kill him, but Evan coldly claps back. He is drinking it specifically so that he becomes unkillable. Smirking, he shoves the deadly cup toward Shine, offering him a sip. Shine instantly backs away, sweating bullets, but Balua jumps right in, completely eager to take the hit. The maid practically screams for her to quit, terrified that mimicking his insane routine is a guaranteed death sentence for everyone. Right then it hits her. It is already March. She blurts out that Evan is turning 10 soon, and the words hit him like a truck. A whole year has already vanished since he woke up in this body. With brutal, noble lessons about to hijack his entire schedule, he knows his days of hardcore grinding are officially numbered. Shine pitches a wild idea. Why not just spill the truth to everyone? But Evan shuts it down instantly, flashing back to every miserable failure he endured while desperately trying to bulk up. Shine then suggests hitting up the dungeon instead. Evan shoots that down too bluntly, stating that absolutely none of them, not him, Shine, or Balua, are remotely ready for that nightmare. When Shine pushes back and demands a reason, Evan fires back that they still have 2 full years left on their agreed timeline. He vows they will only cross that line when every single detail is perfect. Shine complains, arguing they are packing way more power now. But Evan silences him with a sharp glare, reminding the kid he still has a massive mountain to climb. Taking a breath, Evan admits to Shine and Belua that their glow-up over the past 12 months is insane. He thinks back to day one, when they were just thrilled to match kids their own age right before their egos inflated from leaving everyone else in the dust. Shine frantically waves off the accusation, swearing up and down he would never flex like that in front of his young boss. Evan drops a grim reality check. Even elite soldiers get wiped out in the dungeons, but he softens his tone, promising they still have a window to level up. Stepping out, he begs the boy to drop the impatience. They need to bulletproof their plan so absolutely nothing backfires. Evan checks if Shine can actually hold his horses, and the boy nods. Balua pipes up, telling Shine to chill out, which just earns an epic eye roll from him as he reminds her she is literally 8 years old. Later on, Mabel slides over a crate of vibrant green herbs, announcing it as their weekly stash of lethal toxins and antidotes. Scanning the hall, Evan spots pattern F immediately and gives her a solid nod of appreciation. She relays Bernard dropping hints about being dangerously understaffed, which sparks a genius idea to draft Hannah as the new assistant pharmacist. Mabel totally hypes up the crazy potential and steady progress of the girl. When Evan asks what the temple is up to, Shine chuckles, explaining that planting a shiny new pharmacy right in the central district has the priests sweating bullets. Mabel nods, confirming she already spilled the tea to the Marquise about the whole drama. She gives him a look, asking if he is seriously still obsessed with grinding slimes. Evan just smirks, dreaming out. Mabel throws out a tip. Why not hunt down an artifact that maxes out grip strength? Shine is about to trash the idea until a light bulb goes off. He remembers a specific piece of gear that skyrockets raw power and is stupidly easy to snatch. Mabel tenses up, recognizing it from the infamous blood-stained fist bloodbath back in Demon War 3. She immediately warns them that the item is heavily cursed with sketchy conditions. The brutal game lore floods his mind. Evan remembers a dead, locking his birthday to a doomed date. In that twisted timeline, his loyal sidekick hands him dripping blood-stained gloves, swearing they give a crazy power buff. If Evan takes the bait, his damage output absolutely tanks. His skills completely glitch out, and a monster horde rips him to shreds. Game over. If he rejects them, he pockets the cursed things anyway, marches into a dungeon, and still gets wiped when his mana fizzles out. Both choices are a guaranteed death trap. Here is the twisted logic. The gloves totally crank up your raw stats, but completely block weapon damage. You only get the god tier buff if you throw straight hands. Armed with this meta-knowledge, Evan realizes the artifact is basically perfect for squashing slimes, since he is already brawling them barehanded anyway. Hyped out of his mind, he rallies the squad and drags them out into the streets for a massive shopping spree. He steers Mabel right past the flashy main strip, dropping truth bombs that the gear there is all cheap garbage. He reminds them that real dungeon divers would never dump top-tier loot in a basic storefront. Shine tilts his head, asking where the good stuff actually goes. Evan lays it out. They either hoard the god rolls for their own builds, flex them at insane underground auctions, or just get brutally jumped and robbed by. It is a ruthless cycle fueled by pure, unadulterated greed. Shine drops, his jaw stunned that people actually catch bodies over one piece of loot. Evan nods grimly, stating that a single overpowered artifact can literally rewrite your entire destiny. Shine thumps his chest, swearing he would never fall for that toxic greed. Balua backs him up proudly, claiming his pure class keeps him totally grounded. Evan chuckles, admitting it is tough to stay humble when you are built different. He hits them with a genuine thank you, rejoining the crew as they demand to know where the squad is heading next. Eyes locked on the prize, he tells them he still has a few secret spots left to hit up. He is honestly praying the epic gear has not been sniped yet. Striking a dramatic pose, he points dead ahead and reveals their final stop. Walking over, Evan holds up a finger like a professor dropping some crazy lore. Absolute madmen actually try to cook and eat monster drops, even with the insane toxicity levels. But trying to balance killer poison and chaotic mana outside the dungeon zones is basically suicide. He notes that only certified VIPs get clearance to taste that chaotic meat, while black market smugglers risk everything to sneak it out in the shadows. The street myth says chowing down on mana-stuffed beasts grants a permanent stat boost, but Evan quickly kills the hype. It is totally just fake news. Shine laughs, pointing out that if the buff was real, their boss would have force-fed it to them by now. Evan just smirks, hinting that gobbling literal poison might actually unlock a wild resistance skill instead. The maid begs him to drop the crazy idea, but our guy just smirks, brushing off her panic. He makes it crystal clear that they definitely aren't hitting up this butcher shop to score some steak. Rolling up to the dual-blade butcher shop, the shady owner glares through the cracked door, demanding names. Evan doesn't even blink, locking eyes with him dead on, and cuts right to the chase, telling the guy to drop the act since they both already know exactly what is going down. Chuckling, the massive butcher confesses the rumors about the Sheridan heir being built different were totally spot on, gesturing for him to step inside the gloomy shop. He points out that a high-tier noble like Evan isn't slumming it down here to haggle over pork chops across a dirty counter. The butcher aggressively demands if the kid came to bust him, but the young master just casually gestures to the mysterious object gripped in the man's fist. Evan drops a massive truth bomb, revealing the guy is holding a top-tier treasure without even knowing its true worth, daring him to guess what it is. Our boy strikes a deal, hand over the loot, and he will wipe the guy's criminal record totally spotless. But the stubborn butcher instantly rejects the offer, figuring that playing dumb is totally useless now. Staring him down, Evan gets intense deja and drops a chilling warning, claiming a god-tier item like that will literally never unlock for a low-level scrub. Then our guy goes for the throat, casually bringing up the butcher's deeply buried dream of becoming a master chef, leaving the towering man utterly paralyzed. Dangling the ultimate bait, Evan flexes his connections, promising him a golden ticket to snag the kingdom's ultra-rare monster cook certificate if he just plays ball. Heavy silence suffocates the room until the defeated owner finally caves, demanding to know what Evan actually wants. Fast forward to the mansion. Shine and Belois hover their hands over an epic-looking blade and a glowing crimson jewel resting on the heavy wooden table. Evan flashes back to their crazy shopping spree at Crimson Stir Fry and the Orc Pub, where they literally vacuumed up hidden artifacts like absolute bosses. All the remaining loot counts as a massive win for their squad, even though both the sword and the gem low-key refuse to bind to anyone until this exact moment. Shine tightly wraps his fingers around the hilt, feeling insane magical energy pulsing through it, while Belois grazes the jewel, feeling intense heat radiating off its surface. Their young master just watches from the shadows, grinning. He knows exactly why these picky relics totally ignored every other player trying to claim them. Hoisting the heavy blade, Shine pauses, wondering out loud if the system just straight up failed to register the weapon as a magical artifact. Evan nods, confirming the theory, but pushes his crew to dig a little deeper into the mystery. He finally breaks it down for them, revealing he deliberately sniped these exact two items out of all the hidden loot. They were completely broken, suffering from massively bugged ownership mechanics. Diving into the glitch, he explains the totally twisted logic to master the epic dual blades called Twin Blood. You actually have to touch the crimson plate first. But to unlock the fiery jade flame sphere, you literally have to make contact with Twin Blood. It was a massive developer screw-up, a pure coding glitch that totally... He gets brutal flashbacks to his past life, trusting the useless official guidebooks and failing the quest over and over again. He had grinded for intel and spammed quests for absolutely nothing, only to realize the cursed loot basically trolled anyone stupid enough to waste years hunting it. That is exactly why our guy big-brained it and grabbed both at once. Evan hypes them up, declaring these are straight up the most overpowered weapons sitting inside Sheridan. Belois instantly respects his galaxy brain tactics, but Shine still looks super skeptical about the whole crazy setup, prompting the young master to order them to swap their gear and try pulling again, promising they are about to strike pure gold. The moment they trade, boom, a massive shockwave of power erupts, blinding light explodes from Shine's blade while roaring crimson flames completely swallow Belois. When the dust settles, both servants are finally gripping their awakened god-tier weapons. Evan just stands there totally mind-blown that a literal game glitch carried over into real life, comparing it to following some ancient broken cooking recipe. Except this time, the final dish turned out way more insane than anyone could have ever He realizes the stats on these relics absolutely crush regular item drops. Honestly, the whole situation leaves him questioning the sheer reality of this crazy universe. A wave of nostalgia hits him, flashing back to his old self, glued to a glowing monitor, obsessing over the exact game that is now his actual breathing reality. Existential dread creeps in. Is he even a real human being anymore, or just a ghost trapped inside this digital matrix? Belois cradles the violently glowing orb, breaking down its complex magic seal, while Shine obsessively inspects the razor-sharp edges of his new twin swords. Snapping back, Evan wonders if what he always thought was a stupid coding error is actually a hidden feature of this crazy timeline. Shine notices him spacing out and asks if something is messed up, but Evan just flashes a warm smile. He tells them he is genuinely hyped to see them so thrilled, dropping a random thank you that leaves them totally stunned. Confused, Shine asks why the boss is thanking his own servants, but Belois shuts that down immediately, softly declaring that they owe him their lives for gifting them such insane power. Catching on, Shine respectfully bows his head in thanks, followed closely by Belois whispering a soft young master. Brushing off the feels, Evan regains his cool, announces it is finally time to grind, and slams a heavy pair of leather. He drops the lore, explaining he had to dump a massive pile of gold coins at the Orc Pub just to secure these bad boys. But internally, he is sweating bullets, remembering the brutal fact that back in the game, this exact piece of gear triggered the gruesome deaths of both the main character and his own villainous self. Flashing back to those bloody game over screens, he violently tightens his grip on the leather, but this time he confidently channels the raw surging power he has stacked up using Mirasol's legendary necklace. That gear had already snatched him from the jaws of death way too many times. The second he slides those gloves on, they violently shift color. A sick purple aura erupts around him. raw power absolutely flooding his veins as crackling energy spheres materialize right in his palms. The stats climb 0.5, then 0.7, until he fiercely crushes the orb, triggering a blinding shockwave. Just like that, our boy obliterates the slime. He is totally convinced he can weave this slime grind into his daily routine, but suddenly his pendant starts glowing like crazy, pulling his eyes to Mirasul's necklace. It just leveled up. He goes right back to smashing slimes, but wait. It suddenly takes a whole extra second to wipe them out. The terrifying truth hits him like a truck. If the necklace got a buff, the mobs it spawns just got a massive power spike too. Staring at this brutal reality, he knows carrying better loot will not cut it anymore. He desperately needs a new skill. With 0 options left, he shouts for Mabel. She pops in wondering what is up, and he orders a fresh cup of tea, spiked with a lethal dose of poison. She hands it over without blinking. Gripping the teacup, his mind races over the checklist. One requirement is completely locked in thanks to his brutal, ongoing poison resistance grind. He chugs the toxic brew, feeling the venom scorch through his veins. It is finally time to unlock the Devil's Attack, the most broken one-shot execution move from Demon War that instantly deletes enemies by targeting their absolute weakest spots. Everyone treats it like a desperate finisher, but he knows its secret glitch. You can totally use it on an enemy with max health, if you hit some insanely specific conditions. Honestly, mastering this is going to be straight-up nightmare difficulty, running the numbers. He ticks off what he already has, the insane level gap between him and the prey check. Fighting barehanded check, since those blood-stained leather gloves totally bypass the system's weapon rules. And the mob spawning at max health, Mirasul's necklace guarantees that. Now the final hurdle is condition number 4, catching the enemy completely off guard. His strategy: nuke the slime the exact millisecond it spawns. And on top of all that madness, he has to fight while heavily debuffed. The poison tea covers that perfectly, but pulling this off in real life, pure agony. He cannot just mash a controller anymore. He literally has to sync his physical movements. The summoning and the killing blow on pure instinct. He violently hypes himself up. Giving up is not an option. Fast forward a few days. Mabel begs Bernard for a heavy-duty muscle relaxer. The veteran alchemist immediately starts brewing, leaving her so relieved the pharmacy stays fully stocked. Raising an eyebrow, Bernard asks why the young master is suddenly demanding this kind of hardcore med. She looks absolutely terrified. She tells him Evan is destroying himself, skipping meals, dodging sleep, just endlessly grinding for something insane. Bernard mutters that it literally sounds like the kid has been screaming his lungs out, day and night. She honestly does not know how much more his body can take. Outside his door, the staff is frantically pounding the wood, screaming his name, begging him to just open up and prove he is still alive. Inside, Evan brutally faceplants onto the cold floor, violently gasping for air. Cut to a few days prior, Mabel hands him a vial and a pill, looking super confused about his kicking strategy. Evan nods, breaking down the mechanics. Devil's Attack only triggers if you forcibly cancel a normal strike to chain into the ultimate blow. An animation cancel technique just like the crazy combos Shine pulls off with his dual daggers. The absolute nightmare, he explains, is figuring out what move to throw first. For now, leading with a kick feels like the only viable play, because he desperately needs both hands free to execute the slimes. Throwing the frame-perfect slime summon into the mix, yeah, that just cranks the difficulty to impossible. He groans, admitting how insanely frustrating it is to force his actual muscles to do something a simple keyboard click used to handle. Mabel honestly admits she has zero clue what he is yapping about, but totally roots for him anyway. He smiles and thanks her, promising to give it everything he has got. But when she offers to stay and watch the grind, he firmly sends her back to work. Snapping back to reality, desperate shouts echo through his locked door, pleading with him to just show his face. Our boy grits his teeth. He refuses to settle for weakness anymore. He vows on his life to conquer the Devil's Attack before he turns 10. There is absolutely no way he is dying as some useless background NPC in this twisted game. World. Evan lets out a primal scream of pure effort. Meanwhile, Shine aggressively slams both fists on a desk, yelling that he is completely done waiting. He angrily admits he does not care how overpowered this Devil's Attack is supposed to be. He is terrified the young master is literally going to destroy himself at this pace. Bella stays chillingly calm. She looks him in the eye, promising that if Evan truly needs this power, he will pull it off no matter what. Down the hall, Mabel is full sprinting, clutching a heavy crate of potions. She freezes right outside the door. The usual bustling noises inside, completely dead silent. Mabel pounds frantically on the heavy wood. Moments later, Radine and the Marquise sprint down the hall, screaming his name over and over. The Marquise desperately demands the key, but she shakes her head. The room is magically sealed tight, meaning only Evan can unlock it from the inside. Voice trembling, Radine reminds him what day it is. She begs through the door asking if he finally pulled off his crazy plan on this special occasion. Finally. Heavy footsteps echo from within. The massive door slowly creaks open, and Evan steps straight out into the hallway. Radine throws her arms wide open, rushing to pull him into a massive hug while wishing him a happy 10th birthday. The whole staff watches in awe while Shine and Belois literally gasp out loud. Eric darts forward, practically begging to know if he is actually okay. Taking a deep breath, Evan flashes a confident smirk, promising them he is totally fine and he plans on staying that way. Pivoting to the marquee, our boy makes a bold move. He cashes in on the massive success of his pharmacy, demanding a specific artifact straight from. Cut to a sleek low-key building. This spot is the literal launchpad for his next its display case perfectly framing a glowing pair of crystal earrings. Fast forward and a wrinkly old tutor is absolutely losing his mind with joy, hyping up Evan for being a straight-up prodigy. But honestly, our guy admits he is still struggling hard even with the insane cheat code of Yo-Ban Min and his past life memories. He thinks back to all those classic isekai tropes where reincarnated main characters just casually ace every single. Yeah, not for him. Even the most basic lessons feel like pulling teeth. Pushed by his mentor, he grinds through and the absolute nightmare web of aristocratic drama. He knows all too well how messing up this lore could instantly trigger a massive death flag. Flashes of Demon War 3 flood his mind, reminding him of a million brutal ways he could bite the dust. With most of those gruesome ends directly linked to shady foreign elite, things get so intense he literally contemplates slashing his own face to avoid attention, though Maybelle frantically screams that his pretty face is way too valuable to ruin. Shine raises an eyebrow asking if he is totally sure about blowing his one reward on just a pair of earrings. But Evan is dead set. Seriously grateful for his wealthy roots, he locks in his prize, the legendary Snow Mountain Spirit earrings. An insane artifact that turbocharges mana recovery. Clutching his new cheat item, he gears up for the next phase, grinding through brutally long training sessions. Watching him sweat, Shine casually drops that he is finally old enough to pick up some real weapons. Evan just shrugs. He explains he hasn't found the perfect weapon yet, plus he physically can't take off his gloves right now, leaving one hand completely nerfed for a fight. Belois chimes in, warning him that raw power is literally the only way to survive a dungeon run. But Evan claps back, arguing that as a high-ranking noble, he needs to min-max what is actually useful right now. So he commits to throwing down in pure hand-to-hand combat until the perfect blade drops. He has this gut feeling his true calling is some crazy unconventional gear. He vows to test drive literally everything he finds, setting a hard 2-year deadline to make his choice. Meanwhile, watching from the shadows, Knight Captain Mikhail D. Arok of the Sheridan Marquis bloodline silently surveys the training grounds. He is the legendary commander of the Iron Wall Knights, a total beast, sworn to protect this family at all. Evan steps up sweating bullets. Back in the game, the captain was barely a step above NPC status, but standing right in front of him, the dude is an absolute unit. Evan's brain flashes to the original lore. Michael gets completely wiped out defending the Marquis estate during the invasion of the Demon King's 4 elites. It's a total bloodbath that ends with both the knight and Evan eating dirt alongside the ruined family name. Hitting the training grounds, our boy rolls up full, but his jaw drops when the captain casually mentions that he's here for the exact same thing. He doesn't get it until Michael suddenly rips off his shirt, flexing those insane stats. And the absolute Chad declares that from this second forward, he hypes up the kid for actually prioritizing raw fighting skills, admitting he's amazed that Evan of all people has that grind set. Full panic mode activated, the young heir scrambles to say there's been a massive mix-up, but the knight isn't hearing it. He flexes that he's straight up the best instructor in the city, maybe even the whole country. Evan tries to hit the brakes, bringing up the captain's packed schedule, but the guy totally shuts that excuse down. Michael completely waves it off, claiming his new pupil is top priority. He drops a terrifying smirk, suggesting they kick things off with the basics. He closes the distance while our main character frantically tries to backpedal. Fast forward one grueling month, and Evan is totally slumped under the shade of a massive oak. He's catching his breath when Shine plops down nearby. Bella swoops in, handing Evan a cool towel, and he practically sighs in relief taking it. Shine complains under his breath, wondering where his towel is, but everybody's focus stays locked on Evan. A few steps away, Michael breaks the news. Starting tomorrow, he's going off the grid to wipe out some dungeons before the next monster surge hits. He orders Evan to keep grinding solo while he's gone. This throws our boy off. In the original timeline, this knight dodged dungeons like the plague. Michael confesses that watching Evan's insane glow-up literally forced him to lock in and push his own limits. He admits that even as an older vet, he still craves that level up. The kid smiles, saying that's a massive win since more firepower makes the grind easier, and it's crucial for keeping the Marquis bloodline safe. As they vibe, the captain breaks down the nightmare of dodging traps, navigating mazes, and clashing with literal monsters. Evan tilts his head, asking if all that isn't just another flavor of hard work. Michael tries to argue the point, claiming that the dungeon leveling system hits differently. But the young noble presses a hand to his heart, dropping some deep wisdom, calling dungeon loot just another paycheck for bleeding and sweating. He compares it to hitting the gym, putting your neck on the line in those dark caves. Naturally cashes out as level ups. Evan boldly claims that the clock literally does, because the man upstairs tracks the stats and drops blessings perfectly, meaning there's zero difference between backyard training and dungeon crawling since the universe. He looks up, asking if the captain feels the same. Michael just breathes out, saying that answer hit the absolute spot. He admits he feels like a total clown for dodging the caves, finally waking up, and it's totally legit, stamped and approved by God. Before dipping, the knight swears he's going to pay Evan back for this reality check. The kid just begs for a lighter routine once he's back. Instead, Michael looks dead serious, vowing to bust out every brutal technique he knows to train him. The second he gets back from the raid, Evan's soul leaves his body. That was literally the exact opposite of what he wanted. The captain hypes up the rest of the squad to hit the dungeons hard, ordering them to crank up the training intensity so they're ready. His buddy catches the vibe, declaring they absolutely cannot just spectate from the sidelines. Shine chimes in, promising to dial up his own routine too. Meanwhile, our boy gets totally swamped, crushing slimes, surviving endless lectures and brutal sparring sessions. Fast forward, since the knight had already bounced for the dungeon raid, sitting down, the bald mogul respectfully greets the young noble, dropping the news that he's brought the kids they talked about. The little boy steps up, introducing himself as Paul, while the little girl quietly asks to go by Mary. Our MC squints, silently questioning if they swapped their real names. Before showing up in the game's actual timeline, he turns to Maybelle, ordering her to get them cleaned up and show them their new quarters. She nods, but Evan instantly cuts in. To clear the air, he straight up reveals that Paul and Mary are actually demi-humans. He shoots a thanks to the bald merchant, framing the whole deal as a massive long-term investment. It's the background checks Evan ordered. He specifically needed the files on the heavy hitters from the upcoming Demon Wars. But reading the room, he realizes scoring these MVPs won't be a walk in the park like it was with Bernard. He fully knows most of the main cast haven't even spawned into the plot yet. And honestly, the identity and gritty backstory of Demon War 3's leading hero is still a total mystery. But Evan isn't stressing, he's locked in and ready to grind anyway. Shine raises an eyebrow, asking if he's seriously okay doing the bare minimum. Evan just nods casually, dropping that he'll back up the others down the road, whenever they actually show up. Scanning the target list, our boy fully commits to funding the massive strike against the absolute menaces wrecking their world. This makes Shine wonder out loud if his boss is actually going to dive into the trenches himself. Nope, Evan totally shoots that down. He flexes his side character energy, insisting he's just an extra perfectly fine pulling the strings, by supplying insane gear and tactical prep from the shadows rather than throwing hands in the spotlight. But right in the middle of his speech, Belois drops the bomb that it's time for class. Evan absolutely panics, screaming that he completely forgot. Cut to later, where the grumpy old alchemist is shouting his name. Unbothered, Evan just sits there chilling, scooping up his shaved ice, until Bernard finally breaks the tension, asking if the pharmacy has been struggling since the brutal summer hit. Totally lost. Our guy blinks and tells the old man to spill the tea. Bernard admits he's stressing over the crew's heavy uniforms, roasting them alive in this sweltering weather. Watching the staff sweat it out in winter gear is breaking his heart, and he passionately argues that adjusting to the seasons is just basic respect. Then randomly he flexes his massive ego, loudly declaring he's still the absolute best alchemist on the continent. Rolling his eyes, Evan shoots back that he can't just dump all the heavy lifting at the shop on the old man forever, and seriously needs to squeeze more juice out of his own insane potential. Right on cue, Hannah walks in carrying sweet bingsu. Evan immediately asks if she's baking alive in that outfit. She tries to brush it off, but he gestures to the blazing heat and instantly apologizes for being so clueless. He promises to order a sleek summer fit the second he gets back to the estate. Her face lights up with gratitude, and he gives her a gentle reminder to hit up him or Mabel whenever she needs a hand. Bernard is genuinely touched. He praises Evan for being a top-tier boss to the crew and finally admits he wants to pay back the favor. Evan raises an eyebrow, asking if he's actually being for real. The Grandmaster sighs, explaining that while his brain is a literal goldmine, his physical stats and mana pool are completely washed. But he smirks that massive gap can be fixed if Evan becomes his personal student. Since literally anyone can grind alchemy, Bernard orders our boy to drop by for 1 hour every single day and demands he haul his own study gear, warning the kid not to get all emotional about it. Cut to that night, A creeping shadow glides into a massive, eerie hall. A nervous nun tracks down the bishop and cautiously asks if he's heard about the booming brothers' pharmacy. The bishop's face instantly contorts into pure rage as he slams his fist onto his throne, viciously cursing the shop for absolutely tanking their sweet donation money. Spitting mad, he screams that these heathens are completely disrespecting the divine will with their shady little business tactics, vowing to make them pay heavily for this massive insult. Fast forward to the end of class, Hannah gently pokes her head through the doorway, checking to see if Evan survived his brutal tutoring only to find our boy completely passed out on the floor. Bernard smirks down at the exhausted kid, flexing that if his schedule wasn't so packed he'd torture him with knowledge 24/7. Our main guy groans, joking that graduating will take 50 whole years at this agonizing pace, before scrambling to his feet claiming he's got vital boss duties to handle and absolutely books it. Watching him dip, Bernard chuckles to himself, realizing the kid could actually dethrone him in a mere 5 years. The Grandmaster proudly notes that his overpowered student isn't just leveling up his stats but is basically becoming a cracked teacher himself. Still, Bernard rubs his chin, wondering if throwing the kid into hardcore potion crafting is rushing things a bit. Catching her breath, Hannah drops some bad news. Foot traffic at the shop is dying down. Apparently, the massive temple has been spamming a free, holy blessing event for days now. Meanwhile, back at the corrupt temple, the anxious nun reports that Brothers Pharmacy is finally losing hype, and the bishop flashes a toxic smirk, gloating that their supreme power is back on top. But the nun nervously warns that this hype won't last, seriously questioning why they're picking a literal war over such a reckless, petty grudge. The bishop instantly shuts her down, growling that morals have nothing to do with it. He goes on an insane rant about how their cash flow has been bleeding out since that stupid pharmacy launched, blaming the wealthy count's family for stealing all the locals and high-tier explorers. He frantically claims he's just trying to save the Holy Mother Goddess's absolute authority, flat out refusing to back down. The nun desperately begs him not to poke the bear, since messing with a business backed by the count could trigger a literal national crisis. But the arrogant bishop just waves her off, scheming that he'll easily dodge the fallout by not targeting the noble family directly. She desperately cries out that the pharmacy staff are totally innocent, yet he cold-bloodedly ignores her, claiming he never actually planned to end their lives anyway. Absolutely disgusted, she screams that she's done playing along with his toxic games. Cut to later, the stressed nun is knocking back drinks at a noisy tavern, loudly venting about the bishop's fake righteous act when he's clearly just greedy for cash. She fiercely complains that this whole free blessing stunt is total garbage, and angrily mutters that the underlings are the ones doing all the miserable grinding. Suddenly, a familiar voice chimes in from the next table, teasing her about her massive appetite for meat skewers, and smoothly offers to cover her tab. Her jaw completely drops when he casually calls her out by her full title, Priestess Serpina Bellin. She's practically chugging her drink now, absolutely trashing the bishop. A hammered Servina vents about the toxic priesthood and the entire temple system, low-key debating if she should just ditch the whole thing to roll as a freelance priestess for the Count's squad. Evan locks eyes with her, and straight up offers her a spot in his inner circle, promising zero limits on his financial backing. Servina hesitates, confessing that sounds like a total dream, but she forces herself to pass. When he presses for the why, she admits she swore an oath to fix the corrupt temple from the inside out. Evan hits her with a harsh truth. There is literally zero she can do to flip the script now. Defeated, Servina agrees, sighing that she's already pissed off the bishop so badly she's basically one step away from getting kicked to the curb. Evan clicks the pieces together. She's in this mess, all because she got exiled from the main branch. He considers just letting her crash and burn, but then it hits him, just like he totally rewrote Shine and Belowis's dark fates. He could absolutely flip her destiny too. Snapping her out of her thoughts, he challenges her. Why not just lean on someone else? If you don't have the muscle to change the game by yourself. Looking completely lost, she asks what the heck he means. He lays it out. They need a deep dive into the actual root of the problem and how to crush it. The scene cuts to Evan standing shoulder to shoulder with Dane, facing down their entire crew of employees. He drops a heavy but immediately hypes them up, swearing that every single one of them will be guarded heavily. He reminds the squad that since they were officially invited to this city, keeping them alive and safe is 100% the host's burden. Dane steps up, making it crystal clear. Every worker at Brothers Pharmacy is rolling under the Marquis family's banner. Anyone who touches them is declaring war on the family itself. A nervous worker pipes up, asking who would actually be unhinged enough to try something. Evan smirks, saying the answer is dead obvious. It's the bishop of the Great Earth Order plotting to wreck Brothers Pharmacy. Whispers break out. Some think the bishop has completely lost his mind. to pick a fight with the Marquis bloodline, while the sharper ones realize that massive flex is exactly why there's a target on their backs. One guy connects the dots, realizing those shady free blessings were totally part of this setup, cooked up just to tank their sales. But our boy Evan just waves it off. He says the why doesn't even matter anymore, because they've already got a massive clapback locked and loaded. Bernard steps in to drop the details, explaining that a lot of them have been brewing potions on their own time, throwing together scrap herbs. The catch: the quality is kinda mid, definitely not hitting his god-tier standards for retail. So he pitches a wild idea: dump all those mid-tier brews into the slums for emergency relief. He swears he's gonna quality check every single vial to ensure nobody gets poisoned, and he doesn't sugarcoat it. Anyone who fails his test is getting banned from touching a single herb. For a hot minute, the room totally erupts in cheers, but the cranky alchemist just swats the hype away, warning them this isn't some flexing contest. They're only doing this until the leftover stash runs dry. Pivoting back to the real danger, Evan drops a reality check, stepping out of the pharmacy's safe zone. Hands the temple the absolute perfect opening to ambush them. Bernard grins, pointing out that this is the ultimate bait to drag the temple's dirty secrets right into the light. Our boy totally agrees, but he goes hard on the details. They have to set this trap flawlessly so the temple can't weasel out with excuses. Suddenly, he whips out a stack of rolled-up intel. They're leaked documents from a shadow source inside the temple, packed with a hit list of knights who are supposed to launch the strike. He orders his crew to keep them under a microscope, and no matter what, drag them back alive. He tasks Dane to leak the hit list to the rest of their knights, before officially shouting, "Go." Cut to later, Evan is playing to the crowd, loudly hyping up the temple's free blessings right alongside his own free potions. He paints this fake rosy picture, claiming it's an era of endless blessings in Sheridan. Down in the gritty slums, a pharmacy worker is screaming their lungs out, flexing the free goods, hyping up the locals to rush the lines. The street dwellers are downing the stuff and passing the healing drops to their sick kids. Watching the madness, Dane is completely floored. He confesses he had zero clue their training sessions cranked out this massive ocean of. He mutters that they've literally got enough stock to flood every corner of the slums. A frail older woman grabs the young master's hands, crying in thanks because the agonizing chest pain she suffered yesterday just straight up vanished. Strolling through the streets, Evan just soaks it in while Dane praises his insane charisma. Dane notes that when you genuinely hustle for others, people just naturally flock to your vibe. The knight confidently claims it's going to be smooth sailing from here. But, boom. Static crackles in his earpiece. A frantic voice reports they just busted a thief, trying to smash into one of their shops. We see guards violently pinning the rat to the floor as the comms blow up with warnings of more intruders breaching their other stores. Dane's expression turns icy as the rapid-fire order to mobilize hits his ear. He confirms the intel, realizing the temple's dirty ambush has officially kicked off. Breaking down the tactical board, Evan drops some pure logic. Sniping out people is way more devastating than trashing property. He calmly predicts the attackers are about to. The threat extends to their crew as well. He shoots Dane a look, asking if the knight picks up on any sketchy vibes. Before the knight can even open his mouth, his blade slides from its sheath in a blinding flash. They both whip around, locking eyes on a shadowy silhouette stepping out of the gloom. Evan locks onto the target and his brain clicks instantly. It is Shadow Thief Pento, a notoriously slippery early-game boss rocking his signature stealth gear, the Shadow Cape. Dane barks out a frantic warning, completely on edge. Pento just shrugs it off coldly, announcing he is simply grinding out a hit job. His mission: wiping out anyone pushing potions in the slums. The assassin makes it crystal clear that fancy noble titles mean absolute zero to him, and catching Evan in the crossfire is just a happy little accident. Rage flares in the knight's eyes, but our boy is already playing three-dimensional chess. He remembers that Bishop Seteron only drops Pento into the mix when he wants a target permanently deleted. Evan had actually smelled this exact play, coming from a mile away, tipping off the pharmacy crew ahead of time. But the chilling realization hits him: the bishop isn't gunning for the brick-and-mortar shop, he wants body bags. With the assassin looming right in front of them, things are about to get incredibly violent. Evan smirks, admitting he honestly did not expect the bishop to pull the trigger and deploy his absolute worst dog. The rogue flinches, visibly rattled that this random kid knows his secret identity. As the tension spikes, Evan glances sideways, casually asking Dane if he has the chops to solo this creep. Staring down an invisible threat, the knight swallows hard and admits it is a massive gamble, but vows on his life to shield his young lord until backup storms in. Our guy instantly decides he is not letting a loyal guard get packed up today, so he barks at Dane to squeeze his eyes shut. Leaping into the fray, Evan smashes a small sphere into the dirt. It detonates in a blinding white-hot flash, and he screams at the knight to strike. Dane explodes forward, His heavy blade carves a brutal arc right across the rogue's chest, sending Pento crashing into the dirt. The swordsman pauses, debating if they should interrogate the bleeding assassin. But Evan waves him off completely. "Don't bother," he mutters, knowing the goon wouldn't spill anything useful anyway. Out of absolutely nowhere, a massive, bald brute lunges with a glinting dagger. Dane screams out a warning, but Evan effortlessly sidesteps the blade, snatches the thug's wrist, and buries a bone-crushing fist deep into his gut. The knight scrambles to intervene, but our protagonist just brushes the dust off his shoulder, coolly declaring that this pathetic ambush is officially over. Now Evan flips his mental switch to the real game, how the ruthless Marquis family is going to absolutely obliterate the fools who dared cross them. Back at the Grand Estate, the head butler delivers a frustrating update. The captured meathead is keeping his mouth shut, sticking to a flimsy cover story that he only targeted Evan because he looked like a loaded walking piggy bank. Pinning this on Bishop Seteron is impossible right now. The slimy rat scrubbed his tracks completely clean. Even worse, the corrupted Knight Order is spinning a wild narrative claiming these thugs went rogue, supposedly acting out of sheer spite because the temple's donation funds got slashed. They stubbornly swear they had zero clue the precious Sheridan heir was wandering the slums that afternoon. Hearing this garbage excuse, the Marquis goes ice cold. The butler furiously points out that the bishop has completely lost his grip on reality. He pushes for filing a high-level formal grievance with the order, ensuring a stunt like this never flies again. But Evan's father brutally shoots that idea down. He spits out the harsh truth: if those holy knights actually respected the Sheridan name, they never would have dared to pull this trigger in the first place. The patriarch's eyes darken. He decides it is finally time to stop playing nice and drop the absolute crushing weight of the Sheridan family's true power. Breaking the heavy tension, the butler respectfully chimes in, revealing that his young son has supposedly secured a devastating trump card to nuke the order from the inside. With the clock ticking down to just 4 days, Evan steps up to the plate. He boldly promises his father that before the week is out, they will have the exact... The Marquis raises a skeptical eyebrow, asking if this master plan hinges on that mysterious inside mole Evan cultivated. The brilliant young tactician nods with a wicked grin. He promises that if they just play the waiting game, his spy is going to hand-deliver ironclad receipts that will destroy Seteron's entire career. He casually drops the bombshell: the supposed man of God has been aggressively embezzling fat stacks of donation cash, draining the exact funds meant to keep the main order afloat. And the kicker, Seteron personally greenlit that dirty hit squad on Brothers Pharmacy. Evan lays out his brutal endgame walk right into the order's headquarters with a mafia-style bargain. Dump all the radioactive blame squarely on the bishop's lap, and demand the Marquis family gets total clearance to take him out. The sweet payoff: the Sheridans will bury the massive embezzlement scandal. The patriarch's eyes light up at the political genius of it, a golden ticket to mend fences and rack up massive leverage. Evan confidently smirks, noting the desperate knights will literally have zero choice but to swallow the deal. Weighing the massive stakes, the Marquis hesitates for a split second, questioning if this shadowy informant might be feeding them lies. But Evan backs her up, hyping her elite surveillance skills. He explains she operates totally under the radar as a low-ranking grunt, and having personally vetted her face-to-face, he knows she is 100% locked in and loyal. Convinced by the flawless logic, his father signs off on the waiting game. He then turns his commanding presence toward Maybelle and Belois, giving them a heavy nod of respect for keeping his boy breathing, and formally tasks the two deadly maids with babying him. Our boy instantly freaks out, screaming at the top of his lungs for Shine to come save him from their overbearing affection. He practically wrestles to escape, desperately howling to be unhanded, while his dad just struts out of the room like a total boss. Fast forward 3 tense days, and Serpina slides a massive pile of dirt onto Evan's desk, purring that she collected every single scrap just for him. Staring at the mountain of lethal blackmail, he flashes a dark grin, whispering that this is more than enough ammo to put the holy man. She casually admits she has been hoarding these receipts for ages, just waiting for the perfect moment to completely nuke his life. Evan counters with cold, calculated logic: if they hand this explosive evidence directly to the order, they won't just ruin his career, they will erase his entire existence. The spy blinks, genuinely surprised, murmuring that she only aimed to drag his family name through the mud, never imagining her intel would actually catch a body. But Evan just locks eyes with her, his voice dropping to absolute zero. He bluntly states the grim reality: the exact second that greedy rat laid a finger on their pharmacy, thanks to her covering their tracks, those files are strictly off limits, he points out. He is totally convinced that keeping those papers buried is the only thing stopping an all-out war between the Sheridan bloodline and the Order of the Great. That fool Seteron really thought the Marquis was completely powerless to strike without hard proof. But looking back at the lore of Demon War 3, the Marquis absolutely obliterates the Order, proving that corrupt Bishop made a fatal miscalculation. Evan looks Servina dead in the eye, telling her to drop the guilt trip and leave the past in the dust. Her face softens as she expresses genuine relief for backing him up, swearing absolute loyalty and wishing him the absolute best. But he shoots down the idea of her serving the Marquis estate directly. He breaks it down clearly. If his chosen candidate takes the Grand Bishop throne, his own odds of surviving this nightmare skyrocket. It is a massive win-win-win scenario. The Marquis family cut to the trial. Cetteron is screaming his lungs out about a total frame job while guards wrestle him down until the Marquis barks at him to shut his mouth. Rattling off a laundry list of his sickening crimes against Brothers Pharmacy, his own son Evan, and the entire city, the Lord sentences the bishop's corrupt knights to rot behind bars. Then comes the ultimate judgment. Cetteron is officially stripped of his holy title and condemned to the gallows at the Lord's direct command. The disgraced man is dragged, kicking and screaming across the floor, howling that neither the Marquis nor the Order has the right to end him like this. With zero hesitation, the Lord lays down the law, stating this is the brutal reality for anyone who messes with the city's peace or targets the Sheridan. Stepping outside to face the massive crowd, he delivers a chillingly epic speech, swearing that true power means protecting the innocent, not crushing them. Chilling out in the garden, Evan lets out a breath and figures this massive flex should do the trick. Brothers Pharmacy is about to become an unstoppable empire, especially since the brand new bishop is already kissing up to the Marquis on how he can chip in. He smirks, noting that things are finally falling into place before casually asking if any other. Shine drops some tea about a certain someone scoring a major promotion thanks to glowing reviews, even though she used to be the dead bishop's right-hand woman. Flash over to the cathedral. Servina Belen stands tall before the new boss, smoothly introducing herself and claiming she is totally hyped to join the ranks. Somewhere else in the city, the hype around Brothers Pharmacy is absolutely unreal. Everyone knows it is a goldmine, but wild whispers are already spreading that a literal kid like Evan masterminded the whole thing. Evan shakes his head, whispering that this spotlight feels wrong. Deep down, he knows he could never fill his older brother's legendary shoes. He zones out, mind blown that his insane, desperate grind just to survive as a background character actually pushed him to the top. Breaking his thoughts, Mabel softly reminds him he is built different. She sweetens the deal, promising that if he refuses to take the throne as the family head, she will fully back his play. Being a prodigy does not mean he is forced to wear the Marquis crown. Evan sighs, confessing he wanted to keep this secret under wraps until he turned 12 and went on his first official patrol. But forget it, he is dropping the bomb right now. He is officially stepping down from the Marquis race. Instead, he locks eyes with her and boldly declares he is forging his own path to become a legendary knight captain. Testing her, Evan asks what an aristocrat is actually supposed to do. She instantly brings up running the city and holding the line against dungeons, and he nods in agreement. She instantly pieces his wild ambition together, and he flashes a knowing smile as his mind races toward the elite dungeon knight order. Their entire vibe is diving headfirst into deadly dungeons and running. Dark memories of the original game flood his brain. He remembers utterly failing, leaving his brother Eric to shoulder that brutal destiny alone. Not this time. He vows to tear through those dungeons himself just to shield Eric, grinning as he remembers the trade manager promising to deliver 3 more literal demigods to his squad. Tallying up his current roster of absolute monsters like Shine and Belois, he realizes he already commands a heavy-hitting squad of 7. Evan makes a mental note to pitch this dungeon knight dream to his dad as soon as possible. When he asks for a status update, Mabel brings up his 2 prodigies. She mentions Shine is currently sweating it out in sword training while Belois is totally off the radar doing her own thing. Strolling down the corridor, Mabel casually hints he should keep Belois in check before she catches feelings, but he just hits her with a deadpan shrug. Mabel refuses to drop it, practically begging for a spot in his shiny new knight order. Our boy shoots her down instantly, reminding her she is already. Mid-conversation, he spots the mansion staff sprinting past like their lives depend on it, and demands to know what the panic is about. A breathless maid blurts out that the second lady just delivered a baby girl, leaving him totally stunned at the sudden arrival of a new little sister. Inside the swanky bedroom, all eyes are glued to Miriam D. Sheridan and her tiny newborn. With everyone distracted from the toxic succession drama, our boy realizes this is a massive win for him. It buys him crucial time before dropping his dungeon knight bombshell. In a soft moment, Mabel jokingly compares his inner chaos to her obsessive dream of being his one and only maid. Evan sinks into a chair next to her, completely on edge despite the festive mood. He mutters that the vibes are violently off. Because in the actual canon of Demon War 3, a Sheridan daughter literally never existed. This family was the absolute backbone of the game's lore, making her complete absence in the original timeline wildly suspicious. Even a tragic backstory. Wait a minute. That means in the original storyline this girl straight up did not exist. Could she have just tied the knot and vanished? No way, that makes zero sense. With the main game kicking off in exactly 9 years, Evan's mind races. Did his interference totally wreck the canon timeline? Or worse? Was she fated to be born only to meet a tragic end? A chilling realization hits him in the original script. This baby was doomed to die. Seeing him stress, Maybelle waves it off, swearing that he's still her ultimate favorite even with this adorable newborn stealing the spotlight. Evan just drops a heavy sigh, mumbling that she totally missed the point. Suddenly, the tiny infant beams a glowing smile. Evan immediately claims she's grinning right at him, but Eric fires back, flexing and insisting she's just admiring his massive shoulders. Cradling the newborn tight, Miriam showers Radine with gratitude, though Radine sweetly brushes it off, tossing all the credit right back. Evan intensely observes the dynamic. Miriam is just the second wife stranded in the shadows, while the first wife already secured her power with sons and a legitimate heir. He suddenly recalls a wild detail: Miriam was completely childless before this. And in the game, she was absolute nightmare fuel. A venomous villain who literally orchestrated his brutal downfall. But looking at her right now, she's glowing with pure, unfiltered warmth. A massive light bulb goes off in his head. What if her villain arc was triggered by a catastrophic future tragedy? If he intercepts that disaster, he could completely rewrite history. He might actually dodge her villain era and not get murdered. Miriam D. Sheridan, the Marquis' second wife, practically consumes his thoughts. Was she literally born bad? Or did some soul-crushing trauma drag her directly into the shadows? He's pretty sure he just figured out the exact trigger. Sitting across from him, Bernard drops a terrifying reality check. The old man explains that even locked inside a high-security noble estate, guarded by elite knights and holy priests, a fragile newborn can easily perish. Bernard heavily implies that a tragedy like that wouldn't be an assassination but rather a wicked curse or a silent deadly plague. Evan murmurs the warning under his breath before violently slamming both hands against the wooden table. He panics, desperately arguing that Elizabeth's life is in sheer danger. The old man doesn't even flinch, coolly replying that he's already well aware. Bernard points out that since the Marquis' estate is fortified like a literal fortress, searching the interior is a dead end. They need to hunt outside the walls. His eyes narrow as he hints at a crazy theory, promising that if his hunch hits the mark, they won't just secure Elizabeth's survival, they'll end up saving a massive chunk of the population. Step 1. Scour the city streets for any lingering monster tracks. Bernard flashes back to that massive dungeon reverse flow incident. The absolute nightmare they barely survived earlier this year. The timing is way too sus to be a coincidence. Moments later, our main guy catches a glaring detail on the pavement. He instantly waves the squad over, pointing dead at a suspicious dark puddle and calling it exactly what it is. Bernard nods, admitting he fully anticipated digging up this exact clue. Dane looks absolutely disgusted, questioning if they are actually staring at monster crap, and wonders if it accidentally got mashed into the building supplies during the city's frantic rebuild. Bernard confirms the nasty color is a dead giveaway, guessing the reckless construction crews just ignored it to meet their insane deadlines. The knight scoffs, wondering why some dried-up mud is suddenly a huge deal. He argues that if random dungeon scraps were actually lethal, this entire city would have crumbled to dust ages ago, especially since their weapons and high-tier artifacts are literally harvested from beasts. Bernard swiftly shuts him down, making it clear those are entirely different vibes. The real biohazards are the raw fluids. We're talking fresh monster blood and waste, because that stuff breeds nasty plagues like crazy. He locks eyes with the group and drops a chilling question: have they ever heard of dungeon sickness? It's a brutal condition that completely drains your life force after hanging around a monster's toxic ecosystem for way too long. Usually rookies with trash-tier mana control or crazy explorers diving way too deep are the ones who catch it. Bernard leans in, turning up the tension, asking if they'd even believe him if he said this toxic plague could erupt entirely above ground outside the dungeons. He breaks it down, hoarding tainted dungeon debris in one central spot, basically terraforms the area, mimicking the dungeon's cursed atmosphere, which is a recipe for disaster in a city still recovering from a reverse flow crisis. Sure, the toxicity levels might be dialed down, but the surface level sickness still infects people even if it burns out quicker when handled right. He adds a crucial detail: unless the victim is a super fragile infant, the sickness barely scratches them. Dane's eyes go wide as he gasps out in horror. A little kid. Bernard quickly corrects him. The sickness alone won't kill you, but there's literally zero cure for it either. The true nightmare starts if an infected person catches a basic bug on top of it. That combo is guaranteed to be lethal. He drops a grim warning since that massive monster breach was super recent. An epidemic kicking off right now is highly likely. Their only play is to hunt down the source of the infection before it goes totally viral. Piecing together these scattered breadcrumbs, our guy snaps into full protagonist mode, barking orders to alert the Marquis instantly so they can toss the newborns into total lockdown. But just as he fiercely pivots to bolt away, Servina aggressively bursts through the doors, screaming Evan's name. When Bernard raises an eyebrow asking who the heck she is, our hero jumps into the explanation. One of his most trusted allies, a priestess from the Order of the Great, bursts in totally out of breath. "We have a massive situation," she pants. "The infection rate is skyrocketing, and the temple healers are completely overwhelmed. They can't solo." Dane curses under his breath, terrified of a full-blown plague. But Evan doesn't flinch. "Take me to the patients right now," he demands. Nodding frantically, she speedwalks them down the hall, shoving open the double doors to a makeshift ward packed with groaning victims. Bernard leans in eyes, scanning a patient. The strain mutated, he announces, his voice dead serious. "But don't panic. I can whip up an antidote ASAP." He orders Evan to rally every single alchemist from Brothers Pharmacy. Our guy doesn't hesitate, vowing to crush this plague before it goes viral. Facing his assembled crew, Evan begs them to unite as one. But the pharmacists are low-key terrified, whispering that not even divine magic could stop a disaster like this. Bernard casually shuts down the panic. "I already have the blueprint," he states. "Sure, the symptoms shifted a bit, but I've already decoded the mutation." Stepping up, Evan hypes up the squad. "You heard Grandpa," he shouts. "Lock in. Your only mission is crafting that cure." The room erupts into a massive echoing cheer. They are officially dialed in. Backed by the Marquis's heavy resources, Brothers Pharmacy and the Holy Temple go into full try-hard mode, grinding day and night. They instantly lock down the infected zones, scrubbing the corrupted sectors clean. Once the chaos finally settles, Evan gives Bernard a massive shout-out. The old man shakes his head, explaining that they only avoided a total wipeout thanks to the insane synergy between the nobles, the alchemists, and the church. But his tone turns heavy. He warns Evan that no matter how cracked their response speed is, you simply can't save everyone from an initial outbreak. "Don't dwell on the casualties," he adds softly. "Focus on the thousands of lives you just pulled back from the brink." Our boy nods, swallowing hard. But before he can process it, a frantic scream shatters the quiet. Mabel practically breaks down the door, hyperventilating. "It's baby Lizzie, she's crashing," she sobs. Evan sprints down the corridor, sliding into the room to find Lizzie's mother desperately clutching the tiny infant. The little girl's chest barely rises, her breaths terrifyingly shallow. Evan's brain goes into overdrive. Did the antidote glitch? He panics inwardly. Then a genuinely horrifying realization hits him like a freight train. What if the serum was completely useless on her? Trembling, Evan cradles little Liz against his chest as her heartbroken mother begs for a miracle. Refusing to accept a bad ending, our main character locks eyes with Bernard. "There has to be another way," he pleads, desperate for a backup plan. The veteran alchemist reveals a legendary elixir that can permanently buff base stats, but drops the devastating news they are completely out of raw materials. It's an item so ridiculously rare that even a veteran who 100%ed Demon Wars 0 through 4 barely remembers the recipe. Then a light bulb goes off. Liz is only level 1. In this game's universe, whoever gets the final strike snags all the experience points. Knowing this exploit could save her, he instantly summons a slime, plotting to shave its health down to exactly 1 point. Grabbing her tiny gloved hand, he positions it like a weapon. He pins the squirming monster down, gently coaxing the baby to just tap it and claim the kill. Gripping the jelly-like creature tight, he guides the infant's fist directly toward its core. The maids scream in pure terror, but Evan ignores the chaos, urging the baby to push just a tiny bit harder. The entire room holds its breath, silently cheering the kid on. Pop! The slime disintegrates into a puddle on the floor. Her exhausted mother snatches the baby back, burying her face in the blankets. "Thank God," Evan whispers, his shoulders slumping. Her mother cries out the same prayer. Evan's own parents stare in absolute shock, which quickly melts into overwhelming joy. Liz actually pulled through. The Marquis booms out an order for medics and holy magic, while someone in the crowd screams that Evan just pulled off a miracle, rushing in to tackle him in a massive hug. Bernard gently pats the boy's head, giving him major props. A totally unhinged strategy, but hey, if it works, it works, the old man chuckles. Only a gaming genius like Evan could have pulled off an exploit like that in real life. Mabel practically dive-bombs him, bawling her eyes out as she squeezes the life out of him. As the adrenaline fades, a chilling name echoes in his mind: Velfin, a legendary virus that once wiped an entire... He recalls its devastating lore from his past life, wondering how the Marquis ever managed to tank that disaster originally, and just how insane the death toll must have been. It hits him hard. Without his grandpa's big brain and the clutch support from Brothers Pharmacy, this timeline would have easily turned into a total horror show. Noticing his dark expression, Bernard tells him to stop overthinking. Calmly swirling a glowing flask, he tells the kid to weaponize his future knowledge to protect the innocent. "And listen," the old man adds, locking eyes with him. "If you try your hardest and still fall short, it's okay to let go. Because if everyone just stands around waiting for a hero, this twisted world..." Flash forward to the mansion. Evan is chilling with baby Liz in his arms when his older brother Eric comes sprinting over begging for a turn. Evan smugly flexes that he is obviously the favorite uncle. Rolling his eyes, Eric just wraps his arms around both of them, dragging them into a massive bear hug. Our boy playfully shoves his clingy brother away, keeping Liz safe from the ambush. Watching from the sidelines, their dad cracks a smile before gesturing for Evan to approach. He looks down at his son with immense pride. By saving that little girl, the Marquis states, you essentially saved this entire. Deflecting the praise, Evan asks if Eric's hard work played a part. Then, locking eyes with his dad, he drops a bombshell declaring he's going to become a captain of the Dungeon Knights. Behind the scenes, Eric D. Sheridan has been sweating blood in the training grounds, grinding his stats just as intensely. And honestly, our protagonist knows damn well the Marquis already sees the whole picture. So our boy finally steps up to the plate. He looks his old man dead in the eye and drops the bomb. He wants to lead the Dungeon Knights as their ultimate commander. The Marquis doesn't even flinch. Figuring this whole ambitious drive ties back to Eric, he casually gives the green light, promising to back both his kid and the entire squad 100%. But there is a massive catch. Evan cannot actually claim the captain's throne until he officially comes of age. Our guy swallows his impatience and nods, prompting his dad to drop some heavy wisdom. Start building the foundation right now, from the actual headquarters down to the raw recruits he is going to lead. Evan bows in deep gratitude. But the patriarch quickly shuts down the warm fuzzies with a harsh ultimatum: if the facilities and crew are not fully operational by the time he hits 18, the deal is dead in the water. Evan locks in the agreement while the Marquis coldly reminds him the clock is ticking. He has exactly 7 years to pull this massive flex off. A cocky smirk flashes across the boy's face as he admits he already has a badass name picked out. Meanwhile, over at the pharmacy, the crew is incredibly hyped, throwing a loud celebration after crushing their latest grind, deciding it is high time to wash off the bitter stench of medicinal herbs with some cold, hard drinks as they hit the town. Yet a few hardcore grinders stay glued to their stations, simply because nobody else possesses the insane skills to brew the essential cures. Evan strolls up to Bernard, stressing that beating this recent outbreak might actually make everyone dangerously cocky, insisting they desperately need to level up their reaction time before the next massive wave hits. The grizzled veteran just chuckles softly, promising that their non-stop hustle will naturally patch up those weak spots. He points out that crushing this whole health crisis effectively launched brothers, making them ridiculously famous, so much so that even the monarch is bound to realize they absolutely outshine the Holy Order's healing abilities. Our main guy mentally chews on that right as Bernard calls his next shot. The sovereign is definitely going to drag the Marquis into the royal court soon. Evan suddenly connects to forcefully expand the pharmacy's empire from coast to coast. Bernard theorizes the most frictionless power play would be dropping a massive new branch straight into the capital city. Although the crown might greedily try to uproot the original headquarters entirely, an absurd demand the Marquis would fiercely shoot down. Right on cue, the patriarch grabs his son, dropping the huge news: pack your bags. We are rolling out to the royal capital because the big boss just summoned us. Evan instantly panics about high society manners and practically begs him to drag Eric along instead, but his dad absolutely shuts down the protest. Even though he originally planned to hit the royal turf way later down the line, our boy suddenly realizes this trip is the perfect excuse to scoop up some overpowered hidden loot, along with lost game-breaking lore from Demon Wars 3 and 4. Heck, maybe even from the second and first ones too. Cooped up inside a ridiculously fancy carriage, he rides alongside Shine, the ever-loyal Bellois, and his formidable father. 2 agonizing weeks on the road finally dump them at a sprawling, lavish estate. Evan scans the grounds, mentally flashing back to the game's lore. Count Byron's entire bloodline is destined to crash and burn right before the third Demon War kicks, meaning linking up with these walking red flags is a fast track to disaster. Overhearing his dark mutters, a random guy nervously asks if running his mouth like that might poison the Marquis's diplomatic judgment. But the patriarch just brushes the guy off with a cool smile, declaring a real father always completely trusts his kid's instincts, adding that even if the boys' predictions are completely trash, their massive empire is way too solid to crumble. Suddenly, a panicked servant bursts into the room screaming that royal envoys just pulled up, carrying an emergency VIP summons straight from His Majesty, leaving both father and son totally shook. Out at the palace, high-tier aristocrats are almost always fast-tracked to the throne room without a second thought. Stepping into the blindingly lavish court, Evan and the Marquis drop to a respectful bow, but the Emperor casually waves off the stiff pageantry, claiming they go way too far back for all that uptight royal nonsense. He shoots them a warm smile, admitting he is seriously relieved to see his old friend hasn't changed a bit. The noble fires back with a smooth, perfectly polite compliment right before the ruler locks his intense gaze on the kid, asking if this is the legendary hyped-up prodigy of the Sheridan bloodline. Not missing a beat, Evan straightens his posture and proudly drops his full title, declaring it an absolute mind-blowing honor to stand before the continent's ultimate boss. The sovereign chuckles, noting the kid radiates the exact same fierce aura as his father, which he swears is the highest tier of praise he can possibly dish out. The Marquis humbles himself, soaking in the massive compliment. Their royal host hums thoughtfully before aggressively cutting straight to the chase, announcing his burning desire to drop some massive rewards on the kid for his insane clutch with the pharmacy. Praising the boy for absolutely carrying the region through the crisis, the ruler pushes his main agenda, planting a shiny new state-of-the-art branch right in the heart of the capital city, which instantly triggers the Marquis to step up to the plate and aggressively negotiate the heavy logistics, boldly pitching the grand idea of dropping even more franchise. When the tension spikes, the Emperor forcefully swears on his crown to act as their ultimate meat shield against the Order of the Great or any rival factions trying to cancel them. But the negotiation slams into a massive brick wall over who controls the distribution rights for the ultra-rare medicinal herbs. The crown desperately wants a stranglehold on the supply chain to crush any political fund the massive capital expansion, and heavily militarize the storefronts. However, the Marquis claps back hard, fiercely arguing that single-handedly stopping a catastrophic plague dead in its tracks is rock-solid proof that this city desperately needs Sheridan's independent healing touch. With both heavyweights completely deadlocked, our boy realizes he absolutely has to jump into the ring and back his dad up. But before he can even launch his defense, the Emperor pivots toward him, letting out a heavy sigh and confessing he was way too hyped to drag the kid into this intense showdown so unexpectedly. He softly orders our boy to go chill out in the royal gardens and take a breather, dropping a massive plot twist that leaves both Evan and his father completely stunned. Evan stammers out a quick polite thanks, but immediately tries to fight the dismissal, until the Emperor coldly cuts him off, snapping his fingers for the royal guard to forcefully escort the Sheridan family's second son straight out to the courtyard. As the hulking armored sentinels close in on him, Evan grinds his teeth, completely devastated that his one precious window to carry his father through this. One of the towering knights points the way to the botanical grounds. Not wanting to waste any precious EXP, our guy secretly resolves to keep up his brutal, slime-crushing routine, smoothly asking the guards for a bold request. The heavily armed babysitter surprisingly greenlights. Strolling through the breathtaking sunlit paths, a sick, glowing blue aura starts radiating from his clenched fists, pulsing with an absolutely insane surge of raw mana from his alchemy. Didn't just level up his potions, it completely overhauled his physical stats. But outside of tossing flasks, his actual combat skills are basically zero. Now that his mana reserves are maxed out, he pivots his grind to shrinking down his summoned slimes. He pictures those massive blobs condensing into bite-sized targets. Why? Because tinier slimes mean he can spawn 4 or 5 of them at the exact same time. Wiping them out in batches would skyrocket his EXP gain, and since slime farming is literally the backbone of the nation's military power, it is a total game changer. Suddenly, a random voice shatters his focus, asking what he is up to. Evan practically jumps out of his skin, snapping back to demand who is lurking in the shadows. His gaze drops to a silent pink-haired girl clutching a literal earthworm. She creeps closer, offering him a feel, and he instantly shrieks at her to keep that thing away. Pacing around him like a curious cat, she sizes him up before leaning in to drop the weirdest compliment ever. He is just as pretty as her squirmy little pet. Dumbfounded, he mutters, that is definitely a first. When she fiercely defends her worm's beauty, he straight up calls her a total weirdo. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off. Sifting through his memories of the Demon War game, he pieces together the pink hair and nervously asks if she is Serena. Bingo. She drops her full title, Serena L. Silkline, the Emperor's youngest daughter, Akka, the walking trigger for a massive game-breaking quest in Demon War 4. It hits him that the Emperor totally set this up by sending him to the royal gardens. Serena casually mentions she is 10, then demands to know his age. Our boy introduces himself as Evan D. Sheridan, clocking in at 11 years old, and the absolute baby. Realizing he is the older one, she breathes out his name, locking him down with this uncomfortably intense deadpan stare. Without missing a beat, she points at the slimes in his hands, asking why he is brutally murdering her tiny friends right here in the courtyard. Her gaze pierces right through him. She claims those squishy little guys are begging to be saved, practically interrogating him over why he is tormenting them. When Evan stammers, asking what she means by saving them, her voice goes ice cold. She whispers that the voices stopped, they are definitely all dead. A chill runs down Evan's spine as game lore floods his mind. Back in Demon War 4, this exact princess got snatched by demons and horribly brainwashed. Under that dark influence, she became a terrifying puppet master, completely dominating high-tier monsters. He connects the dots, realizing this weird telepathy must be Serena's dormant god-tier taming ability. Stuck inside this ultra-safe palace her entire life, she literally had zero clue she could command savage beasts. Playing dumb is completely off the table since she watched him spawn them. Evan goes for the brutal truth: he grinds them to dust so he can level up and survive. He bluntly states that gaining power is his only ticket to making it out alive. To prove his point, he spawns another slime and crushes it right in front of her. Unfazed, Serena simply commands him not to die. Before he can even process that, she practically begs him to leave just one alive. He double-checks which type she wants, feeling the Mirasol necklace pulse with heavy mana. She promises it will not bite if he lets it go, prompting Evan to frantically drag them toward the fountain for backup. Realizing things could get messy, she nods, and the duo speedwalks away from the crime scene. Safe by the water, our protagonist pumps pure energy into the artifact, flashing a tiny, super hot. Serena's eyes light up at the rare variant. Evan hands it over, totally, admitting it is way beyond his control, but she snatches it up, cooing over how adorable it is. He practically screams that it is a massive fire hazard, but she brushes him off entirely, baby-talking the squirming blob to see if it is truly harmless. Watching this chaos unfold, Evan mutters that his grind session would be an absolute nightmare if every slime had this much personality. Serena casually drops a lore bomb. Most slimes are mindless, aggro-driven husks that just attack on sight, meaning he is totally cleared to slaughter them. Shocked, he asks how the heck she knows that. Without blinking, she says Ruby told her already, slapping a nickname on the fiery blob. She casually mentions she can read its mind, cementing that they just forged a magical contract. Evan explains that if she actually takes care of it, the slime will morph into her personal bodyguard. Immediately, she asks if she can pull off the same trick with a crusty earthworm. Evan quickly bursts her bubble, clarifying that this hack only works on actual monsters. Slightly bummed, but accepting it, she cuddles Ruby tight. As they head back through the gardens, Evan offers to break down exactly how her wild taming powers work. But this girl is obsessed. She immediately circles back to the worm contract idea, leaving his awkward, uncertain answer hanging heavily in the air. Cut to an awkward family dinner. The Marquis drops a massive bombshell. His Majesty wants to lock in an arranged marriage between Evan and the eccentric princess. Evan shoots that idea down in a heartbeat, while the rest of the table absolutely loses their minds over the crazy royal flex. His dad quickly steps in to calm the panic, revealing he already rejected the deal, but strictly warns that the king is not the type to take no for an answer. The whole thing smells fishy to Evan. He questions why the crown is obsessing over him when they're— The Marquis sighs, dropping the hard truth: this is not some basic political play or a corporate merger. The king is head over heels for the boy genius who secretly built Brothers Pharmacy from scratch and single-handedly wiped out a deadly plague. That makes Evan panic even harder. Being dragged into the royal spotlight is a guaranteed death sentence that will expose him as a pathetic, disposable extra. He practically begs his dad to convince the royals he is complete trash and nowhere near good enough for the princess. His father pushes him to just be honest about his feelings. Evan freezes up, his mind flashing right back to the bizarre image of Serena cuddling her pet slime. In his memory, the weird princess clutches her fiery blob, demanding he drop the formalities when they are alone, boldly claiming she likes him almost as much as her creepy— Evan admits she totally lives up to the hype and is going to be drop-dead gorgeous when she grows up, though, of course, she still can't hold a candle to Balua. Honestly, he can't get a read on her chaotic vibe. Dealing with her is completely draining, and he would much rather just stay out of her orbit entirely. When his dad presses him on dodging the royal engagement, Evan doesn't hold back, flat out stating he hopes to literally never cross paths with the princess again. Letting out a massive sigh of relief, the Marquess confesses he was low-key terrified Evan had actually caught feelings for her. Since the king kept shoving them together and hyping up their chemistry, Evan suspects the monarch was basically keeping him hostage just to force a spark with the princess. Shifting gears, the Marquess drops the news about a crucial 4-day business summit kicking off tomorrow focused on Brothers Pharmacy. His Majesty specifically requested Evan's presence, but his dad quickly offers a lifeline, promising to handle the royal pressure so his son can just ditch the boring stuff and explore the capital instead. Out of nowhere, Serena bursts onto the scene, yelling his name and aggressively dragging him out to hang. Evan instantly freezes in his tracks. He slowly turns toward her, then shoots a desperate glare at his father, who can only shrug and admit his diversion tactics totally flopped. Out on the bustling streets, Evan questions why a literal royal VIP is wandering around in public. Serena casually brushes it off, flexing that she has 2 insanely overpowered bodyguards. Trying to politely bail, he claims his schedule is already completely packed for the day, so babysitting a princess is off the table. But she fires back instantly, insisting she will just tag along and adapt to whatever he is doing. Realizing he's trapped, our boy firmly lays down one strict rule: absolutely no playing with worms. He pauses for a beat, ultimately telling the princess she can just use her imagination for the day's itinerary. Pivoting to Shine and Balua, he signals them to gear up for an outing. Knowing they need to blend in over the next 3 days, Evan suggests hitting the shops to grab some casual clothes instead of wandering around in their usual uniforms. Shine looks totally shocked and asks if he is actually invited to the shopping spree. Evan shuts down the doubt with a nod, prompting Balua to eagerly promise they will go get ready right away. He makes it crystal clear to the princess that these two aren't just staff. They are his absolute best friends who only ended up as servants because of some bad luck. He demands she treat them with total respect, which she cheerfully agrees to without skipping a beat. Finally, giving in, Evan interrogates her on why she even tracked him down. Serena innocently replies that she simply threw a tantrum to the king about wanting to hang out with brother Evan, and the monarch totally caved. Panic flashing in his eyes, our guy aggressively grills her on whether she spilled the tea about yesterday's chaotic events. She nods happily, explaining she told her dad all about meeting him in the garden alongside Ruby. His stomach drops completely when she casually drops the bombshell that she confessed to her father. She likes Evan just as much as her beloved worms, and the king supposedly told. Evan's mind spirals, immediately picturing wedding bells and a forced royal engagement. Ripping at his hair, he grumbles under his breath that he was trying to save her from a caged life, not shackle her to himself. Completely oblivious to his internal breakdown, she insists she literally just asked her dad for a playdate, nothing serious. Letting out the heaviest, most defeated sigh imaginable, our protagonist finally caves and agrees to let her tag along, but forces her to swear this entire hang. Serena's face lights up like a Christmas tree as she eagerly swears secrecy. Fast forward a bit and the crew rolls up to the super exclusive King Island Sagagi boutique, where the owner immediately fawns all over the little princess. The shopkeeper spots Evan D-shirt and a second later, gasping as cutting straight to business, he demands her absolute top-tier drip for Shine and Balua, insisting on nothing but the most ridiculously premium fabrics in the store. After inspecting the insanely expensive threads, he does a quick check and confirms these garments actually stretch. The hyped-up shopkeeper brags that they weave high-level magic into the fabric, making the clothes literally auto-adjust to fit whoever is wearing them as they grow. Serena tilts her head, genuinely confused, and asks why someone wouldn't just flex their cash and buy brand new outfits whenever they outgrow the old ones. Our boy drops some sentimental wisdom, explaining that keeping the same magical outfit preserves all the core memories attached to it. Her eyes widen as she wonders. When he nods, a sneaky little spark hits her eyes and she shyly pitches a super unexpected idea. Evan raises a suspicious eyebrow, listening as she declares she is going to sponsor his new look. But there is a catch: he has to buy her an outfit right back. That way they basically end up with matching magical memory holders from their secret day out. He practically rolls his eyes but agrees to the trade. A few moments later at the fitting rooms, Shine rips back the curtain, stepping out and absolutely rocking his fresh new fit. Evan follows right behind him, stepping out looking like pure money in a sharp, blind. The princess practically floats out next, doing a massive twirl in an overly frilly pink dress, demanding to know how she looks. Evan gives her a solid nod, admitting it is genuinely stunning. Lowering his voice, he asks if she is actually planning to flex that dress out in the streets today. She happily chirps yes and asks what the problem is, but he quickly waves it off like it is no big deal. Looking absolutely flawless, Balua bows deep, practically glowing as she thanks him for the luxury haul. Meanwhile, Serena starts intensely fangirling over how ridiculously pretty Balua looks. She excitedly shouts that Balua is somehow even more gorgeous than her favorite creepy crawly worms. Wrapping up the massive shopping spree, the boutique owner thanks Evan, gushing over how fun it was to style his squad. Our boy shoots her a polite thanks, but then his eyes lock onto a very specific target. He demands to purchase this weird, twisted, blood-red piece of clothing tucked away in the back. He strictly orders her to wrap it up like it is a fragile explosive. She looks incredibly confused, mentioning it is just another standard size-shifting piece. But he is dead serious, forcing her to tape it up completely blind, so no one can catch even a glimpse of it. Because here is the insane twist: that red fabric is literally a cursed artifact designed to summon a massive. Our protagonist smirks internally, realizing his actual master plan for the day went flawlessly. Securing this crazy magical dress was a massive high-stakes hidden quest item from his past gaming life. Snagging it now is the ultimate cheat code to literally avoid getting wiped out in the future. Shifting his focus, Evan starts casually sifting through the insanely iced-out jewelry displays. He casually drops a comment about how the capital's bling absolutely obliterates the Shine immediately roasts him for being so deeply obsessed with aesthetics, but our boy shoots back a savage retort right to his face. Staring at the massive bill, Shine finally questions how Evan is casually dropping this much cash without going. Figuring the pharmacy must be bringing in serious bank, Belois chimes in that the Marquis tosses him a hefty allowance on top of that. Our guy admits his bucket list of spots to hit up is still pretty long but pitches the idea of grabbing food first. Rolling up to the spot, the squad heads toward a massive piece of architecture. Shine squints hard, wondering out loud if this is actually a cafe or just a straight-up mansion. The young master clarifies that it is a completely remodeled estate. Shine just bobs his head, admitting the vibe is pretty immaculate, but insists it better be the absolute peak cafe in the entire capital, considering they literally have royalty tagging along. Their host simply smirks, firing back that the prize he is after is waiting right inside those doors. The second they step through the door, the owner rushes over to welcome Serena. Random patrons immediately start whispering, totally convinced this squad must be high-tier foreign nobles. A few eagle-eyed locals recognize Evan as the legendary Jewel of Sheridan. The owner basically bows, offering them the absolute best seats in the house. But Evan completely pivots, demanding the specific room tucked into the right corner of the second floor. The manager freezes, warning them that regular customers totally hate that space and it stays locked up. The manager tries to stall, but our boy does not back down. A solid gold coin flashes through the air, landing perfectly in the guy's palm. He scrambles instantly, ordering the staff to deep clean the room and break out the absolute top-tier silver and china. Once the feast drops, Evan methodically knocks out the soup, then transitions to the salad and bread. Next up is the fish, purposely ignoring the meat for a minute, before he finally slices into that perfectly seared steak. He tells the crew to grab a slice of cake and wash it down with some Earl Grey. But he catches Shine, looking totally stressed, and asks if the food is just mid. Shine violently shakes his head, explaining that the weird eating sequence is not the issue, it is the bone-chilling freeze taking over the room. A terrifying thought hits him like a truck, and he panics, asking if they have an invisible guest. Belois totally brushes it off, telling him to chill out, casually dropping the fact that the unseen entity will not actually show its face until their plates are wiped clean. Right on cue, the glowing phantom of a young girl materializes the second the last plate is empty. Evan, Shine, and Belois just sit back watching as her spectral form slowly dissolves. He hypes up the flawless clear before snapping his mouth shut, realizing he almost let gamer slang slip IRL. Serena just hits him with a mega confused side-eye. Pivoting to the group, he gestures to where the ghost just was, explaining they basically gave her the ultimate closure. He mentally notes that devouring this specific meal was literally a secret unlock requirement. Downing every single dish the Phantom used to obsess over triggers an insanely rare permanent buff to their core stats. Power scaling and skill progression for the entire squad. Serena leans in, asking if the spirit dropped any actual loot, and he clarifies it was just a completely safe passive blessing, which Belois backs up by flexing her fully restored mana. Shine, looking like a literal zombie, croaks out a question about where the ghost went, and our protagonist confirms she successfully crossed over. Hearing that, Shine just mumbles a quick request to pass out before face-planting straight into the floor. Safely locked in their room, Belois secures the door and locks it down, reporting that she threw up a barrier to keep any nosy people away. Evan hypes her up for the solid work, then spins around to face a massive table completely covered in a chaotic pile of gems, glowing crystals, and insane jewelry. Flanked by Belois and Serena, our guy rubs his hands together and asks if they are ready to tally up today's massive loot drop. Ripping through the pile, Evan counts exactly 32 raw treasures, totally blown away, because he never thought he would actually snipe relics straight from Demon War 1. Serena stares wide-eyed at the glittering stash, while Belois speaks up, seriously stressed about leaving this much heat unprotected. The protagonist totally shuts down her panic, explaining that high-tier relics literally have their own built-in durability. The princess tilts her head, demanding to know why on earth someone would dump these in a basic jewelry shop. He simply pinches a faintly glowing ring, breaking down the harsh reality that normies are completely blind to their actual value. He spills the tea that not all relics scream magic at first glance, and some literally mutate into artifacts over decades, their dormant mana slowly booting up. Others have god-tier potential, but stay absolutely useless if you treat them like basic rocks. He adds that a handful only unlock their true broken stats after binding to a master, or getting jump-started with raw mana. Serena suddenly remembers her dad's palace literally keeps a high-level mage on payroll just to manage this kind of gear. He smirks, pointing out that an average person could literally stare at a legendary drop all day and still think it is a paperweight. And trying to appraise stuff like that inside a fancy boutique will just get you violently tossed to the curb. Belois suddenly connects the dots, realizing the merchant basically and Evan totally agrees, pointing out the dude took a massive L simply because his appraisal skills were straight trash. When Serena tries to dig deeper into his methods, he instantly shuts her down, hitting her with the classic business secret card. Pushing her luck, the princess straight up asks if she can just pocket one of the rings. Evan gives her a hard look, telling her outright that begging for free handouts is a totally bad look. But then she flips the script, offering to smuggle him some ultra-rare gear from the royal vaults in exchange. Instantly sold, he nods, realizing the massive profit potential of her counteroffer, and locks it in, calling it a solid business deal. But she aggressively claps back, refusing to call it a transaction, claiming it is a cute little gift exchange instead. Giving in, he tells her to grab whatever she wants. Instead, she demands he curate the drop for her, so he carefully snags a flawless necklace. Flexing the tiger's glory, Evan drops the lore. It's an absolute cheat code for beast tamers, instantly buffing their capture rates and letting them weave pure mana into an unbreakable shield. The royal totally vibes with it, claiming it's literally made for her. But the second that ice touches her neck, the pendant pulses with a blinding light. Our guy locks onto that weird reaction, his brain racing. Did the game mechanics glitch out? Are its stats totally different now? Serena hypes up her sudden level up in taming skills, proudly declaring the drip matches her energy flawlessly. Evan just nods, letting her cook, and she eagerly asks what it'll cost her. He lays down his terms if the specific loot he's hunting is chilling in the royal vault. She's gotta sneak it out for him. Flashing a bright grin, she locks in the promise without breaking a sweat. She even trolls him about swiping the king's ceremonial blade, but Evan shoots that chaotic idea down instantly. Later, grabbing her things to head out, Serena double-checks the hit list to make sure she's only snagging that one artifact. Evan smirks internally. To most NPCs, that relic is straight garbage, so the king should cough it up without a second thought. Pivoting to Belois, he casually offers to spoil her too, but she shuts it down, insisting she doesn't need freebies. And throwing his own words back at him about strictly doing business with the royalty. He shakes his head. No transactions here, just a straight-up gift. Catching her off guard, he whips out a pair of dazzling earrings. He hypes them up as the volcanic spirit earrings, breaking down the insane specs, massive mana regen, and a huge buff to all fire spells. Belois's eyes go wide, asking if they're the legendary tier gear she read about. He nods casually, dropping that they're the twin set to the Snow Mountain pair. Instantly, she backs away. How could a maid rock the exact same tier loot as the young Lord? Evan tilts his head. Are you seriously curving my gift? She stammers that she simply isn't worthy. But our boy isn't taking no for an answer. Gently but firmly, he presses the crimson gems into her trembling hand, telling her it's okay to be a little selfish instead of burying all her feelings. Belois fires back, warning him that letting all her hidden thoughts out, it could drag him into massive drama. Unfazed, our MC tells her to drop the filter whenever she's stressed, bragging that he can carry any problem she throws his way. Finally cracking, she snaps the earrings into place, murmurs a soft thank you, and shyly asks him to call her Lua from now on. Fast forward to day 2, Evan kicks off a massive loot haul for survival gear, ditching the snobby noble district to grind through the sketchy underground black markets across the capital. Venting to Shine, he complains about their packed schedule and prays the royal pest dips out soon. But mid-rant, Evan freezes, eyeing Shine like he's an imposter, because the dude's face is literally a blank wall. Catching onto the weird vibes, our boy demands to know what's going on. He pulls up yesterday's logs. Bro, you literally blacked out yesterday, but you looked perfectly fine back at the crib. The MC roasts him, joking that he looks like a guy who just got left on red by his girl. Shine just groans, muttering that his limbs feel like lead. Evan furrows his brows. Did his bro somehow miss the massive stat buff? He flexes, explaining his own stamina, maxed out instantly. Shine shivers, swearing he caught the blessing, but this gnarly chill won't leave his bones. He complains that gravity is fighting him every time he moves. A light bulb goes off over the young lord's head. Without skipping a beat, he tosses over a sleek pair of silver cuffs, telling Shine to equip them ASAP. Shine squints at the basic jewelry, but Evan drops the real name, the ghost bracelets. A solid 15% buff to both agility and strike speed. He admits he wanted to hook him up with god-tier loot, but these will easily carry him to floor 60. Mind blown, Shine stutters floor 60 while the MC casually drops that the server's current top guild is hard stuck at 45. Still, Evan warns him not to get too cozy with this crutch. Endgame survival means hunting down gear that maxes out both tanking and DPS. How's the ping now? Evan asks. His right-hand man dashes a few yards, hyped to feel the speed boost, but complains that weird sluggishness is still lingering. In that exact split second, a sinister shadow spawns right over his shoulder. Evan's jaw drops, yelling to know what kind of dark magic Shine just pulled. Oblivious Shine brushes it off like it's nothing. Meanwhile, the phantom maid glides right up to him, and the boys let out absolute shrieks of terror. They swore she had crossed over. Floating there, she shrugs, casually dropping that she thought she got deleted too, but just took a nap and spawned right back next to this guy. Shine loses his mind, screaming at her to log out, blaming her for his massive speed debuff. Pouting, she admits she literally tried to leave, but she's tethered to him. Tapping her chin, she smirks and asks if his soul is totally cursed, sending Shine into a full-blown screaming panic attack. Flashing a devious smirk, our boy nudges the ghost, bringing up her earlier comment about finding a cozy spot. The spirit points right at the shiny new gear. "That bracelet looks so insanely comfy," she whispers, mesmerized. She asks if she can hauntingly hitch a ride inside, swearing that jumping into the item will instantly cure Shine's freezing debuff and sluggishness. "Get in now," he barks. The spirit absolutely beams, totally brushing off Evan's frantic protests as she seamlessly swan dives straight into the glowing accessory. A massive realization hits our guy. This is uncharted territory, a hidden scenario that never once triggered during his Demon War 4 playthroughs when that relic first dropped. Snug inside, she swoons over the cozy vibes. Pondering the title, Ghost Bracelet, Evan puts the pieces together. Was this thing literally designed to house a phantom from day one? He figures this specific glitch just never popped up in the original lore, meaning they just unlocked a secret mechanic. His mind races. Did this band transform into an evolving item? Entirely because of her Shine squints pointing out that the gear looks exactly the same as when he first slapped it on his wrist. Evan tells him to just take the massive W. Shine isn't having it, side-eyeing the lingering phantom, but the spirit merely hums, claiming she's totally vibing with her new crib. A sharp knock shatters the tension. Belois and Serena step through the doorway, announcing they are completely prepped to hit the streets. Keeping today's VIP location strictly under wraps, he waves off Shine's questions. Suddenly, Serena struts forward, dropping a sleek box right into his hands. "It's the pre-trip present," she promised. Snapping the lid open, a gleaming short sword rests inside. As it hits him, holy crap, it's the limit breaker. Flashbacks rush in. This is an ultra-rare relic straight out of Demon War 3. An insanely broken blade that usually demands grinding massive reputation with the royals to even touch. Serena tilts her head, genuinely curious about the loot. He vaguely hints that it shatters boundaries, dodging the deep lore dump for later. Internally, he's hyping up. With this bad boy, he can totally bypass the hard-capped artifact limit. Because let's be real, for a fragile dude who could still get one-shotted despite stacking defensive gear, equipping a sixth artifact isn't just an upgrade, it's absolute survival. Gripping the hilt, he mutters the activation code, Limitless. Raw power erupts. A massive golden padlock materializes over a grayed-out inventory slot. Chains violently explode, unlocking the barrier, completely shattering it to dust. Shine stammers, asking what kind of crazy buff just triggered, while Serena watches, wondering if that was the intended meta. Brushing it off as way too complex, Evan just flexes that his gear capacity leveled up. The princess catches his drift, instantly guessing he's about to go artifact hunting. He smirks, confirming the grind. Cut to them, dragging through the streets where our boy looks totally drained. Serena raises an eyebrow. They've been speedrunning various shops for 4 straight hours, yet his inventory is basically empty. Our guy is literally sweating, wondering if the trinket he gifted her secretly holds infinite stamina hacks. Bouncing with energy, she demands their next waypoint. Running on fumes, he begs for a food break, teasing a legendary local spot he knows like the back of his hand. Shine instantly presses for details. The young master tells him to just chill and trust the process. Arriving on the scene, the crew stares up at a massive, bustling tavern. Dane narrows his eyes, questioning how the kid knows this turf. Evan plays it cool, claiming it's just viral on the streets. Fact is, Amy's kicking was a crucial hub in Demon War 2, and returned as a fan favorite in Game 3. It's the ultimate spawning ground for elite party members and massive story triggers, supposedly even pulling the legendary Silent Knight into its doors. Shine frets over the heavy drinking vibes, but Evan shoots down his worries. They literally have muscle with them, and the sun is still blazing. Dane gives the green light, but our boy's radar is already locking onto his real objective, scouting the kingdom's most cracked mercenaries. The captain barks an order, telling his squad to stay frosty in this den of absolute beasts. Pushing through the swinging doors, Evan confidently demands a massive booth and drops an order for 7 kicking specials. Shine scans the chaotic room, feeling the intense aura of heavy hitters everywhere. Our boy grins, validating the hype. This joint is the literal headquarters for the nation's most overpowered fighters. Taking her seat, Belois side-eyes the room, questioning why he dragged them into such a danger zone. Evan boldly claims he's hunting for treasure. Internally, that treasure is a living, breathing powerhouse, calming her nerves about the shady crowd. He casually drops her nickname, making Shine physically flinch in shock. Serena eagerly parrots the cute moniker, begging to join the squad's inner circle, but Lua shuts it down with brutal politeness, leaving the princess visibly pouting. As the boys awkwardly spectate the drama, the grub finally hits the table, steaming massive plates of the signature special. He waves the guards over, insisting everyone feast. The squad gives thanks, Shine violently wolfs it down while Lua takes a delicate, calculated nibble. Chewing his food, our boy goes into full radar mode, scanning the sea of faces for any iconic Demon War NPCs, right in the middle of a bite. The jackpot hits. His eyes lock onto a lone dude, slumped at the bar. Golden hair, flowing robes. First glance screams healer. But a double take reveals the chunky outline of heavy steel plating underneath. Evan's brain lights up, it's freaking Ryan Drukas. The unbreakable shield himself. The absolute unit from Game 4, infamous for his god-tier tanking and infinite HP regen. Sitting quietly across the hazy tavern, Ryan downs his drink. Dane's veteran eyes snap to the exact same target, instantly recognizing. A living legend whose name sends shockwaves through the underground mercenary rings. Leaning in, the captain drops the lore. Ryan was a prodigy dripping with holy mana, but instead of playing the squishy cleric role, he stubbornly rolled a paladin class. The catch: he completely lacked the physical stats for frontline brawling, turning his glorious dream into a total flop. That left him backed into a corner, ditch the nightly dream forever, or grind for 10 whole years before another shot. Crushed by the rejection, he hit the bottle hard to numb the pain. Evan locks that intel in his brain. With Serena nudging him to make a move, he strolls right up to the counter, his heavy footsteps making Ryan glance up through the haze. The busted knight shoots him a weary glare. Without missing a beat, our guy drops a casual hello and asks if the seat is taken. Evan slides into the stool and drops his name, making Ryan's jaw practically hit the floor. The guy instantly leaps to his feet, totally baffled why a massive VIP would Leaning in, our boy drops the golden question: why is a dude gunning for the legendary title of Holy Knight Captain currently drowning his sorrows in a dive bar? Ryan aggressively slams his mug against the wood. The memory floods back the sacred promise he swore the second he caught his blessing. He was supposed to be a frontline savior clashing in brutal wars and racking up major divine brownie points. Spilling his guts, Ryan reveals his tragic origin story. He is the disciple of a ruined, washed-up noble from across the borders. He breaks down his cursed stats, born with an insane mana pool but absolutely zero talent for slinging spells. So everyone pushed him to play the boring priest role instead. But everything flipped the day he threw himself in harm's way to shield a civilian. The heavens literally blessed him, making him ditch the robes to chase the Holy Knight dream. There was just one massive glitch. Voice cracking, he confesses the ugly truth. He does not just suck at wielding weapons, he is fundamentally a disaster in actual messy combat. Every single drill sergeant looked at him like he was a total joke. The whole academy told him to, but he stubbornly dug his heels in. He clapped back, arguing that the Almighty did not drop this sick power on him for nothing. It was literally designed to keep people safe. It definitely was not meant for him to just chill in the back row, spamming low-tier healing magic like. Hooked by the drama, Evan cuts in and asks what this mysterious buff is actually called. Ryan sighs, revealing its title, the Guardian's Blessing. It is an ultra-rare drop locked behind ultimate self-sacrifice. He explains the hardcore mechanic: his aura literally taunts every enemy on the battlefield, forcing them to jump. And while it is a permanent passive skill, he notes, it goes absolutely nuclear whenever he triggers the Holy Knight's signature divine roar. Evan instantly vibes with it, pointing out that is literally the god-tier skill for a hardcore tank. Ryan nods in grim agreement, but quickly spirals back into his depression. What is the point of being a human shield without the muscle to hit back? Our boy is not having any of this pity party. He aggressively grills Ryan on that original rescue mission, drilling it into his skull that his gift is meant for pure defense, not racking up kill counts. Sweating under the pressure, Ryan admits his messy strat. He basically grabbed the monster's aggro and ran for his absolute life until the beast lost interest. To Ryan, that makes him a cowardly joke. But Evan shuts that down fast, hyping it up as purely iconic. He fiercely points out that OP warriors throwing punches is just basic everyday stuff. But a dude with zero combat skills throwing his squishy body into the danger zone, that takes absolute unyielding guts. Still fighting off the imposter syndrome, Ryan goes dead silent as our guy straight up crowns him a genuine hero for putting civilians first. Struck by the raw truth that his buff was never about shedding blood, Ryan tears up, admitting literally nobody has ever dropped facts like that on him. Sensing the vibe shift, Evan prays the dude will finally snap out of it and confidently claim his destiny as a legendary holy knight. Evan softly checks his mental state, and Ryan cracks a tiny smile, whispering that yeah, the heavy fog is finally lifting. Evan doubles down, locking eyes with him and swearing on his life that Ryan has what it takes to reach the top. But in a wild twist, Ryan just shakes his head, dropping a truth bomb that the shiny title just does not matter anymore. Evan is completely blindsided. Catching his breath, Ryan declares he is officially done letting the haters dictate his worth. Evan's reality check just rewired his entire brain. Starting right now, he is zeroing in on his true passion. He swears to be the ultimate meat shield for the innocent, completely ignoring the toxic noise around him. A sly grin creeps onto our boy's face. This character development, seizing the massive momentum, Evan steps back up. He completely drops the casual act, officially reintroducing himself as Evan D. Sheridan, the second heir to the legendary Marquis Soren D. Sheridan, absolute boss of the chaotic Dungeon City Sheridan. Matching his energy, the knight fires back, revealing himself as the last bloodline of the legendary Drukus clan, the absolute units who once tanked a dragon's breath. It is Ryan Drukus. He bows his head, expressing deep gratitude for the therapy, confessing that Evan single-handedly reignited his will to keep grinding. Staring at him, Evan realizes the big boss upstairs definitely cooked up this insanely broken tanking ability for a very specific reason. Getting down to business, our boy lays out the facts: the shiny marquee throne is not his endgame. The second he hits adulthood, he is forging his own elite guild from scratch. Thrusting his hand out with crazy confidence, Evan makes the ultimate pitch. He wants to recruit Ryan as the founding member of his future squad. He looks Ryan dead in the eye, praising him as a rare breed who packs both the overpowered defensive stats and the hardcore mental grit to shield the weak. He demands they team up to turn their city into an absolute fortress. Overwhelmed, Ryan stammers that a gig that insanely prestigious feels way too good for a total reject like him, but he quickly hardens his gaze. If Evan is dead serious about wanting him, despite his trash attack stats, then he swears to go all out and sweat blood for the cause. They lock hands in a solid echoing grip, and our protagonist welcomes his very first raid member to the guild. Cut to an absolute explosion of wealth. Heavy iron chests practically detonate open, flooding the elegant floor with oceans of raw gold, blinding diamonds, and epic tier artifacts. The Marquis frantically barks out, demanding to know what. Evan casually brushes it off, claiming he just tripped over an insane loot drop on his commute home. And yep, he is dumping every single coin into bankrolling his brand new squad. Shifting gears, he pulls his new tank into the spotlight, introducing Ryan to the big boss and explaining he scouted him out in the capital. Standing razor straight, Ryan belts out his full name, officially swearing absolute loyalty to serve as Evan's personal dungeon knight until the bitter end. Without missing a beat, Evan flips the conversation, boldly asking his powerhouse father to instantly liquidate this mountain of epic gear just to buy out his new bro's suffocating contract from the Holy Church. The great Marquis simply throws his head back, and he casually mentions the funds for Raihan are already locked and loaded. And just like that, their business in the capital officially wraps up. Evan totally scored on this trip, snagging a bunch of rare artifacts, boosting his gear slots, and officially recruiting Raihan Drukus into his knight order. Out in the courtyard, the princess practically begs Evan to stay at the palace. She even pouts, claiming her dad would let her roam free if she had Evan by her side, but he shoots her down gently. He has to head back to the Dungeon City, and honestly, he probably won't be returning to the capital anytime soon. Heartbroken, she whispers that it sounds like a permanent goodbye. He nods bluntly, pointing out that the Marquis totally vetoed their engagement. But this girl is stubborn. She fiercely promises their paths will cross again. Evan quickly cuts her off. He warns her to drop that reckless attitude, reminding her that royal VIPs can't just go wandering the streets. The outside world is totally ruthless, so she has to toughen up and protect herself if she wants to survive. Her eyes spark with determination. Taking his advice as an ultimate challenge, she swears she will level up enough to track him down, and even threatens to crash his night order. Our guy just lets out a heavy sigh, waving her off with a smirk, telling her to go wild if she can actually pull it off. Flashing a confident smile, she promises she will. Right before they finally part ways, she drops one last request. Next time they meet, he better call her by her cute nickname, Ray. Soon the carriage wheels rumble as they leave the massive capital behind. Staring out the window, Raihan mutters that absolute chaos is definitely going to follow their master around. Shine totally backs him up, chiming in that an insane amount of danger is already lined up and waiting for them. Raihan shakes his head in awe. He calls Evan's crazy talent to read the world's hidden secrets an ultra-rare cheat code. And honestly, attracting deadly threats is just the tax for being that overpowered. Shine groans, nodding in total agreement. He states the facts: keeping their master breathing is way more important than the dungeon city itself. Without Evan, there is no night order. Hearing this, Raihan fiercely pledges to swing his sword against any threat to keep him safe. But Evan instantly bursts his bubble bluntly, reminding the guy that his sword skills are absolute trash. Raihan blushes awkwardly, admitting his hype made him completely forget he sucks at fighting. Our boy quickly clarifies Raihan might be terrible at dealing damage, but he is far from useless. Staring him down, Evan declares that Raihan's true god-tier talent is hardcore defense. The heavens didn't bless him just for fun. Confused, Raihan asks how he is supposed to protect anyone without fighting back. Evan drops the ultimate truth bomb: you don't need a blade to be a guardian. You just need the weapon that actually matches your vibe. Raihan's eyes widen. He gasps, asking if the kid means a shield. Evan flashes a knowing grin, explaining that back when Raihan squared up against that terrifying monster, he unknowingly unlocked his perfect combat style. Our protagonist breaks it down. Raihan's superpower is drawing all the enemy's aggro, distracting the bosses so his squad can completely wreck them while staying scratch-free. What more could a team possibly need? Evan totally calls him out for trying to ignore his past clashes, and Raihan awkwardly rubs his neck, confessing he was just way too embarrassed. Sure, fighting without attacking sounds crazy, but Evan insists a solid squad could make it absolutely lethal. He praises Raihan's talent as the ultimate tank for team combos. Hearing this, Raihan cringes, calling his past obsession with swords totally pathetic. Finally, accepting his destiny, Raihan admits that dealing damage isn't the only way to win. Looking deeply at our boy, he smiles warmly, realizing those past failures are now his proudest stepping stone. Fired up, he pledges his life to mastering the shield. If being a human fortress means keeping his crew alive, he is absolutely all in for team battles. Evan chuckles, telling him to just become an unbreakable wall and let the DPS units handle the slaughter. In his mind, he visualizes their legendary dream team. Picture it: Raihan as the impenetrable fortress, Shine as the deadly silent knight, and Belwa dominating as the Blood Witch. Together, an absolutely unstoppable squad. But then, the mood shifts. Raihan turns to Evan curiously, asking if the boss plans on throwing hands too. Since he is the literal knight captain, fighting on the front line seems like a no-brainer. Shine frowns, questioning if throwing the VIP into the meat grinder is really necessary. Beloy steps in, her tone icy but protective, insisting the captain doesn't need to lift a single finger. Smiling at his overprotective crew, Evan thanks her, but drops a reality check: he is legally obligated to dive into the dungeon. But don't panic, he promises to hard carry the team without. Raihan's jaw drops. He totally thought that elite level of alchemy was a dead art. Evan just shrugs it off, humbly claiming he hit the jackpot by finding an insanely cracked mentor. He vows to rain down ultimate support from the backlines, while Shine and Beloways fiercely swear to slaughter anyone who even looks at him wrong. Fast forward, and the carriages finally roll into Steama, a gorgeous hot springs paradise. Looking out the window, Shine casually admits he has literally never seen a hot spring in his life. Beloways quietly echoes the sentiment, and Raihan chimes in that he is a complete newbie too. Hilariously, it is even Evan's very first time soaking in these waters, at least in this current life. The Marquis playfully teases his son, wondering if the kid can even handle the boiling heat. But Evan just smirks. The hotter it burns, the better it is for the muscles. There is absolutely no way he is skipping this spa episode. Laughs, pointing out that unlike snobby humans, boiling water couldn't care less about your royal status. But he adds with a smirk, he casually reminds Belois she is heading straight to the ladies' bath. Her face instantly flushes crimson, and she fiercely snaps at Shine to shut his mouth before he even says a word. Later, at the Grand Inn, our boy kicks open the door to their suite, catching Shine and Raihan mid-unpacking in their shared room. He leans against the frame, asking if they are finally done. Shine blinks in confusion, wondering why the boss is lurking around when he was supposed to be soaking with the Marquis. Evan stretches lazily, groaning that he desperately needed a power nap first. Shine raises an eyebrow suspiciously. He figures that is the only reason his captain would dodge a relaxing bath. Evan instantly shoots that theory down bluntly, reminding him that their stats are way too low for that kind of suicide mission. Squinting hard, Shine corners him: if they aren't diving into a dungeon, why the heck did he even bring it up? Evan casually drops that they will definitely score a trip there down the line. Raihan breaks it down, revealing only 3 dungeons on the entire planet are massive enough to spawn entire cities around them. We are talking Silkline's Shurden, the Magic Kingdom, Mana Road's Palati, and the Commerce Nation. Baypeka's Murden. Sure, there are tons of smaller, mid-tier dungeons scattered everywhere, but only these legendary giants dish out level-up blessings to those who clear them. Curious Shine questions what the deal is with the local dungeon. Evan explains it is totally off-limits to the public, because the difficulty is insane, though squads routinely raid it for cleanup duties, just to stop monsters from swarming the streets. Plus, epic loot can spawn, or the dungeon itself might literally morph into a rare artifact. Shine hypes up the idea, asking if they are about to snag a massive mansion. But our boy has bigger plans, declaring he is bringing back an entire hot spring to build a brand new resort right in their hometown. Cut to the steaming baths. Shine nervously hovers at the edge alongside Evan, questioning if this boiling cauldron is actually a hot spring, and dramatically claiming he is going to literally melt if he jumps in. Our guy just points at the crowd already chilling in the water, including his own dad, but Shine panics, arguing that his demigod body is way too fragile. Evan just snatches his towel, deadpans that if he dies, and literally kicks him straight into the scalding water. The demigod crashes in, screaming and flailing before finally settling down. He whines about the burning heat for a split second before melting into total relaxation, admitting the vibe is immaculate, which our MC totally seconds. Mid-soak, Shine questions if this stuff actually heals you. Evan drops the lore, explaining it completely trashes standard healing magic, which barely just wipes away basic muscle soreness. Because this supercharged spring actually mends deep wounds and buffs your muscles way past their original limits. Raihan is totally impressed by his knowledge, pointing out that ancient knights used to grind hardcore in Steema for exactly this reason. Shine scoots closer, whispering to ask if these crazy buffs could skyrocket their skill mastery post-training. Evan flashes a knowing smirk, glancing back to ask if he still thinks building a hot spring is a bad idea, and Shine aggressively nods yes. Later on, the trio rolls out rocking matching blue fits. Evan realizes the drip is a direct copy from the game. Fans used to riot that the gear looked way too Japanese, so the devs patched it into a broader East Asian aesthetic. He zones out, wondering where the design originated, since this universe has zero ties to Earth. Suddenly, Raihan speaks up, noting the outfits heavily resemble his homeland's traditional garments, theorizing the town's original founders might share his exact ancestry. Evan is absolutely shook, mind-blown that someone finally cracked the mystery behind the game's clothing lore. Moments later, Lua pulls up asking how the bath experience was, and he gives her the rundown. Beloy steps onto the scene, gliding toward him when a loud white-haired kid suddenly crashes the party. The guy shoves his way to the front, flexing his massive ego and loudly hyping himself up as the one and only Krovan Palati, son of the Grand Duke. Evan recalls him as the only NPC in the game to introduce himself without prompting, an important side character, and the eldest of a famous royal family. When confronted, Crow angrily demands to know who said his full name, only to freeze when he sees Marquis Solane de Sheridan. He quickly apologizes, insisting the girl did nothing wrong. He claims that he only asked questions. Because of her beauty, our protagonist remembers that he later becomes a skilled mage swordsman, and decides it is better to let his father handle things than risk embarrassing himself. At that moment, Marquis acknowledges Bella's beauty, but grips Crow's shoulder and demands to know if he touched her, which he denies. Bella apologizes for the mess. Evan reassures her with a soft word and calls her pretty, earning a thankful smile. Finally, Marquise introduces Evan as his second son, prompting Crow's surprise, as our boy politely greets him by bowing and introducing himself as the second son of the Sheridan family. Crow then asks if Bella is someone he personally keeps. Evan confirms he hired her himself, before asking if Crow still has business with her. The youth admits he does, calling her the prettiest girl he has ever seen. He turns to the Marquis to boldly ask permission to challenge Evan to a duel. For Balua, when it begins, Krovan Faradi points at Evan and challenges him to a duel for Balua. Our boy wonders if this man is stuck in the Middle Ages. Marquis Sheridan calls it amusing, saying CRO is a real man. As the challenger begins to speak, Marquis cuts him off before changing his mind, committing it and telling his son to do it. The protagonist shouts in disbelief and wonders why his father said that. He clears his throat and refuses, saying Balua is not something to be claimed, and they cannot fight over her at once. Crow changes his offer by suggesting she be freed if he wins. Then he will ask if she wants to work for him. Evan realizes he had not thought of that and agrees, deciding to respect her choice as well. Marquis steps in and bans weapons and mana, allowing only hand-to-hand combat, which Crow accepts confidently. Archie signals for them to start immediately, then whispers for his son to go easy, reminding him Crow is not a knight captain. As the duel starts, Evan steps forward to face his challenger. He agrees, on the condition that neither of them holds a grudge. Afterward, and Crow accepts without hesitation. Our protagonist slams his foot against the floor and settles into a stance, while Ryan Balua and Shine watch intently. The challenger flares a blue aura as he pushes forward, accelerating and closing the gap in a burst of speed. Evan decides to dodge and test his reaction. When the strike misses, he slips aside, spots an opening, and lands a blow that sends Crow flying backward in a burst, leaving him unmoving on the floor in disbelief. Evan comments on the outcome, and Shine explains it happened because he actually hit him. Still unconvinced, our boy presses for clarity, until Shine provides an explanation, and Marcus declares him the winner. Afterward, the protagonist recalls Crow's background, remembering his training in both magic and swordsmanship from an early age, a combination that should have made him a stronger opponent. He reasons the weakness comes from focusing on magic over combat. He laughs as he remarks, it was fortunate, mana was not allowed. Marquis insists his win is simply due to being stronger, but Evan downplays it, claiming Crow is likely better at magic, and that is why the duel ended quickly. His humility draws praise from his father nearby. Ryan and Shine note his lack of self-awareness. While Bellowa steps forward to compliment his performance, she offers him a handkerchief and explains she brought it to wipe sweat, though the fight ended too quickly for that. Evan thanks her, and across the room, Ryan's healing magic stirs Crow back to consciousness. It prompted him to spring up, which earns praise from the protagonist. For Ryan's skill after the duel, Crow admits defeat. Evan tells him it was an amazing move, while explaining he only won because of the many restrictions. And a stroke of luck, the boy agrees, yet insists he was not giving it his all, declaring he wants another duel someday. Without holding back, our protagonist refuses, and says he has no reason to fight him again. Still, Crow insists he does, and vows to return once he has confidence in his strength. In reflection, Evan admits he risked his life by accepting the challenge, and ended up tangled deeper than intended, since he never planned to get involved with the Ferrati family. Shine offers to handle Crow if he causes trouble again. He tells Evan not to waste his time, and our boy praises him for the thought. At that moment, Marquis notices Melthor's presence, and decides it is proper to greet him. He tells the group to rest while asking his son to join. Evan complains, but his father insists and reminds him that, as an aristocrat, he must socialize and cooperate with others. To protect the world, the kid understands, but dreads dealing with the Ferratis. When they meet, Melthor greets Marquise warmly, and Marquise replies that he is in good health. Before complimenting Mrs. Ferrari on her beauty, she thanks him graciously, then shifts her gaze to our protagonist, and remarks on how handsome he has become. While asking if he remembers her, he answers politely that he faintly does. He begins to greet her properly, but she insists he call her Mrs. Ferrati. Marquis notes that Evan's eyes resemble his own as Mrs. Ferrati recalls his age, before realizing he is the same as their daughter, Alicia, calling the girl forward. As Alicia approaches, she greets the Marquis politely, and our boy remembers she never directly killed him, yet was always the root cause. Marquis compliments her looks, and she thanks him. Melthor turns to Marquis and asks if he recalls their promise. With a grin, he replies that the eldest must lead the family, so he is not bound to it. He adds that he remembers the plan was to unite their second or third children, and Melthor laughs while teasing the kid for acting shy. During introductions, Alicia formally presents herself, and Evan responds hesitantly with his full name. Exchanging formal greetings, he recognizes her as Alicia von Ferrati, his betrothed. She resides in Sheridan because of the engagement, later meeting the Dungeon City's protagonist, and betraying her fiancé by supporting him massively. All this eventually led to the fiancé's despair and suicide, making her the greatest cause of his deaths. He admits his own faults for mingling with other women, despite being engaged, but if events follow the game, Alicia will become his death flag. The parents admire how good the two look together, calling it fate. Later that evening, Marquis asks how the hot springs were, and Evan admits he loved them. He adds that he finds the waters dangerously tempting, as he remembers a route where he dies from staying in too long. When his father suggests another soak after dinner, he agrees, but adds that they should build one in their own city as well. When the idea is raised, Evan's father admits that having hot springs in their city would be great. He explains that creating one requires the right environment, which makes it nearly impossible. While hot water can be produced, a true hot spring with special benefits cannot be achieved with only that. Our boy admits his father is right, and asks about how geography changes when dungeons form, pressing for the reason. Marquis recognizes his interest, and explains that when objects powerful enough to influence the environment exist, or when a monster of immense strength is present, a dungeon naturally forms. A powerful mage who has fully mastered their abilities can also alter the environment to form a dungeon, though the exact workings remain difficult to understand. Evan asks if a hot spring could be created instead, using a powerful enough item. His father considers the possibility, noting it might work if the item shares properties with a hot spring, so the formation time would be uncertain. Evan explains that having a healing hot spring in their city would greatly boost dungeon raid efficiency for explorers, and is suspicious of his intent. Archie asks if he already has an idea. At night, workers dig under Evan's watchful gaze, and one asks if this is truly the right spot. He confirms while explaining that something valuable lies buried near the dungeon. They question the rumor's source, but before finishing, Ryan calls out and claims to have found something. From inside the pit, they reveal a large stone slab. After a month away, Evan returns, and talk quickly shifts to his sudden bathhouse business idea. His father assigns Eric to listen closely. As he explains the plan, he emphasizes that location is everything, since the bathhouse should be near the dungeon. He adds that it should not too be far from the pharmacy, and directly on the main road. Large space is necessary, since they cannot open multiple small branches, so the hot spring must be big, while the entrance fee will be set high, to match its size and appeal. In discussion, Marcus remarks that, if the brothers' pharmacy is targeted at peasants, and the brothers' bathhouse is aimed at explorers, Evan insists, the hot springs' effects are worth the price, since being healed allows them to return to the dungeon sooner. Eric adds that it would help develop the dungeon city, further calling it a perfect business plan. He wonders how the temple will react, since the hot spring has healing effects. Our protagonist replies that they are on good terms with the temple, and the priest will come too. Privately, he thinks, it will be more popular than Steema's hot springs. In Demon War 3, with a healing hot spring nearby, he can survive easier. He mentions that they also have Mr. Bernard to raise the medicinal efficiency of the water. As Bernard steps in, he tells Evan to move his hand. He admits he had wondered what Evan was doing in the capital, and complains that he came back with a hot spring. He asks if it is the stone slab, and our boy answers yes. He promotes Bernard to explain that this is a part of the dungeon core, strong enough to change environments, but unable to create a dungeon. Evan agrees and says he cannot be the only one to use such good water, and asking Bernard if he likes hot springs. Eric remarks that it is expected, since Bernard has created cures for diseases. The alchemist examines the slab, and concludes it is impossible to change it. He adds that it will serve as the origin of the hot spring. Boosting its effects, he tells Evan, the rest can be handled through alchemy and medical botany with conviction. Bernard declares they will make a better hot spring than steamers. He asks to use it for free, for himself and the brothers' pharmacy, and Evan agrees. He then turns to his father, and asks for land near the bathhouse, to establish a dungeon knight's training facility. Marquis asks why, as Evan explains that the knights can train, and then go straight to the bath. Marquis claims it is a great idea. Our boy thinks the hot spring will make the knights stronger, and raise his survival chances. Bernard tells him they should get started right away, and asks him to help too, and Evan responds eagerly. At the construction site, workers haul timber and hammer at the framework, while Evan guides positions and adjustments. Two men carry a beam past a marked column, etched with a magic seal inside. Bernard examines the man-powered machine, and warns that the stone's output cannot get to sustain the entire setup. Our protagonist adds that the goal is a fully functional facility. From the start, Bernard stresses the importance of a solid foundation, then cuts in again, to insist the current setup will not work. He adds that an extra artifact is needed, alongside the mana stone. He explains the need for a mana aggregate, one that can endlessly produce mana, and sustain the facility's core. He declares they will need at least 5. In response, our boy quickly identifies it as the mana tank process. Surprising him, Bernard admits it would boost efficiency, but laments trading away his old artifacts. Evan asks about their whereabouts, prompting the man to admit they are gone, and the youth produces several artifacts. From his own collection, he announces that they can use what he brought from the capital. Bernard eyes them suspiciously, and wonders if he raided palace storage. Our protagonist replies that he took them from across the city, most from a jeweler at last. The alchemist nods that they will work, and our boy offers to help, seeing the task as perfect alchemy training. Later in the training yard, the knight captain approaches Evan. He reminds him not to neglect combat practice, stressing this is the age where growth matters most. Evan acknowledges him, but the knight brings up the report about a duel with the Ferrati family's son. He notes that the young master has already made a name for himself in martial arts, and warns that more challengers will now seek him out. Evan waves it off and insists he did nothing special, but the knight is certain otherwise, and offers to teach a dungeon-learned skill to protect his reputation. Without delay, he reveals it is a martial arts move, meant to dominate the battlefield. Heavens wait before his eyes. Evan watches energy gather in the captain's fist, as his body becomes wrapped in a swirling, heavy aura. He explains the skill's purpose, to infuse each movement with immense weight. He says the young master can use it with greater efficiency. Our boy questions if the skill can even be taught, but the captain ignores him and charges forward, forcing him into a frantic defense. Afterward, our protagonist collapses on a desk, until Mabel enters, and announces it is time for etiquette lessons. He asks for a moment to recover. She brings up that Shine got a bracelet, and Bella got earrings while she got nothing. He insists he did not forget, only could not find the right time. Evan produces a necklace, while telling her to always wear it. As the mascot of Brothers Pharmacy, and as proof she acts in his place, she smiles brightly and clutches it, while vowing to treasure it forever. And though he downplays it, she only laughs in the days that follow. Etiquette lessons fill his mornings. Alchemy training at the brothers' bathhouse site takes his afternoons, and Heaven's weight practice with the night captain consumes his free time. As he continues his slime training, the small creatures float in his hands, and Evan grins proudly to see 4 appear at once. Though his mana drains quickly, he collapses onto the grass, then forces himself back up. He admits he must hurry, for the brothers' bathhouse is almost complete. During training, the night captain orders Evan to strike harder and put more weight into his fist. He does as he is told. As the captain praises him, he explains that heaviness is the key to Heaven's weight, since once he grows accustomed to it, he will be able to infuse mana into his punches, for even greater force, calling him a combat genius. The captain admits he was not even sure the skill could be taught. Our boy complains that uncertainty is no excuse, and Bella steps in with a towel, which he accepts with thanks. On this day, the brothers' bathhouse officially opens. While the marquee points out the design, our protagonist notes how Stima's style leaned heavily Oriental. He explains his choice to give the place a more Western design. Shine notices a strange device that catches his attention. When they approach the vending machine, Evan explains how it works by inserting a silver coin, choosing a drink, pressing the button, and receiving it. He demonstrates by picking coffee milk, which drops into the tray, and Shine tries it for himself. As he continues, he describes the build, mentioning space-expanding artifacts and cooling magic powering the custom vending machines. In both changing rooms, Bernard recalls how troublesome the project was to assemble and tune. He warns that the taste had better match the hype, but Evan remains confident and promises satisfaction. Shine compares the heat to Stema's famed springs. He explains they used a giant artifact for the bathtubs to boost the hot spring water's effects and purify it. Bernard adds that herb concentrate is regularly mixed into the water to enhance it further. He also points out that the vending machine was the protagonist's idea. Marky declares it will be a hit, while Shine asks if Bella and the other women will like it. As Ryan replies that they will, Bernard turns and wonders if Evan is content. Our boy answers that it will definitely sell, though the old alchemist remarks that there is only one problem, which makes Evan ask what it is. At that moment, Mabel appears at the entrance. The crowd shouts that 1 silver coin is enough for a full meal. Some yell that no one will come if it is that expensive, and call it nonsense as protests rise. An explorer insists the entrance fees should be lowered. Another says they should just not go, and more agree while chanting, "They will not go." Seeing the people enrage, Mabel calls Evan, but he assures her it is fine. She greets a customer, who drops a bag of coins on the counter, and Evan explains there are explorers in the city who spend a gold coin to travel between the 30th floor of the dungeon. He adds, if they try the bathhouse and pay 20 silver coins, the results will speak for themselves. Inside the bath, an explorer mutters that it is insane, while one feels his energy recover quickly from the fresh herbs. Another man says it feels like his soul is being purified, and declares it worth every coin. A big man stands in the steaming water. He orders others to inform the guild that anyone not bathing in the brothers' bathhouse before dungeon exploration will not be allowed to go. Evan thinks that efficiency is much higher this way. In the bathhouse, one man cups water in his hand, while calling it a miracle. Another declares that God must have made it to cleanse their souls. Evan thinks people will eventually have to admit the brothers' bathhouse is worth paying 20 silver coins. He adds that once rumors spread, even explorers who consider the price too high will still come at least once. Our boy explains that the bathhouse does more than ease fatigue. He explains that it restores the body's fundamentals and makes dungeon expeditions safer. Evan emphasizes how it speeds up growth, while pointing out the gap that will soon form between those who use it and those who do not. With non-users inevitably eliminated, 2 explorers relax in the water, while praising the facility. One man calls it amazing, and remarks that 20 silver coins might not even cover the cost, while another declares it a blessing. At the dungeon entrance, the guild leader asks if everyone has visited the brothers' bathhouse, prompting the group to shout back that they have. Fired up to reach the 40th floor and catch the frontliners, The Yellow Drake Guild charges ahead. From a distance, bystanders murmur about wanting to go too. One explains that nobles and commoners alike use it before raids, thanking the Marquise's policy. Others also vow to visit once they are stronger. Evan watches as veteran explorers raid more efficiently, thanks to the bathhouse. Newbies are also training harder, while dreaming of trying it someday. With the entry fee and exclusive drinks only adding to its allure, entering becomes a privilege, reserved for high-ranking explorers. Later, the Marquis reviews papers. He notes that everything proceeds exactly as Evan planned, with profits soaring. He realizes that the pure profits from the bathhouse exceed those of all four brothers' pharmacy branches, combined for frontline explorers. It is great. He considers it even more suited to lower floor adventurers and slum citizens who cannot afford priestly help. Since the pharmacy caters to a different crowd, the difference in profits is natural. He also sees that the money poured into the bathhouse also far surpasses what was spent on the pharmacies. Marquis explains that the cost must come from his own pocket. Recalling the vassal's outrage, a heated meeting takes place in Marquis' office, where a guy slams the desk in fury. He says they were not allowed to invest, accusing bias since the project belonged to Evan. He insists on loyalty, but demands answers, only to be told to calm down. Marquis clarifies he never invested in the bathhouse, and that it accepts funds only when short on resources. Mention of pharmacy profits follows, revealing Evan contributed both skill and personal funds. The man leans back stunned, admitting he never imagined it. Evan muses that some vassals are far too obsessed with money. At that moment, he gestures toward Randolph as an example of greed. Marquis declares the bathhouse Evan's alone, untouchable by others. He says greed always follows the scent of coins. Yet he praises the boy's progress. Though with an apologetic sigh, he admits Evan may be carrying too much too soon. Our protagonist reassures him that it is fine, privately reminding himself that every move he makes is to avoid death afterward. He works on pricing adjustments and unveils his next plan, a special membership system, ranked by contributions to dungeon raids. He lays out the tiered cards and explains how higher ranks will push people to work harder, strengthening both the bathhouse and the city. Mabel remarks it could motivate citizens, and Evan agrees. He also adds that it will forge a city less reliant on a single, chosen hero. Finally, Mabel admits she does not fully understand, but insists he is already invaluable. She says that she cannot imagine the city without him, and calls him someone the dungeon city needs. He refuses to let himself die or watch the city fall. Knowing a world bound to one hero risks disaster, Evan vows to change it by building an order where the city thrives on its own, securing not only its survival but his own. Inside the pharmacy, Evan presents potions, gems, and ingots, announcing them as the results of his alchemy lesson. Bernard inspects a gem. While acknowledging his improvement, our boy jokingly suggests he should handle closing duties. At the pharmacy, Bernard stays silent, but retorts sharply while Hannah listens nearby outside. The old alchemist dismisses the employees with praise for their work. Two workers invite him to the bathhouse, which he readily accepts. Hannah then invites the protagonist as well, and he agrees to join at the bathhouse. He is greeted by two men they are already soaking, and confirm they have just finished training. Shine explains he is caught up on all the lessons missed during his time in the capital. Evan turns to Ryan, who admits he is still behind, but learning much from Shine. The swordsman adds that he still has plenty to learn from the Holy Knight's training. Ryan explains he has built strength, but lacks formal weapons training. In response, the young master tells him not to dwell on it, assuring him he is simply progressing differently. He adds that Ryan only needs to make up for what he lacks, pointing out the versatility of shield arts. The trainee realizes what he means. The alchemist confirms that he will begin shield training tomorrow, with everything already prepared. As he walks away, a familiar voice calls to him. He sees Servina and Hannah both greeting him. After a long time apart, he greets Servina and asks if she visits often, which she confirms. He acknowledges the hot springs' benefits, but warns her that drinking beer will cancel them out. She then asks about his guard, and Ryan introduces himself formally. He explains that he is training to be worthy of standing beside his master. Anna mentions she works at the pharmacy, while Servina shares that she is at the temple. Later in a training yard, our boy presents a large shield he found in storage. Ryan thanks him, declaring that he will protect him with this shield. From now on, our protagonist shakes his head and tells him no, explaining that the shield is not that great. He adds, he is only giving it for training. warning him never to use it in real situations. Ryan protests that he should have been told earlier. Evan adds they would both end up dead if he tried to use it for protection. When asked what he means, Evan asks Ryan if he has ever heard of a cursed item, which makes Ryan react. Evan explains that cursed artifacts exist, items that can weaken their owners. When Ryan wonders if the shield is one of them, he shakes his head. Evan says that sometimes, perfectly fine artifacts are mistaken for cursed ones, and discarded. He adds that this shield is different, and though he knows its true value from the game, our boy also admits that in real life, judging artifacts is far less certain. Ryan presses and questions him for its real power. Evan replies that, if it blocks an attack with Echo Shield, the enemy feels it twice as hard at once. Ryan blurts out that it sounds like a cursed item. Evan clarifies that, blocking one strike counts as blocking two, doubling shield skill proficiency. On top of that, efficiency rises fourfold if Ryan wears the Iron Wall Knight's full plate armor. While training, he adds that a certain necklace multiplies it eightfold, though Evan tells him not to overthink it, and just get the feel. The shield, the armor and the necklace are bugged items, distorted by some unknown influence. When urged to try it, at first Ryan looks lost. Then he suddenly roars and charges, blocking incoming blows with the shield. Evan notes he is adapting quickly, but warns he is bleeding at the side, telling him to heal as he fights. Golden light wraps Ryan as he chants to the battle god. His wounds knitting close still. He holds his ground, while the green aura on his shield grows brighter. Evan presses forward, his own body wrapped in swirling energy. Meanwhile, the necklace, that should drain its wearer's mana to summon countless wind arrows, instead fires them straight at Ryan, oddly consuming barely any mana and being growth type. It will strengthen with him. The armor is just as strange, flagged by a coding error as a shield. Instead of armor, it sat in storage rather than being scrapped. Worn alone, it leaks damage. But if the user stands braced, as though holding a shield, it functions like one paired with an actual shield. It is as if two are raised at once, doubling block potential together with Echo Shield. Their combined effect magnifies training efficiency. It blocks the summoned arrows, creates the perfect regimen for shield arts. Satisfied, Evan steps back and lets Ryan train on his own. He then turns to Shine and says that it is time for proper instruction. Shine quickly realizes, this will not be ordinary dagger drills. Evan reminds him that after 2 years of experience, he is already honed enough to fight knights. Shine snaps that those battles were not by choice, since the knights cornered him from behind when he was training alone. Even so, Evan point out, it sharpened his divine sight and combat sense. Shine mutters about the butler's transcendent sight skill. The young master admits that at first, he only wanted his friends to survive the dungeons, but now they have grown strong enough to enter one. Though Shine knows, he has not yet reached the strength he needs. During training, Shine admits he is still not strong enough, and Evan agrees. He says that is how it is for a demigod. Our boy draws one of his twin blades, and explains it is a skill he learned with them, calling it Bloody Shadow. He explains the more blood coats the daggers, the faster his movements become, and it even restores stamina. Evan replies that it is a fitting skill for someone who specializes in fighting multiple opponents. He adds that it is a technique that improves with experience and becomes even more powerful over time. Our protagonist insists it can only develop through real battle, but the alchemist counters. He tells him to simply get blood on the blades instead. Shine wonders if he is being told to kill people. Evan quickly clarifies and produces several bottles filled with red liquid. At that moment, the boy asks if it is truly blood, and Evan confirms while explaining it is monster blood. He adds it is mostly from goblins, with each bottle containing blood from different creatures. Bloody Shadow boosts physical abilities, but strains the body. It makes it dangerous to train with. As a child, he had originally planned for Shine to gain dungeon experience first. Now he believes the demigod has grown stronger than expected. The youth agrees and credits certain local facilities that help replenish stamina, saying he can train the skill faster than anticipated. Evan explains further, saying that training is not about how much blood coats the blades. He adds that it is about how many different types are applied within a set time, alongside how much movement occurs in that span. It makes Shine realize why so many kinds were prepared. The young master instructs him to coat the daggers in a specific order. He explains that running 100 meters back and forth after each application is the most efficient training method. The Shine stands there shocked, admitting he is worried he will be mistaken for something dangerous. Evan asks if he would rather stick with his current training, and faced with the choice, Shine panics, before quickly agreeing to follow the new method. Meanwhile, our boy begins to think of Bella, who always leaves after finishing her duties. He says that she is going to work on her lamp training, though he senses she definitely has a secret. Evan never asked before, since he assumed it was nothing bad, but now that they must enter the dungeon together, he feels the need to confirm her progress, and resolves to uncover the truth. 2 hours later, he searches everywhere she might slip into alone, yet finds nothing. He thinks that she would not hide somewhere easy, if she truly had something to conceal. A voice calls out, and Madame Miriam stands nearby, holding Liz and flanked by maids. She notices Evan rushing around, and asks what he is looking for. He greets her politely until she waits for his reply. He apologizes for being busy, and asks if she has seen Balua. He explains he has urgent business with the girl, but cannot find her anywhere. The lady seems surprised, and asks if he still does not know that Redden has been teaching Belua tea ceremonies, flower arrangements, and manners. Evan reacts in shock, questioning why his mother would teach her such things. Miriam answers it is because she considers the girl a potential mistress for him, and is training her to be suitable. He shouts in disbelief, protesting that he does not even have a wife, and that the child is only 9. Miriam points out, it is wrong to take a maid as a mistress. The idea is impossible, since the thought of taking in the blood-eyed witch as a mistress is something he refuses. In reflection, our protagonist thinks about how it has been 3 years since he last joined his mother for tea. He realizes Bella's skills have been growing unusually fast. Perhaps a special skill is developing through training with his mother, similar to how the butler or headmaid gained theirs. In this world, consistent training over months often turns into a skill, while mastery follows through persistent effort. While enduring the lessons of noble etiquette, Bella's mana abilities have unexpectedly grown, but dismisses the thought with disbelief. He heads straight for the door and knocks firmly while announcing himself. His mother appears with the girl standing behind her. Evan addresses Raiden directly, asking why she hid the fact that she is a mage. She meets his stare, while acknowledging that he has discovered the truth. Across from his mother, Evan demands to know why she has hidden her identity, questioning if his father is aware. Redding admits he does not know for certain, but has likely guessed. She explains that the Sheridan family is infamous for lacking magical talent. He adds that, however, Eric turned out to be very good at it. In response, the protagonist agrees to answer and lists 4 reasons. First, the tea she and Bella were drinking was ironic. Second, the notebook by the teacups, an artifact designed to encrypt what is written inside. Third, an old lamp that still glows faintly after being turned off. It all proves that she had been using it. Right before he arrived. Fourth, Balua's rapid growth could not come from lamp training alone. He says that it means his mother had been personally teaching her. Redding remarks on his ability to gauge others' progress, and observes that he has secrets of his own. He adds one more point by saying that, while his father has been aging, she has not, at that moment. She steps forward and tells him to listen closely. She insists that she only looks young, making sure he understands. When he replies in agreement, she asks if he knows about witches. He recalls that they are what people call women, who are mages, and she says she is glad he does not know more. Our boy listens as Raiden explains the nature of witches. He realizes she refers to a hidden species, rather than a profession, describing them as female demi-humans, whose abilities are inherited through bloodline, blessed with abundant mana and exceptional control. She mentions an ancient tale, in which God created them, and hid them among humans to protect the world. Though she admits little knowledge beyond that, he processes the comparison by likening them to demigods. Meanwhile, Redding says she traveled the world, while hiding her identity, until she fell in love with his father. After their marriage, she stopped involving herself in worldly affairs, and chose to live as a normal human, named Redding D. Sheaton. In his thoughts, Evan recalls playing every Demon War game and DLC in his past life. He knows almost everything, but never the full picture, since he was not a developer. He notes that never once did the games mention witches. As demi-humans, he wonders how such critical information could be missing, then realizes one possible explanation: the sequel. That would explain everything, since, unless Earth was destroyed, it was normal for a new game in the series to be released, though he never expected to find himself inside it. Rodden explains further, saying that no new witch was born between her and his father. She admits Evan carries a bit of witch blood, since he is not a woman, she believes. The adverse effect is his lack of magical talent. She recalls discovering Balua, a child with the potential to become a witch. While our protagonist knows Bella is a demigod, and wonders if demi-humans, witches and demigods are connected, Evan thinks she will gain power she never had in Demon War 3. Finally, Redding says that is why they are in this situation. She asks if her explanation is enough, and, though he agrees somewhat, she praises his smarts, before asking for his own secrets, pointing out that it is unfair to keep them. After learning hers, he realizes Demon War 5 might exist, but has no information about it. He thinks it is safer to share his secret with his mother, who is connected to the sequel. He decides to plan ahead without adding death flags, and our boy begins to explain while recalling a dream. Across the manor grounds, Evan walks while servants whisper about him. They comment on his habits and training routines, until in the garden he faces Shine. Shine tries again, by spinning a funny story about the gardener, that nearly cracks his composure. The young master calls this immortality project No. 5 Poker Face, a mission to hide his emotions in any situation, though he admits he has not practiced much. A few days earlier, Balua had told him that his smile truly makes others feel happy, yet he tripped then and smashed a cup as tea spilled, until she rushed to his side. In that moment he remembered something crucial. His 12th birthday and formal debut were close at hand. He admits that if he smiled at everyone, the death flags would skyrocket. Evan refuses Shine's suggestion to stop training, reminding him, an aristocrat's 12th birthday is not a joke. The butler recalls how extravagant young Master Eric's party had been, filled with foreign nobles and guild masters. Our protagonist notes that such events mean many women will attend, which he sees as a problem. He insists a poker face is necessary to avoid unwanted trouble. Shine questions his fear and suggests women could simply be friends, like Mabel or Balua, but Evan dismisses the idea. At that moment, Balua interrupts with a letter from the palace. He freezes when reading the words and shouts in disbelief at receiving a letter from the crown. Bello explains, the Marquise reviewed it before sending her, hoping it is not from the one he fears most. He presses her for reassurance. She says she cannot give it, and the message reveals the king will attend his birthday. The Marquis roars about rejecting the king's proposal, yet still being pressed. Evan's mother warns him not to underestimate her, saying their second son is special, though the Marquis counters that the king will not get his way, since Evan will announce his intent to become Dungeon Knight captain. At his birthday, Shine reacts with surprise, but the young master insists that is the point. Our boy believes the king's real aim is arranging a marriage with the princess. He thinks by taking the knight's role, he will cut off the chance, vowing to crush this death flag. Inside the estate, staff prepare frantically, as he checks with Mabel about arrangements. She explains everything is being redone. Since the king announced his visit, he suggests shifting attention away from the royal guest, but she insists the young master should remain the main focus. She hands him the stage plan, as he scans it while asking if it is genuine, and Mabel nods that makes his eyes light up, as he realizes all the cute girls are coming to his birthday party. Earlier, Evan questions the popular female minstrels arranged to perform at his party. Mabel grins while explaining they are simply girls, eager to meet aristocrats. He explains that she promised them a meeting, and his autograph, which they accepted instantly. Our protagonist glares in frustration, and accuses her of selling him out without consent. He adds to his death flags, and as he reviews the plans, he points out the many fixes still needed. Despite Mabel's protests about him involving himself in his own party, he instructs her to have the performers play a few quiet songs. Evan steps back once the king arrives, while also proposing to split the celebration into 2 parts, one for the king and the other for real fun so the guests of honor may leave early. Later, the boy stands before his employees to invite everyone to his birthday party. He assures to them that both the main and satellite locations will remain open. Some hesitate because they fear disrupting the prestige, but he insists otherwise. He adds that they must wear brothers' pharmacy uniforms, so their status is made clear. Hannah hesitates at the uniform rule, yet he reminds her it is necessary. With aristocrats present, Evan explains that even Servina must wear her priestess attire, though he offers to prepare her a dress for the second part, when the important guests are gone. Turning to the older man, he offers a suit as well, but Grandpa refuses. He says he does not want attention while the king is there, but Evan tempts him by mentioning the cute girls. Bernard asks if they are really that pretty, and our boy confirms they are. He adds, they are the prettiest of the silk line, and famous even in other kingdoms. Grandpa agrees, though he warns he will leave immediately if bothered. Afterward, our protagonist visits the butcher. He asks him to cook for the party, but the man panics. At preparing food for so many important guests, the chef slams his hands down and scolds the young master for his nonsense. Evan explains that only someone truly skilled would use that herb in cooking. He praised the man's unique talent, while urging him to showcase it at the birthday party. He guarantees that aristocrats will love it, which gradually convinces the hesitant cook. Evan further explains the appeal of cooking fresh, over open flames. The chef finally agrees and vows to do his best, while Evan promises to handle the rest. At the estate, Shine arrives carrying stacked boxes and explains they are addressed to him. Evan nods since he ordered uniforms for Shine. Balua and the other demigod kids who work under him declares they had to wear these uniforms at the party. Shine hesitates and asks if that means, apart from the others, our boy answers plainly that yes, they are his trainees now, and candidates for the night order he intends to form. Outside, servants shout for everyone to hurry as time runs short. One confirms to Evan that the security is perfect, while Balua reminds them it must be flawless, since His Majesty will attend. He asks if the chefs hired for the day were properly vetted. Mabel calls out for him to leave it and get his makeup done, promising she will handle it. Someone points out the famous cute girls. Another wonders how they were invited. A voice comments that the young master must have skilled people around him. Hannah asks if it is truly okay for them to be present. Barnard replies that no one dares to touch the brothers' pharmacy. At the party hosted by the Marquis, she asks if he was an aristocrat, and he warns that pretending to be one brings punishment. Worse than death, he tells her to watch her mouth before asking for a drink. Meanwhile, in the dressing room, Mabel says everyone in the hall is talking about him and praising him. Shine adds that many are also discussing the dungeon, making Evan ask what they are saying. The knight explains that no raid has gone past the 45th floor since the Great Change, though before explorers reach the 50th, Abel hesitantly asks if he really plans to go after his birthday, and he confidently confirms. He admits that he will enter, but only clear up to the 5th floor, leaving them both stunned. Shine warns that if the young master wants to fight the floor master, the Marquise will be terrified. Evan admits his original plan was to go to the 10th floor. Shine explains that the floor master guards every 5 levels. He adds that no 12-year-old has beaten the 5th floor's floor master. If the Marquis discovered the 10th floor plan, he might ground him. Evan says that is why he will stop at the 5th floor. With the night order and Vice Captain Shine's support, the man blinks and asks who the vice captain is. Evan declares he will leave the training to him, from now on calling him Vice Captain. Shine asks if he is joking, but the head maid arrives to announce it is done, and our boy thanks her before leaving. He asks the head maid to keep what they just heard a secret. She agrees while Evan says it is time to greet everyone in the party hall. Inside, a man notices the Ferrati family enter. Bernard calls a white-haired girl a pretty child, prompting Hannah to explain she is Alicia von Ferrati. Crow looks for Bella and wonders if Alicia will enter with Evan, while the girl grips her face in sickness. Her father says he will take her to Evan. When he arrives and asks her to hold on longer, Crow wonders how much stronger Evan has become, smirking that Evan was strong enough to be considered his rival. Alicia mutters that he is lying, while he insists he is telling the truth. At that moment, Marquis Herdon and his wife enter the hall. Someone wonders about the Marquis' second wife, while another replies she must be tending to the newborn. The Marquis steps forward and thanks everyone for coming. On stage, he addresses the guests, recalling when his first son turned 12. Marquis then announces they now celebrate his second son, reaching the same age. As he prepares to introduce Evan backstage, Bella rushes in with an urgent message from the main gate, leaving the young master puzzled. Across the hall, guests turn toward the opposite side of the stage as a golden staff strikes the floor with force. The Emperor enters, with Princess Serena following close behind. He arrives earlier than expected. While Evan realizes the king has come in, inside the hall the Emperor steps forward, flanked by armored guards, with Princess Serena walking just behind. The Marquis approaches to question the early arrival. He also reminds him the event has not yet started. The ruler responds and accepts the invitation to enter, as the Marquis guides him further inside. While walking beside him at the stage, the Marquis raises his voice to draw the room's attention. He steps forward with arms wide to congratulate his son on his 12th birthday. Evan thanks him and vows to honor the family name by serving the citizens with his utmost effort. Yet the Marquis narrows his gaze and asks what his son intends to do. To bring such honor, our boy pauses briefly before declaring his intention to form the Dungeon Knight Order. He proclaims himself as its captain and vows to protect the city. Someone recall the order being disbanded decades ago, while others question why he must lead it himself. In response, the Emperor raises his hand to signal silence. He asks why Evan made this decision, if the attention was too much, and if the choice is too rash. Marquis steps in to explain that our boy is not running away, but chose the dungeon. He asks Evan to confirm. As he answers yes, Evan tells the king he is prepared to take on the duties as Dungeon Knight Captain. He explains he has already been gathering members, while pointing to Shine Ryan and Belua. Some whisper he should not enter the dungeon until he is 18. Our protagonist declares he will prove his determination by entering the dungeon with Shine, Ryan and Belua. He adds he'll go there with the goal of bringing back the head of the 5th floor's floormaster. At that moment his father reacts in shock. Marquis points out that he is still 6 years from adulthood, and the captain position. Evan acknowledges this, while insisting it is necessary to gain the people's trust and prove his determination. Before the Marquis can respond, Michael steps forward and states he can vouch for him. Shine Ryan and Belua and the crowd recognizes him as Michael D. Earl Ock, captain of the Iron Wall Knights. He explains that he has trained with them for years and believes they are strong enough to stand alongside the other knights, assuring the gathering that they possess both the skill and talent to handle the 5th floor. Across the hall, the Marquis protests with anger. He says that a knight captain would endorse his young son. Entering the dungeon, Michael proposes a duel with the knights to prove their strength, while leaving the decision to the Marquis. The king, intrigued, orders our boy to prove himself immediately. Evan accepts as the knights step forward, until the two groups face each other. In the center of the hall, Michael declares the rules of the match by allowing both sword and magic. He raises his hand and signals the start, while ordering the duel to begin. The announcer declares the match between the 3 knights and Shine Belua and Ryan. He allows both sword and magic, and at his signal the duel begins. The knights charge forward, while the trio braces for impact. Ryan stands tall and summons his skill, Guardian's Blessing. Their swords suddenly jerk uncontrollably, until he blocks and counters, to send 2 staggering back. Shine darts in with blinding speed to slash before his opponent can react. Though one braces to counter, they find their feet frozen to the floor, as Belua gathers a blazing fireball and launches it. It prompts the announcer to step in, while calling for a stop and declaring the duel over. He names Ryan and his teammates as the winners. A man observes the shield choice by noting that a tanker like him would be valuable in any situation. The man also recognizes the skill of the others. The king calls the duel and wonders aloud if this is the hidden power of the Sheridan. Marquis stands there, worrying about their overwhelming strength. The king thinks Evan proves himself fit to be a leader for putting the 3 together as a team. Yet he questions Evan's own abilities, which makes our boy turn to the knight captain for help. The princess cheers for him from the crowd, as he tells himself that running now could ruin his chances of entering the dungeon. Michael steps forward and declares himself his opponent. Spectators comment on the choice by noting his suitability to ensure Evan's safety. The knights whisper they will die if they fight. The young master and Alicia watches with interest as the duel begins. Under the method of combat, the young master and Michael face each other. In fighting stances, the signal is given, and both launch forward at high speed. Michael closes the distance instantly to force Evan back until he braces and counters, though the challenger drives a knee into his side. Before they exchange rapid strikes, Bernard denies the idea of an artifact and insists it is pure strength. Our protagonist's movements are sharp and refined, with precise strikes that overpower his opponent. Bernard explains them by saying that, although an artifact might enhance potential, such techniques must still be learned. Mr. Ferrari exclaims at the advanced combat skill, and marvels that he has mastered it at his age. When Alicia is asked if she likes him, she replies without hesitation. When the suggestion of an engagement is raised, she pauses before agreeing. If he accepts, she says it would be interesting, while her father promises to pull strings, so her proposal will not be refused. Our boy shifts and leaves an opening. Michael lunges in, but in a swift counter, Evan slams him to the floor and locks him down. After that, the referee calls the match, and Michael D. Irlaka is declared the winner. Ryan kneels and asks if the protagonist disputes the outcome, but he admits defeat. Michael praises the duel While remarking on the noticeable improvement, he advises him to pay more attention to his body, to grow faster at last. They clasp hands and end the bout on good terms. From the crowd, Mr. Ferrari envies Marquis for having such skilled children. He claims even the eldest, Eric, is great. Yet now another talented son stands out. Mr. Ferrari notes, the Sheridan family's prospects will likely rise, thanks to Evan. He then questions Crow if he is truly an equal rival. Crow stiffens and admits, the boy has grown much stronger since their last meeting. Even suspecting that he now lags behind in the center, Michael turns to the crowd and declares Evan's performance proof of his skill. The king sighs, and the Marquis says, he needn't choose such a hard path. After a pause, he concedes, by setting a limit that Evan may challenge, only up to the 5th floor. He also warns that the 6th floor is too dangerous. Evan promises to clear it and return safely. While in his head he thinks this isn't his only chance. He plans to push for the 10th floor. On his next birthday, Ferrari raises a glass and tells him to forget complex matters and enjoy his 12th birthday. He agrees, but Dane takes the glass while insisting no alcohol. Serena walks up, smiling, and says she came to keep her promise. Evan freezes when she appears before him, since she announces she's stronger now. Because of his advice, Serena says that she wants to join the Dungeon Knight Order. Alicia steps in and casually remarks that it's a coincidence, because she also wants to join. Evan shouts in disbelief at her too, realizing the 2 death flags he thought were gone have returned. Shine approaches and reports that the king, the Marquis Count Ferretti, and the other nobles have stepped away to talk. Evan tells the crowd they'll adjust the stage and change the mood. He calls for the cute girls to play, and the group starts performing, while Hannah asks Ryan for a dance and he agrees. Servina rushes in, upset that she's late. After changing, the protagonist tells her to ask for the next dance. Serena suddenly declares she wants to dance with Evan. With no time, she grabs his hand and pulls him away. Evan dances with Serena. As she comments on his popularity, she mentions she didn't expect another aristocrat to be interested in his Dungeon Knight Order. He explains, Alicia is the daughter of the Magic Kingdom's Dungeon City Ferrari. He confirms that he has only met her once. Serena dismisses the concern, praises his dancing, and excitedly asks for another round. Before he can refuse, the surrounding guests erupt in loud cheers that draw his attention. The guy from the butcher shop carries skewers out. Some recognize it as Brother Skewers, while others speculate about the Sheridan family hiring them, though the skewers raise concerns about being made from monster meat and possible poisoning. Evan smirks, while Serena takes a bite and declares it delicious. The princess stares at the skewers before taking a bite. She's shouting that it's delicious, while insisting Evan she wants it in the castle. As well, Evan explains it's monster meat, which makes her hesitate, as she wonders if eating it is wrong. Yet he quickly reassures her that it's safe, because the Marquess family guarantees it. The nobles nearby order multiple skewers, while townsfolk also step forward. The cook signals Evan that it's a great success, just as the young master predicted. The protagonist smirks while noting that anything goes, as long as it tastes good. A voice calls from behind, and when he turns, he instantly recognizes Genian of the Thunderbird Guild. He remarks on how rare it is for someone outside dungeon explorers to appreciate monster meat, while calling him impressive. Evan recalls him as the leader of that small but elite guild. Genian insists they're simply short on members, which Evan waves aside. The man adds that their group is known only among insiders, while others remain unaware. Protagonist cuts him off by ordering 2 more skewers, to show he isn't interested in recruitment. Genian presses again by vowing he won't hand Ryan over, although Evan takes a bite without concern. Genian warns that he can't handle so many talented allies alone. Before leaving mid-conversation, Ruby steps up and quietly points out how curtly he dismissed the guildmaster. Soon a red-haired girl approaches with a man, who introduces himself as Alan, guildmaster of Wandering Paradise. She says she would have greeted him earlier, if she had known he'd entered their sphere. The protagonist recalls the guild's reputation for fierce loyalty and protecting the dungeon city, no matter the foe. Aloha Vaughn, serve of the Phoenix Guild, appears with Mira, vice of Heartshield. She explains their master stayed behind unwell. He remembers Aloha as the Ice Witch, who once fought with Heartshield's tanks. Then Vlad von Salta of Evergreen and Celine Anise of Megamine step forward. In turn, Daisy tilts her head curiously and asks about his combat technique. Evan replies that Knight Captain Michael once received a dungeon blessing, learned it and passed it to him. She presses further, asking if he really fights monsters, only with techniques and warning. It's reckless, he admits. Combat skills aren't effective. Inside the dungeon, he claims that he uses them only for self-defense, while researching new methods to support the Night Order, which he intends to test in the field. Alan notes the depth of his study. Aloha meets his gaze and asks if he seeks the dungeon's end. He replies firmly that the dungeon Night Order was created to shield the city. Its purpose is already clear, with no need for another. He adds that clearing sections to grow stronger and protect the people is enough. Daisy blinks with surprise at his lack of ambition, and he dismisses the idea of reaching the dungeon's end. He says that there's no point if it costs one's life, after which a man nearby chuckles that, at least the protagonist values survival. A cloaked figure steps out from the crowd. The hood falls back to reveal Prince Damien. Evan blurts out the name in shock. Evan says it's a relief as a young man steps forward. He notes that, at the very least, Evan knows how to value his life. People recognize him as Prince Damien L. Silkline. Evan greets him formally, calling it an honor to meet him. Damien remarks it doesn't seem like he feels honored, and explains he came to give an order. He tells Evan to protect his younger sister, as he values his own life from now on. Evan lifts his hand and refuses. The prince questions how he can reject so easily, and asks if he dislikes Serena. Evan replies that this isn't the place to discuss personal preferences. He adds that he will become captain of the Dungeon Night Order. He explains a wife of the captain must remain confined to the dungeon city, and without that resolve she cannot be his spouse. He claims that because of this, taking the princess as a bride would be difficult. Immediately Serena declares her intent to join the Dungeon Night Order. With him, Damien demands to know if Evan planted the idea, but he denies it quickly. The prince draws his sword and orders a duel, declaring that if Evan loses, he must take Serena as his bride. Evan protests, but Damien insists, pointing out he cannot refuse a prince's command twice. The blade now gleams in his hand, an incompatible weapon that reduces his power. Evan accepts the duel on the condition that if he wins, the prince will never make request of him again. Damien agrees and orders a guard to lend Evan a weapon, but the offer is refused instead. Evan relies on his martial art Heaven's Weight, a technique designed to protect the body from the claws and teeth of dungeon beasts. He prepares to fight unarmed, while the prince remains determined to humble him. The duel begins as they face each other, one armed with a sword, the other barehanded. Damien calls out his name and charges. Evan strikes with a single punch, and the royal collapses to the ground unconscious. The match ends almost instantly, making Evan wonder how one hit was enough. Could an incompatible weapon really weaken him that much? Michael steps in and explains that the heavy aura from the punch still lingers. He adds that a trait of Heaven's Weight likely causes an internal injury. Evan insists he barely grazed him. Michael replies that his skill is impressive, even if the first prince seems to be on the weaker side. The victor approaches Damien and tells him he isn't compatible with the sword. He suggests he try something better suited, maybe a hammer. The prince questions the suggestion and asks why not a spear instead. Evan urges him to choose a weapon that matches his build, warning that forcing the wrong one will only hurt him. Damien hesitates but listens, as Evan explains. A sword's worth depends entirely on its wielder. The prince considers this silently, then agrees to keep it in mind before leaving. Meanwhile, Serena insists on staying with Evan, and he allows it for the day. She asks to dance again but he declines, saying they've danced enough. Alicia steps forward and invites him instead, as Serena waves, securing a promise for another dance. Alicia comments on his popularity, then admits it's unpleasant but no longer important. She reveals her intention to be engaged to him. While dancing, Alicia announces she will soon be engaged to him. Evan denies the possibility, insisting his father would refuse, but she counters. She explains that her own father will push for it, and hinting that this is why he followed them earlier. He recalls seeing their fathers together, and starts to realize it may have been about his engagement. Evan protests, arguing it's uncommon for someone like him to be chosen. Yet she replies that she's already agreed. Panic builds as he demands to know why. Alicia leans in, saying he acts as if he knows everything in the world. Yet he's afraid of her, our boy reminds himself. This is only their second meeting. He wishes he had completed his poker face training. Silently cursing Shine, Alicia adds that she finds it amusing, and wants to see how long he stays afraid of her, deciding to remain by his side. He calls the situation dangerous, and decides to avoid the party altogether. All he wants now is to slip away. Evan tries to leave, but another girl intercepts and invites him to dance. Soon more to step forward. First Servina, then Hannah, and soon a small crowd forms. each waiting their turn nearby. Shine and Ryan watch. One comments on his popularity, while the other shrugs it off, as expected for their young master. Shine suggests Bella join in as well, and wonders if he should speak for her. She refuses sharply and says that pressing him first, from her side, would be too much. Shine reminds her today is different. Bellua replies that simply being near him is special to her, and from now on she'll value every single day. Suddenly Shine calls out to the young master. He turns and hears that a lady wants to be escorted by him. While pointing at Bellua, Shine asks how long he plans to keep her waiting. Our boy apologizes, explaining he wasn't paying attention. As he watches her, he wonders if she's angry. Kneeling before Bella, he addresses her as my lady, and asks if she'll do him the honor of letting him escort her. Tonight she starts to protest, saying she wouldn't dare. Evan tells her to forget such trivial things for today, and repeats his request. Pointing at him, she declares she would gladly. Everyone watches in awe. Crow mutters about wanting to become Evan and win Bella's heart, but Alicia tells him to stop dreaming. Bella turns to the boy, calling him a noble figure at the center of the world, though he insists he's just an aristocrat from the outskirts. Later, the Marquis meets his son and informs him that all engagements have been blocked. For now, the young master praises his father's decision. They both share a laugh until Mr. his father remarks that the king would never hand the princess over to a dungeon knight. His father clarifies it's not just any knight, but a dungeon knight captain. He explains they were able to decline and maintain their stance. Our boy concludes that the issue with Princess Serena is resolved. Marquis adds that even if the king runs out of cards, he won't stop and warns him to be careful. Evan quietly hopes someone better appears for the princess soon. His father shifts the subject. He says that while things lean toward the better, Count Ferretti's daughter has made a decision. Evan listens as the Marquis explains that the Count wants her placed in the Dungeon Knight squad as a reserve member. Hearing this makes the boy scream in frustration. The Marquis continues, saying that if she suffers there for a while, she might eventually become a real member. He doesn't need to explain what that means, and there's no escaping now. He points out the growing military strength of the dungeon city, something that can't be ignored. Marquis also mentions the fancy clothes given to children under the guise of reserve roles. He challenges his son after coming this far. Will he abandon them then? He changes tone and says it's time to know the real reason, asking why his son is so afraid of women. After a pause, our boy admits he fears keeping someone close who can't be controlled. He claims that he's worried he'll be hurt by hidden intentions, and asks if that makes him foolish. The Marquis denies it, saying he isn't stupid, but just unusually mature for his age. He warns that avoiding people entirely isn't the solution, adding even failed efforts will help him grow, though he understands and respects his son's intentions. Marquis explains that true learning only comes from direct experience, and even failure is part of that. He urges him to reflect on both himself and others, using each outcome to improve. Evan agrees. He admits his real motive is to avoid girls, in order to prevent the deadly scenarios he remembers. Finally, the Marquis congratulates him on turning 12. Evan surveys the supplies laid out before him. He inspects the boxes of blue-capped potions, and concluding the amount is sufficient. As he finishes, Bernard approaches and asks why he hasn't rested. Evan to explain that something came up the night before, and that he plans to sleep now. Before he can move, a blue glow pulses from his chest. He draws out Mirasol's necklace, which now shines brightly as it begins to shift shape. At that moment, the door bursts open and Princess Serena rushes in. Though Evan recalls his father's warning from the previous day, she's already in his room, announcing that a child is about to be born. She claims it for herself as she steps closer, insisting the child is ready to be summoned. Evan glances at the glowing necklace in his hand, beginning to understand what it might signify. Serena, holding the red slime, Ruby, explains it overheard something about the new arrival. He warns her not to enter like that again, and she agrees, though her focus remains fixed on the summoning. Evan turns his attention to the necklace. As light bursts from the pendant, and the ritual begins, energy spirals outward, forming a small, blue shape that reveals itself as an ice slime. He notes that it has come of its own accord, and Serena extends her hands to receive it. The creature settles into her grasp, and she thanks it for being born, naming it Lucy and placing it beside Ruby. The following morning, Evan meets Bernard, presents a tray of bright red orbs, introducing them as battle beads. Bernard reacts with surprise. Evan explains that, since his gloves nullify weapon abilities, he claims that crafting a standard weapon would be pointless. Instead, the orbs hit hard, enhanced by the gloves. Reinforcement effect provides both range and safety, while all chemical reinforcement will continue to strengthen them over time, making them ideal for his use. Bernard urges him to rely on them. If things turn dangerous outside, the others wait as the group gathers to depart. Evan spots his father among them and greets him. The man expresses surprise that Evan is heading into the dungeon so soon, and asks if he's certain. Evan assures him he's prepared, though his father hesitates. His mother voices her support. After a pause, the man relents and tells Evan to be careful. He nods in agreement, turning to face the others. Evan says Ryan Belua and Shine, already in position,